My card is forming in front of my eyes right now, and my entire future is riding on it. Golden light spins over my palm, condenses, hardens into a rectangle. The whole class is holding its breath around me because this is Awakening Day, the day every 16-year-old in the vast universe great world finds out which race of followers fate assigned them. Dragons, elves, titans. Anything is possible. The light settles. My card flips over. I read the name. Strange mushroom. I read it again because clearly my eyes are broken. Nope. Still a mushroom. Not even a cool mushroom. A strange one. My card art is literally a lumpy fungus sitting in dirt, looking about as majestic as a wet sock. Let me explain what just happened to me fast, because the clock in my head is already screaming. In this world, your awakening card gives you a familia, a race that lives in your personal false kingdom of God, a pocket continent about 10 kilometers across. You raise your race worships you, their faith accumulates, and if you gather enough within 1 year, you ignite your divine fire and become a real god, a citizen of the Jade Emperor divine dynasty, with everything that comes with it. Fail, and you get late fees, downgraded citizenship, and eventually a one-way ticket to the lower realm. Mushrooms do not worship. Mushrooms do not generate faith. Mushrooms sit in dirt and think about moisture, and my family cannot afford a do-over. My dad drives trucks on 3 jobs, and his temples went gray at 40. My mom waits tables on 2 shifts. My little brother has been in a wheelchair for 13 years. We pay rent late, often enough that the late fee notices know our door personally. A blank replacement familiar card costs 100,000 coins. We have never seen 100,000 coins in the same room. So I'm standing there holding a fungus, watching my family's one shot at climbing out of the basement of society dissolve when my card glitches. I mean, it actually glitches. The golden frame stutters like a cheap video file. Text scrolls across my vision. Double summon detected. Excuse me, double what? A second card is trying to form on top of the first one. I catch one word, orcs, before the 2 cards slam into each other like drunk drivers and fuse into a flickering mess. The text updates, and I swear it sounds embarrassed. Gibberish detected. Repair failed. Please enter race settings manually. Time remaining 10 minutes. A blank input field opens in the air in front of me. 10 minutes, a countdown, and a prompt politely asking me to describe by hand what race I would like to exist. Here's the thing nobody in this classroom knows about me. I remember another life. I've remembered it since I was 3 years old. A whole previous world with no gods and no faith, but with something arguably more important, an absolutely unhinged tabletop franchise about war in the far future. And in that franchise, there is one race that is fungus and warrior at the same time. One race that literally grows out of mushrooms, is born knowing how to fight, worships its gods with a fanaticism that would make a cultist blush, and cannot be exterminated by any force in the galaxy because every dead one seeds the ground with 1,000 more. The mushroom card isn't a dead end, it's a loading screen. My hands are shaking as I type. Greenskins, orcs, born from spores, born for battle. Green skin, huge muscles, regeneration. They grow bigger and stronger the more they fight. Their belief makes reality bend. If enough of them believe a thing works, it works. Their gods are 2 brutal giants of savagery and cunning. Their technology runs on enthusiasm and should not function but does. They fear nothing. They love war more than life. 8 minutes. I'm typing like the keyboard owes me money. 7. Spore reproduction. A dead orc releases spores. Spores become mushrooms. Mushrooms birth new orcs. 6. They are all, every single one, fanatical believers from the moment they crawl out of the ground. I hit confirm with 2 minutes to spare and stand there sweating like I just ran a marathon in a rice cooker. My card burns gold. New text, and this time it's not embarrassed at all. Approved. Race orc, barbarian, greenskin, quality SSR, SSR. I nearly bite my tongue. Card qualities run from normal to rare to SR, and above that sits a tier most people only see in museum catalogs. Features scroll past, Wa energy, spore reproduction, ancient technology unlock, and one final line of system commentary that reads less like an evaluation and more like the universe whistling through its teeth. A race born solely for battle. Too awesome. I use my card right there. Golden light pours out of me, through the floor, into the pocket dimension every awakened kid now owns, and somewhere in my brand new 10-kilometer kingdom, spores are already settling into the soil. Now, deep breath, because the next decision I make in the following 4 seconds might be the most important one of my life. Everyone saw my first card, everyone saw the mushroom, nobody saw the fix. The input field only exists for me. And an SSR card on a kid from a late fee family is not a blessing, it's a dinner bell. Rich clans in this city collect talented awakeners the way my mom collects discount coupons, and the ones who can't be collected have accidents. I have a wheelchair brother and 2 parents with no powers and no money. I'm not putting a target on that apartment. So when my homeroom teacher Wang Tao walks over with the registration tablet and asks in front of 40 classmates what I awakened, I look him dead in the eye and say it. A mushroom, the classroom detonates around me, and nobody laughs harder than Fan Kang. Fan Kang is what happens when a family has more money than sense and exactly one son to pour it into. He awakened 20 minutes ago, intermediate wood elves, a genuinely good pull, and he's been circling the room ever since like a peacock with a grudge. See, until today, I was class monitor of Class 2. I was also first in every virtual command battle the Ministry of Education ever ran on our simulation helmets. That part matters later, remember it. Fan Kang has wanted my seat since forever, and now the heavens have personally handed it to him. He's wheezing, actual tears. A mushroom. Zhuhan awakened a mushroom. He slaps his desk, points at me, does a little impression of a fungus standing quietly. The impression is just him standing still with a dumb expression, which honestly is not much of a stretch. Wang Tao doesn't laugh. He does something colder. He loses interest. I watch it happen in real time. His eyes go from me to his tablet. He taps twice, and the words class monitor transfer to Fan Kang without ceremony. 10 years of grades gone from his memory in one tap. He was never invested in me. He was invested in what I might become, and a mushroom becomes soup. Fan Kang leans in on his way to collect the monitor badge and drops his voice so only I hear it. A late fee family and a useless mushroom, he says. What gave you the right to ever look down on me? Buddy, I never looked down on you. That would require thinking about you. There's exactly one person in the building who doesn't treat me like I died. Su Fen, class monitor of Class 1, marches over from the next room the moment the gossip reaches her. Su Fen is my rival in the simulation rankings. She's taken second place to me so many times that the teachers started calling the leaderboard the Su Han and also Su Fen Memorial Standings. Her family owns half the logistics in the city. This morning, she awakened the three-eyed human race, an elite card, exactly what everyone expected from her. She plants herself in front of my desk, arms crossed, and offers, completely seriously, to bring me into her family's business. An investment, she calls it. They'd buy me an intermediate familiar card. I'd owe the Lin family my career. Everyone wins. And I almost feel bad about what I do next, because it's the second lie of the day, and it's aimed at the one person being decent to me. I tell her thanks, but my family is already preparing a second card for me. An orc card, I say, keeping my face bored. I'll awaken again in a few days. She squints at me the way she squints at the simulator when she's sure I'm bluffing. Fine, she says finally. 7 days. Simulation battlefield. If your mysterious orcs are real, prove it there. Deal. On her way out, she passes Fan Kang, who has been hovering with his shiny new badge, waiting for her to acknowledge the new social order. She walks past him like he's furniture. I watch the exact moment his soul leaves his body, and you know what? The mushroom jokes suddenly sting a lot less. Home time. Our apartment building is a 5th floor walk-up in Yongning Beiyuan, which is real estate code for the elevator broke before I was born. The neighborhood aunties are already gossiping on the stairs. Awakening results travel faster than light in a housing block. It's the one force in the universe unbound by physics. I hear rich young master and witch family's car and realize with horror that someone saw Su Fen's driver drop me off at the corner and the aunties have already married us with 3 kids. I push open our door and walk into a firecracker, an actual firecracker. My dad is holding the string, my mom is holding a plate of braised pork the size of a truck tire, and my little brother, Shu Dong, is parked at the table with a paper banner he clearly drew himself. Congratulations. They don't even know what I awakened yet. They're celebrating because I awakened it all, because their son has a kingdom now, because in this family, hope is the one grocery nobody ever cancels. I look at my dad's gray temples and my mom's swollen ankles and my brother's chair, and the lie comes out of me smooth as butter. Intermediate orcs, I tell them. A solid combat race, not top tier, but strong. You'd think I told them I'd been crowned Jade Emperor. My dad breaks out a bottle he's been saving since before the wheelchair, pours himself 3 fingers, then 3 more fingers, and by the end of dinner, he's telling embarrassing stories about my childhood with tears in his eyes and pork grease on his chin. My mom keeps piling meat into my bowl like she's trying to bury me alive in it. And Dong, 13 years in that chair, and the kid spends the whole evening excited for me. Not 1 gram of envy in his whole skinny body. Dong makes me promise to describe every monster I raise. Mom says it once quietly when Dad's mid-story. We're happy as long as you light your fire, she says. No pressure. Any fire. Yeah, about that, Mom. Your son is about to light something, and calling it a fire is underselling it the way calling the sun a lamp is underselling it. That night I lie down on my bed, close my eyes, and enter my kingdom of God for the first time. 2 things you need to know about God kingdoms. 1, time runs 100 to 1 in there. A single day outside is over 3 months inside. 2. A normal starter kingdom comes with 5 to 50 units of your race standing in a field waiting for instructions like new employees. I open my divine senses and look down at my 10 kilometers of land. The entire planet is carpeted in mushrooms, fat ones, thin ones, towers of them, hills of them, and crawling between the mushrooms, squabbling, biting, screaming, wrestling in the mud are more than 500 green bodies. 500. On day 1. The system said 5 to 50, and my fungus said, hold my spores. Most of them are small. There are Gretchen, wiry green goblins a meter and change tall, all elbows and teeth and malice, screeching at each other in voices like rusty hinges. There are snotlings, tiny sniveling idiots the size of house cats, who as far as I can tell have 1 brain cell per group and take turns using it. I watch one snotling stand guard over a mushroom while a second snotling watches him, and I genuinely cannot tell you what either of them thinks is being accomplished. There are squigs, which is the polite name for what happens when a mushroom decides to be a mouth, ball-shaped, mostly teeth, boundless enthusiasm. Some of them bounce, and my Gretchen have invented a game. They pick up snotlings and bowl them into rows of other snotlings. The snotlings, and I want to stress that the pins are volunteering, line up for it, get scattered squealing, then line right back up, strike after strike. Somewhere in my head, a scholar of my old world is weeping into his codex, whispering, yes, this is canon. This is exactly canon. Then the ground bulges near the biggest mushroom cluster, the soil cracks, and a hand the size of a dinner plate punches out of the dirt. My first orc boy pulls himself out of the ground like a man getting out of a swimming pool. 2 meters of slab muscle, skin like green leather, jaw like a bank vault, tiny red eyes burning with the pure, uncomplicated joy of existing. He looks around at the world looks back, and his first act as a newborn sapient being is to grab the nearest Gretchen and take a bite out of it like an apple. I'm floating up there, having a small crisis about this when he bellows his first words. I'm the boss. Boss is hungry. The other greens freeze. 500 pairs of beady eyes swivel. And then the dirt cracks again across the field, and a second boy climbs out, cracks his neck, hears the words, I'm the boss, and takes it exactly the way orcs take everything, as an invitation. The 2 of them slam together in the middle of the field like continental plates, and the crowd doesn't watch. That's the part no textbook prepares you for. Watching is for species with patience. Within 30 seconds, every Gretchen, snotling, and squig in a half-kilometer radius has piled into the fight, biting whatever's nearest, and the fight stops being a duel and becomes weather. A single, planet-wide, all-you-can-punch brawl under the mushroom sky. The second boy wins the original argument, for the record. He does it with a headbutt that echoes, and then, I need you to picture this, he picks up 2 Gretchen by the ankles, 1 in each fist, and uses them as clubs to beat his way through the crowd. My Gretchen being used as clubs are furious about the situation, but also somehow honored. I could stop this. I'm their god. 1 word from on high, and okay, let's be honest, 1 word from on high, and absolutely nothing would change. These are orcs. So instead, I do the god thing properly. I gather my will and press down with divine pressure, the weight of heaven itself folding over the battlefield. 500 greens hit their knees at once. The brawl stops mid-punch. Every beady eye turns upward, and I let them see something. Not my face. I'm not an idiot, but a shape in the sky. 2 shapes. I reach into my memory of the old world, and I paint their own gods over the clouds. 2 colossal green silhouettes, one all brute savagery with cunning behind it, one all low cunning with savagery behind it, Goruk and Mazrak, and in a voice like a landslide, I deliver my first divine miracle, my first commandment to my chosen people. The great god Tianlei commands you, grow, get stronger, and prepare for war. Why Tianlei? Because if I sign my real name to this circus and some dynasty auditor ever peeks inside, I want deniability. Tianlei is nobody. Tianlei is a shell company of a god. My greens lose their minds. 500 voices roar the roar I already knew they'd roar. Wah! And the sound rolls around my little planet like it's been waiting there since before the dirt. They believe instantly, totally, without 1 atom of doubt, because doubt is a thing that happens to species with more than 1 idea at a time. And my panel chimes, faith points, 6,502. I stare at the number. Some context. In the ministry simulations, the all-time record for faith generated in a starter month was 13,000, and that record was mine, and I set it micromanaging a dream team scenario like a chess grandmaster. This is day 10, inside time. From a species I have given exactly 1 instruction, and the instruction was essentially, keep doing what you're doing. Here's why the number is insane, and why it's about to get worse for everyone who isn't me. Faith depends on devotion. A regular worshiper trickles in fractions of a point. A true fanatic, the kind other gods spend decades cultivating with miracles and scripture and guilt, generates 10 a day. Every orc boy is born a fanatic. Every Gretchen 5 points born that way. Even the snotlings, bless their shared brain cell, drip out 2 apiece. Other gods have congregations. I have a species whose entire theology fits in one word and who consider dying in battle a 5-star customer experience. Down on the field, the fight has restarted, obviously, and the winner of the original boss dispute finishes it in style. He rips the leg off his rival and holds the leg up like a championship belt while the crowd goes berserk. Before you write my whole species off as monsters, 2 clarifications. 1, the legless orc is fine. He's already crawling toward the mushroom fields with a grin because orc bodies treat amputation as a minor scheduling conflict. 2, the leg bone immediately becomes the tribe's first weapon, which means I have just witnessed the birth of orc technology, and I am weirdly proud. I float up there in the dark over my screaming, brawling, bowling, biting nation, and I come to the single most important strategic conclusion of my career, a conclusion that every future enemy of mine will wish I'd never reached. I will not manage them. You heard me. Every other young god spends their year playing kindergarten teacher, settle disputes, assign jobs, build morale, drip feed miracles, burn their own soul dry, keeping the congregation from wandering off. Their time gets eaten by management. My greens need none of it. Take a planet, add mushrooms, walk away. The Plague Gardens itself. I pull my senses back to my dark little bedroom, to the sound of Dad snoring off the celebration through the wall, and I lie there grinning at the ceiling like an absolute lunatic. They gave me a mushroom. The universe handed the poorest kid in class to a fungus, closed the window, and called it a day. And through the crack in that window crawled the one race in all of fiction that turns a fungus into an arsenal. Sleep. Tomorrow, the Empire needs fertilizer. Morning brings me my dad, hungover and glowing, doing something that almost stops my heart. He slides a bank card across the breakfast table. There's 100,000 on it, he says, like it's nothing. Part of it is your own scholarship money we saved. The rest, don't ask, eat. 100,000 in this family. I look at his hands on the table, driver's calluses stacked on driver's calluses, and I decide right there that the first thing my divine fire ever pays for is this man never touching a steering wheel again. But first, shopping. Because a god kingdom comes with a store, the official god cards catalog, the Dynasty's marketplace for divine infrastructure. I flip through it lying on my bed like it's a takeout menu. Weapon cards, armor cards for your followers, a red dragon card, gorgeous predatory pricing, a mineral card, 50,000, seeds your land with ore veins, and the big one, domain expansion card. 10 more kilometers of land, 10,000 faith plus 100,000 coins. Any sane new god buys weapons, arm your followers, accelerate your faith, snowball. And with any other race, that's correct. My guys, grow out of the ground with the proceeds of a mushroom's opinion about violence. Handing an orc a factory sword is an insult to 3 separate theologies. No weapons, no armor. What my species needs is the one thing that limits a fungus acreage. I buy the domain card, the entire 100,000, one purchase. And let me tell you, clicking confirm on your family's whole liquid net worth produces a full body clench you can feel in your teeth. The delivery is its own comedy. My card arrives by courier. Physical delivery, divine items don't email. And our building has no elevator and the courier refuses to climb 5 floors. So, my mom lowers a basket on a rope from the balcony, the way she receives eggs and cabbage, and this poor man stands in the courtyard holding a sealed Dynasty artifact worth 6 figures, staring at the vegetable basket descending toward him like it's a prank show. This is a 100,000 coin card, he keeps saying. It's not food. My mom tells him the rope is rated for watermelons. Up it comes, spinning gently. Meanwhile, inside my kingdom, 10 days have passed and my nation has been improving itself. The brawl never really ended. It institutionalized. And out of that endless, joyful, planet-wide sorting algorithm has climbed my first true boss. My Gretchen named him. There was apparently a naming ceremony, by which I mean a Gretchen tried to say his title while being strangled, and out came Braum. Breakor. Breakor stuck. Breakor is what happens when an orc wins for 10 days straight. He's a head taller than every boy on the planet and wider than 2. He carries a leg bone club, fossilized with use, wears armor of lashed together bones, and around his neck hangs a necklace of teeth that functions as his bank account, his war record, and his jewelry all at once. 40, 50 boys follow him now, not because he ordered it. Orcs don't take orders, but because standing near Breakor means the best fights find you first, and that's the entire orc social contract. I activate the domain card over my kingdom and give my people a show while I'm at it. The sky splits on a half-burning red, half-deep blue, and out of the split lean 2 vast orc faces, one gnawing the sun, one gnawing the moon. Goruk and Mozrok snacking on the heavens. The land groans and grows, 10 kilometers stretching toward 20. New hills rolling out of the horizon. horizon with streams cracking through them, actual water, and I ride the moment with a divine broadcast straight into 6,000 fanatic hearts. Wah, gi, I tell them. Reward from Tianlei, more land, more boys, more bosses, fight like maniacs. The reaction is a planetary berserk. Total war, horizon to horizon, greens fighting greens over nothing and everything, and rising out of the middle of it comes Breakor, who has climbed to the top of the largest pile of the fallen and just sits there, waiting. He turns down the small fights now, beating up runts he has decided would not be approved by Tianlei. He sits on his mountain like a green Buddha of violence, waiting for a rival worth his club. And here's the thing my panel confirms that should frighten every god in the dynasty. He's still growing. The waiting alone is making him bigger. The anticipation of war feeds an orc the way war does. 10 days of this, and my faith counter looks like a phone number. And the dead? This is the part where I show you the engine, the perpetual motion machine the dynasty would ban if they understood it. Every fallen green sinks into the dirt, and the dirt blooms. Spores rise off the battlefields in golden green clouds. Mushrooms fatten on the fallen, and out of the mushrooms crawl new greens, more than fell, hungrier than the last batch. My kingdom doesn't pay for war. My kingdom is paid in war. Population up, faith up, land fertility of all things up. I run the numbers twice because the first result looks like an accounting error in my favor. It's not an error, it's a closed loop. Violence in, violence out, compounding. Every other god in this dynasty is running a farm. I'm running a fire that eats nothing but itself and grows. So what does the god of a self-managing nation do with the 90% of his time other gods spend babysitting? He studies. The dynasty's starter package includes 3 basic divine arts. The kindergarten spells of godhood, rain summoning, healing, and divine shield. Most young gods never level them past the first stage. No time, no spare faith. I have nothing but time and a faith counter with compound interest. I start with rain because I'm curious what a divine art feels like from the caster's side, and I do something extremely intelligent. I tested out my bedroom window. 1,000 faith, 1 gesture. The sky over our housing block curdles. Pressure rolls down the street like a dropped blanket. That's divine suppression, an area saying loudly that a god is working, and it rains on the auntie's laundry for 2 glorious minutes. From the courtyard below, a bellow. Who is casting divine arts in a residential district? Then a man jumps onto my 5th floor balcony. From the roof of the building across the street, he lands in a crouch, straightens up, and flashes a badge. Fanley, Public Security Bureau. And my divine senses do a quiet scream because the aura radiating off this guy is true God. An actual, ignited, certified God is standing on my mom's balcony between 2 racks of drying socks, and he is here about the weather. He chews me out for about 90 seconds. Noise complaint, unlicensed precipitation, divine suppression scaring the aunties, and then he actually looks at me and the lecture dies mid-sentence. You awakened yesterday, he says slowly. You're casting on day 1. While he recalibrates, I get a free education because Fanley likes to talk. Turns out there are 3 roads to godhood in this world. Faith gods, like me and every other awakened kid, congregation, worship, divine fire, ascended gods, like Fanley himself, no followers at all. They temper their own bodies with the laws of the universe. Fewer tricks but monstrous in a straight fight. The dynasty's silver-armored heavenly soldiers are all this type. And above everything, karma gods, the bureaucrat emperors of reality who can grant divinity the way a boss grants a promotion. The Jade Emperor is the top of that food chain, which is why his name is on the whole civilization. Fanley leaves me with a warning about municipal casting ordinances and jumps off my balcony like that's a normal way for guests to exit, and I sit there processing my favorite part of everything he said. Faith gods are considered weak in personal combat. Why? No time to train. Their hours vanish into flock management. Flock management. I look inward at my flock, which is currently a horizon-wide bar fight with a religion attached. My flock manages itself, which means every hour other faith gods burn on sermons and lost sheep. I can burn on divine arts. I can be the one faith god in the dynasty built like an ascended one. The gods of my greenskins I decree to nobody shall be mighty. Well, God, singular. Tianlei the Magnificent, and his entirely real and not at all made-up celestial franchise. Inside my kingdom, my decree meets reality, and reality is green. The great berserk I triggered with the land expansion has run its course, and the census is in. 90% casualties, boys down 70%. Anywhere else in the multiverse, those numbers mean a civilization-ending catastrophe, a nation of widows, a century of mourning. Here it means the mushroom fields have never been fatter, and every green still walking is a hardened veteran with opinions about knife fights. The dead are not gone. They are compost with a pension plan. Population bounces back within days, and the new generation grows up, literally out of the ground, surrounded by survivors, which means the average quality of my species just went up a full grade. Anyone else's army gets weaker every war. Mine gets filtered. Breakor has a new hobby. On the site of the biggest brawl, a bog so churned and vile even the squigs avoided it. He has built an arena, rough stone, dragged and stacked by boys who thought hauling rocks was a fun new kind of fight. Now the boss disputes have a venue, and Breakor has a challenger, a scarred rising star my Gretchen calls Scar, and the two of them headline the arena on a schedule the whole kingdom treats as holy. I watch Scar take a swing that would demolish a house, and I note in my growing file of things that should worry the heavens that my kingdom has invented professional sports before inventing pants. I try the rain properly this time, inside where the only ordinance is me. 500 faith buys 3 days of downpour across the whole kingdom, and I get to watch a species discover water. My orcs have, until this moment, hydrated exclusively with mushroom pulp and Gretchen juice, a fact I learned from my panel and immediately wished I had not. Now they stand in the rain with their faces up and their mouths open, roaring at the sky between gulps, and my faith counter shivers with every thunderclap. Free water from Tian Lei, greatest god, no notes, and then I train, really train. I stop counting outside days and live by kingdom time, healing and divine shield, hour after hour, drill after drill, half a year of internal time, while my parents see a son who has been oddly quiet for 2 days. 2 days, that is what tips them off. In the end, my mom knocks on my door on the evening of the second day because I have not come out for meals. And her voice through the door does the thing where it is calm on top and worried all the way through. I open the door, starving, half drunk on spell drills, and I look at my family across the little apartment. Mom at my door, dad's jacket gone, night shift. And Dong in his chair by the window, where he always is, doing his homework with his legs folded under a blanket like something to be stored, half a year of training on the inside, healing at a level no first-year god should have. You see where this is going? I have been seeing it for weeks. Dong, I say, come here. Actually, no, I'll come to you. Here's what 13 years of wheelchair actually was, and the day I found out, I had to walk out of the apartment so nobody saw my face. My little brother has gifted one syndrome. It is rare, it is congenital, and it is the single cruelest joke in this world's rulebook. It means his body is a natural vessel for the ascension path, the warrior god path, the path of law and steel. So natural that raw law energy condensed in his meridians in the womb and clogged them. The gift is the disease. Kids like him go blind or deaf or lose their legs, and the very blockage that cripples them would make them monsters of cultivation if anyone could clear it. Nobody clears it. The price of that healing at divine rates is 150,000 faith, 50 years of honest farming for a normal young god. Nobody spends 50 years of divinity on a driver's kid. My farming rate makes it about 10 minutes of income. I put my hands on my brother's knees and I pour. Golden light floods the apartment. Divine suppression rolls through the walls. Somewhere below, an auntie's dog starts howling and Dong's body answers like it has been waiting 13 years for someone to knock. The blocked law energy does not drain out, it ignites. Sword chi, actual sword chi, silver and wild, bursts through his meridians as they open, thrashing around the room, slicing the curtains, and I am laughing and cushioning it with shield after shield while my mom stands in the doorway with both hands over her mouth. The light wraps him in a golden cocoon. Inside his core, something condenses, a cyan seed of pure sword intent settling into his dantian like it owns the place. The cocoon fades. The apartment is dead quiet, and my brother, my little brother, who has never once stood at his own full height, puts both hands on the armrests and pushes. He is up, wobbling like a foal, gripping my shoulder, laughing and crying at the same time with his brand new legs shaking under him. My mom makes a sound I have never heard a human make and crushes us both. And me, the mask I wear about my real power, the careful bored face I have been maintaining since the classroom, gone. Did not even try to keep it. Some things you do not deadpan. While I am at it, Mom, sit down. She protests that she is fine. She is just tired. Tired is normal. I spend 5,000 faith unwinding 20 years of double shifts out of her spine and her knees and her heart and watch 10 years fall off her face in 1 minute. She touches her own cheeks and starts crying again. And honestly, the neighbors must think we are holding a seance in here. My panel, updated, 153,000 faith remaining after today's spending spree. 4,000 new greens born per day, 500 boys under arms, and Breakor's arena is producing bosses like a kiln. The next days are the best of my life so far. Dong learns to walk again down our hallway, one hand on the wall, and every stumble makes him laugh instead of curse. 13 years of watching other kids run does something to your gratitude settings. I test him the way Fanlei's lecture taught me to, and confirm it. Wind and sword, a natural affinity so pure it hums. So I hand him the family's only cultivation resource. And me. I teach him the divine shield art with my own tweaks. The fourth stage of any art is transformation, where the art stops being a spell and becomes a shape, and I tell him what shape his is aimed at. At mastery, my little brother's shield becomes a sword. He asks about dad. When dad's home, I tell him, whatever is worn out in him, I will fix it too, the whole family, good as new. That is a promise, and I log it where I log the promises I would die before breaking. Dad does not come home. Instead, at noon 2 days later, our home phone rings, and a stranger's voice says my father has been beaten at his work site. What happened? Assembled afterward from a dozen mouths. My dad picked up day labor at a construction site across town. The site belongs to the Wong family. Yes, that Wong family. And today, Fan Kong came by to pose in front of his future villa. His parents have already poured 5 million into his wood elves, 500 elves, and half of them fanatics, plus a matching villa for their little god. Because, of course, Fan Kang hears the foreman mention the name Lee, puts it together, finds my exhausted father in the lunch line, and announces to the whole site that this is the father of the mushroom liar, the late fee family, the fraud who claims his relatives are buying him an orc card. My dad, my quiet, tired, 3 jobs dad, sets down his lunch and tells the young master to his face that his son does not lie, and Fan Kang's bodyguard kicks him. An old man in gray standing behind Fan Kang like a folded umbrella. Elder Jin, a true god, an ascended one. The kind rich families keep the way other people keep dogs. One kick, my dad's head hits a stack of rebar. Blood on the site dirt, phones out, and Fan Kong standing over him going on about respect. I am out the door before the phone call ends. But here's the thing about being poor. I have been studying this world's fine print my whole life because the fine print is where families like ours get erased. Rich kid, hired true god, public site, cameras. Storm and swinging, and I become the assault. So I make one call while flagging the taxi. Public Security Bureau, please. I would like to report a discrimination attack in progress. Yes, I will hold. The police and I arrive at the same time, which is exactly the choreography I wanted. I go through the site gate at a dead sprint anyway. Choreography has limits. That is my father on the ground. Fan Kang sees me coming, and his face lights up with genuine delight, and he opens his mouth to deliver whatever line he has been rehearsing. And Elder Jin steps between us with the lazy confidence of a true god intercepting a week-old demigod. My divine shield meets his palm. The shield cracks. He is a true god. The shield was never winning, but a shield trained half a year on a fat wallet does not just break. It holds for half a second. Half a second is plenty. I go through the gap and slap Fan Kang across the face with everything my faith-fed body has. The sound is beautiful. He leaves his feet, spins once, and lands in the sand pile. Elder Jin's second strike is already falling on me and stops. Because Fanlei is standing on the site fence with his badge out, having arrived precisely on schedule, taking in the scene, bleeding worker, weeping foreman, young master in the sand, true god with his hand cocked over a 16-year-old, suspicion of discrimination and assault, Fanlei says pleasantly. Evidence appears to be everywhere. He hit me. Fan Kang screams from the sand. He assaulted me. Arrest him. Do you know who my father is? I saw it. Fanlei agrees. Clear self-defense. Any problems? I like this cop. While they process the sight, I kneel over my dad, and the fear that has been riding me since the phone call finally gets its turn. Blood in his gray hair, eyes unfocused. I put my hands on him right there in the dirt and cast, and golden threads lace across his scalp, down his neck, stitching, smoothing, erasing. The bleeding stops in seconds. The bruising lifts like fog. 20 years of steering wheel shoulders unknot while I am in the neighborhood, because I promised Dong the whole family, and I keep my ledger clean. Fanlei watches the threads work, with his jaw slightly open. Proficient stage healing. No incantation. No focus item, he mutters. You awakened last week. And then his eyes drift to the site gate, where Dong, who ran the whole way here on his brand new legs, is standing guard over our dad's things with sword intent steaming off his shoulders, visible to anyone with God sight. A healed, gifted one. Fanlei looks from the miracle brother to the miracle healer and back, and I can hear the gears grinding. If I hand this family to the elder sister captain, he says under his breath, do I get 6 months of vacation? I do not know who elder sister captain is yet. I am going to find out in the most alarming way possible. The station receives us. Fluorescent lights, paper cups, my dad patched up and giving his statement with the slow dignity of a man who has never once been the problem in a room. And in Sweeps Fanjung, Fan Kang's father, sub-god, chairman of a development empire, silver at the temples, smile like a business card. He is here to fix things, by which he means bury them. The suitcase comes out. For the medical expenses, he purrs, and the misunderstanding. It was entirely the bodyguard's initiative. Elder Jin exceeded his instructions. We are, of course, devastated. Everyone in the room understands the transaction. Money for silence, with the blame pre-packaged onto the hired help. He holds out his hand for the shake that seals it. I look at the hand. I look at him. Yes, I say, taking the suitcase. I did also hit your son, just so the record is straight. Then I walk out with the money and leave his handshake hanging in the fluorescent light in front of 2 cops and a stenographer. Behind me, I hear the crack of a sub-god's composure. His fist goes through the glass interview table. 10,000 yuan, Fan Lei's voice notes instantly. Municipal property. We do take transfers. In the taxi, Dad asleep on my shoulder. I open the suitcase. It is $1 million. He put $1 million in the room on hour 1, which tells you what he thought he was buying, not our silence about a beating. Our family, wholesale, the way his kind buys everything. What I do not hear, because even my new ears do not reach across the city. Fanjing in his office that night, hand bandaged, saying to someone, that boy will not stop. Investigate him. Killing him before my exam is impossible. Everyone is watching, so we do it clean. My son beats him in the arena, in front of the whole city, cut off his road to godhood. A broken demigod, he says, can be bent into any shape you like. Ancient Athea, I could keep that speech in mind. In a few days, 20,000 people are going to find out exactly how that plan went. At home, we count the $1 million onto the kitchen table, and my parents handle the bills like they might be wired to something. Because in this apartment, $1 million is not an amount, it is a hallucination. Dad finds out about Dong's legs somewhere in the middle of the counting. Dong just walks over with the teapot casually, the little showman, and my father, who did not cry at the construction site with his head split open, sits down on the floor holding the teapot and sobs. New house rules, I announce. Mom quits both shifts. Dad quits all 3 wheels. I will ignite my divine fire within the year. The late fees die with it, and this family is done being tired. Any objections get healed without anesthesia. And that is when the doorbell rings, and I open the door, and a white-haired woman I have never seen lifts me and my brother off the floor with 1 finger each. I need to be precise here, because the details matter. My divine shield, the shield that held a true god for half a second, comes up on reflex, full power. It pops like a soap bubble. 1 finger. She is not attacking. That is the horrifying part. This is how she says hello. She hoists us like a shopper checking 2 melons, looks us over with wild gray hair hanging in her face, and grins. The pressure coming off her is a category I have never felt. Fan Lei, true god, felt like a mountain. This is the weather itself. First rank god, 1 tier below Lord God, the rank where the Dynasty stops writing rules for you and starts writing rules around you. Commander of the Public Security Bureau's Special Operations Division. Fan Lei's elder sister captain, Wen Li. Remember, Fan Lei wanted 6 months of vacation? He filed the report about us that same night. She read it at dinner and flew here mid-bite. She sets us down, sprawls onto our sofa like she pays rent, and gets to business with 0 preamble. Business item 1, my brother. She is an ascended god, and this is the part that softens me toward her instantly. She was a gifted one herself. Wind and sword, same affinity, same childhood, except nobody healed hers. She clawed through her blockage alone across a century, and it left her with that lightning strike hair and a reputation for being magnificently unhinged. She looks at Dong's steaming sword intent the way collectors look at lost masterpieces. She wants him as her disciple. Dong looks at me. I nod. He bows. Done. My wheelchair brother is now the personal student of the scariest cop in the province, and no, we are not fully processing that either. Business item 2, me. She turns, and the grin sharpens. Now explain, little strange one, she says, how a demigod 9 days old is casting proficient stage arts, and where a mushroom awakener is getting this much faith. Talent, I say. I practice very hard. She stares at me for a long second. I hold the board face. Somewhere behind my ribs, my heart is filing for a transfer. She lets it go, visibly lets it go, tucking the question away for later like a receipt, and instead gives me a warning with a bow on it. Many people in history have tried walking faith and ascension at once, and been doing and every one of them died stuck between. Whatever you are doing with that body of yours, she says, do not kill yourself before you get interesting. Then she announces she is off to fetch a gift for her new student's family and leaves through the window. 5th floor. Naturally, she is back in 10 minutes with a red gift bag. The bag contains Elder Jin's arms and legs. I want to be very calm and factual about this moment. When Li flew to the Wang estate, walked through a sub-god's private security like it was party streamers, took the true god who kicked my father and removed his limbs with wind blades. He is alive. Ascended gods can eventually regrow limbs over years, painfully. When the Wang household lawyer screamed about procedure, she reportedly held up one of her medals and told them to schedule a meeting with it. My brother excuses himself to the bathroom and loses his dinner. My mom has gone the color of rice, and I look into the bag, and I look at this grinning hurricane of a woman, and what comes out of me is, "Thank you, Sister Han, very thoughtful. Would you like tea?" The room goes quiet. Wen Li studies me, really studies me, and her grin widens into something delighted and slightly alarming. This boy, she announces to my traumatized family, has a heart like the abyssal sea, a born killer's calm. I like him. I choose to receive that as a compliment about tea etiquette. Before she leaves, through the door this time, small mercies, she makes 2 more things happen with the effortlessness of a woman rearranging furniture. 1. Our late fee record, the debt collar my family has worn my whole life, is erased. A word from her, citizenship status restored. Done. 2. News arrives that the Wang family is moving out of their estate. Fan Zheng, sub-god chairman, is fleeing the district because of whose family his son picked a fight with. I sleep the sleep of the righteous in a home with no debt, no wheelchair, and no functioning sense of normal anymore. Wen Li is not done adopting us, by the way. 2 days later, she drops by with 3 scrolls under her arm like fresh baguettes, tosses them on our kitchen table and says, "Pick one." My divine senses read the labels and my knees go weak. 8th grade divine arts. Any one of these scrolls sells for hundreds of millions on the open market when they appear on the open market at all, which is approximately never. This is her disciple gift to the family, technically to Dong's household, and she's watching me pick with the intensity of a woman running an experiment. 2 of them are law arts, elegant, sorceress, exactly what a faith god should want. The 3rd one hums, 7 kills, startling thunder spear, a martial art, a body art, a warrior's path, meaning it's built for ascension cultivators, meaning by every rule of this world, it is exactly wrong for me. The description says it's a fragment of a heaven-level technique that once belonged to some chief god shattered into 3 parts in some ancient mess, and this is one shard of it. Requirements: bathe in blood fiend chi harvested from real battlefields and temper the body with actual lightning. Martial art means warrior, she says, testing me. Law art means mage. A faith god picks the law art every time. I pick up the spear scroll. Her grin nearly takes her ears off. That night, I do the math on the requirements. Blood fiend chi from a battlefield. Gee, where would I, a humble mushroom farmer, ever find a battlefield? My entire kingdom is a battlefield with weather and lightning tempering. I have a faith counter that regenerates faster than I can spend it, and a rain art 1 stage from transformation. I can brew my own storms. This scroll was written for some grim ancient warrior sect with limited resources. It has never in its existence met a student who could order both ingredients in bulk. Speaking of bulk, Dad walks into my room, puts the entire million on my desk, and walks out before I can argue. The whole suitcase. We talked about it, he says from the hallway. Your mother and I have a house with no debt and 2 healthy sons. Buy your future. So I do. 10 domain expansion cards in 1 order. The store processes it, hiccups, and then the doorbell rings and the courier is a true god. Apparently million coin orders get white glove delivery. This poor divine being climbs our 5 floors in full uniform, personally, and hands me a lacquered case and a black VIP card with 100,000 in bonus credit on it. I use the bonus on an 11th domain card while he's still in the stairwell, because if the Dynasty wants to give me free real estate for shopping, who am I to be rude? He also chatting on the landing drops a piece of fine print I file under important, a young god's false heaven. The shell protecting our baby kingdoms is only guaranteed for 3 years. After that, ignited or not, your kingdom gets pushed out into the void where things live, cheerful. One more reason the divine fire is not optional. Inside my kingdom, before I fire my cards, something happens that isn't in any of my plans, and I want it on the record that I did not order this. Breakor is leading a wedge of boys across the plains. He's taken to marching them in formation, or what orcs believe formation is, meaning a triangle of muscle screaming in unison, when one of the newborn boys wandering behind the column starts glowing. Green light from the eye sockets. My Gretchens scatter, yelling one of the words I seeded into their race memory, a word from the old franchise that I put in as flavor and forgot. Weird boy, here's the lore I typed into a form in 10 panicked minutes, coming due with interest. Orcs generate psychic energy just by existing. Every roar, every punch, every happy thought leaks power, and thus it pools. And in some orcs, it pools inward until they become living lightning rods for the whole species' enthusiasm. The wandering boy's head snaps back, the green glow fountains, and his skull detonates like a champagne cork, along with the skulls of every green in a few dozen meters of him, friend and stranger alike. A chain of wet green fireworks rippling out from ground zero, silence, smoke. A crater ringed with very surprised, very dead orcs already sinking into the soil to become mushrooms. And then the entire horde loses its mind with joy because that was the best thing any of them has ever seen. That was a light show and a mass casualty event and free fertilizer, which is the whole orcish value pyramid in one moment. The survivors spend days reenacting it. My panel dings faith spike. My species has discovered its own wizards by way of fatal fireworks, and their theological takeaway is encore. I fire all 11 domain cards, and the sky-eating show gets a director's cut. Gorik and Mazrak lean out of the split heavens and gnaw the sun and moon while the land tears itself wider. 20 kilometers becomes 130 kilometers. That's a mid-sized city-state of territory. Forests unroll, rivers crack through valleys, actual jungles steam up in the south, and the mushroom bloom that follows is visible from orbit if my kingdom had an orbit. My faith counter after the shopping spree, 213,000 and change out of the 320 I'd stacked. It'll refill before the week is out. This economy is fake, and I love it. My greens fill the new land the way water fills a bathtub, and the squigs specialize as they spread. Leather squigs, my boys stretch into crude armor. Hair squigs that colonize scalps voluntarily, so that fashion-forward orcs now have hairstyles, oil squigs that ooze something flammable, paint squigs that bleed pigment. My kingdom has invented cosmetics, and the cosmetics are alive. One boss walks around with 3 paint squigs, riding his shoulders like parrots, dyeing his war trophies red, and nobody questions it because red ones go faster. We'll come back to that sentence. It's load-bearing. Me, I get to work on myself because Han's warning had a true center. My body is the weak link. Half a year of internal time goes into Rain and Shield, both driven to the 4th stage, transformation, and my divine shield learns its shape. Everyone's shield transforms differently. My brother's wants to be a sword. Mine condenses into a spear of golden light. A shield that is a spear. Defense that only exists as offense. If there's a cleaner metaphor for my entire life plan, I haven't found it. And then I go undercover in my own kingdom. Think about it. The 7-kill scroll needs blood fiend chi soaked up on a battlefield, physically present in the iron mist, in the roar. My battlefields run around the clock, so I shape myself an avatar. One skinny, unremarkable orc boy, a little undersized, carrying a suspiciously nice spear crusted in dried battle grime to hide the golden shine. And I walk into my own species as a nobody. For half a year of kingdom time, the skinny boy with the spear shows up wherever the fighting is thickest. I don't use divine arts. That's the whole point. My scroll tempers the body, so the body does the work. Thrust, sweep, brace, 10,000 repetitions against opponents who never sue, never tire, and never hold a grudge for longer than it takes to grow a new tooth. I eat at their fires. I get thrown through several tents. A Gretchen steals my boot, and I chase him for a kilometer, while an entire warband bets on the outcome. I am, and I say this with total professional detachment, having the best time of either of my lives. Legends start. Nobody knows the skinny boy's name, so the fires invent one. The boy with the big spear, who turns up, wrecks the strongest fighter present, and vanishes. Boys start copying me. First, they sharpen leg bones into stabbing lengths, then some genius lashes a boulder shard to a sapling, and suddenly the arms race is on. 4-meter stone-tipped rams carried by pairs of boys at a dead sprint, punching through shield walls, through log palisades, through, on one memorable afternoon, a small hill. My species didn't have spears when I started training. They have heavy spear regiments now, because one god went to the gym among them. Civilization is imitation with enthusiasm. By the time my scroll's first requirement reads complete, body saturated, blood fiend chi humming in my bones like a struck bell, the outside calendar has crawled to the eve of the one day every awakened 16-year-old in the country is circling. My day, my exam morning smells like my mother's cooking, going for a personal record. Eggs, pork, 3 kinds of buns, a soup I don't have a name for. She's been up since 5, feeding the tension. My panel checked over breakfast in the privacy of my own eyeballs. 1,013,402 faith. A million. Let me give that number its context. A diligent, talented young god with a cooperative congregation farms about 200,000 faith in a full year, and that's a graduation with honors number. Igniting divine fire takes less than I'm currently holding. I could become an actual god this morning, before the buns cool. I've decided not to. Ignition is loud, my exam is watched, and I would like to collect my winnings before showing the table my cards. My kingdom is 700 days old in internal time, the ground so enriched by generations of returned greens that the soil has gone black and glossy like the land itself is putting on muscle. A horn honks downstairs, then honks again in what I can only describe as an impatient melody. I look out the window at a convoy of black cars wrapped around our housing block, aunties hanging off every balcony like it's a state funeral, and Su Fen leaning on the lead car checking her watch. You got a 1,000,000 coin settlement out of Fanjeng, she says when I come down, so don't Don't you dare act humble about accepting a ride. Also, your whole family is coming. It's arranged. Get in. My parents adore her instantly, which is a catastrophe. My mom keeps patting her hand. My dad calls her considerate twice. By the time we hit the highway, they've mentally booked a wedding venue, and Sufen, who runs her class like a shipping company and negotiates with teachers like a hostage specialist, turns out to be completely helpless against two polite adults offering her snacks. She shoots me a look that says help. I eat a bun at her. She knows everything that happens in this city, so watching her puzzle over my family is delicious. She knows about the settlement, knows about Han, and cannot for the life of her figure out when my brother stopped being in a wheelchair because that fact never touched a database. I catch her staring at Dong's legs and give her my blandest smile. Vitamins, I say. She looks personally offended. Dong rides ahead with Wen Li actually. Disciple privileges. And when we reach the stadium, I spot them in the VIP tier, my little brother in the crisp uniform of a first-rank God's student, sitting straight as a blade among people who own buildings. 13 years in a chair, and now security guards bow to him. I could retire on this site alone. Han greets me by grabbing my wrist, frowning, and yanking up my sleeve like she's checking a melon for ripeness. She goes very still. You have battlefield key on you, she says. Blood fiend saturation, full saturation. She looks up with an expression that's halfway between scandal and delight. I gave you that scroll 2 weeks ago. Where did a 16-year-old find a war? Around, I say. She lets go of my wrist the way you put down something you've decided you want more of, and her grin goes full weather warning. I'm starting to collect these looks from dangerous women. Somebody should tell them I'm just a mushroom farmer. The stadium swallows my whole family. 20,000 demigods from Jiangxin City alone. Nationally, 20 million kids awaken every year, and this is one city's crop, funneled into an arena that could eat our whole housing district. My exam format lives inside a pocket world the Dynasty maintains for exactly this. Every examinee deploys their kingdom's forces through a controlled rift. Real bodies optional, but real consequences guaranteed. And before the rules even get announced, politics finds me. Delegates from the 6 public high schools converge on my seat in a polite wall of blazers, and their offer, stripped of ceremony, is be our supreme commander. All 6 schools, one alliance, unified command. Every kid here grew up watching my simulation ranking. It's flattering. It's genuinely, warmly flattering. Fan Kang materializes out of the crowd mid-negotiation to inform everyone that I awakened a mushroom, that my commander days are ancient history, and that the school should. And that's as far as he gets because Gao Ming, Class 3's monitor, a mild kid with glasses whom I have never once seen raise his voice, plants a foot in Fan Kang's chest and lays him out on the walkway without breaking eye contact with me. Nice footwork, Su Fen observes. Gao Ming pushes his glasses up. We're negotiating. He says, don't interrupt. I turn the command down. All of it, you should see their faces. But here's what I can't say out loud. My followers don't do alliances. I'm scraping for a diplomatic way to phrase it, and what comes out is, my familia is, vulgar. They're not really alliance material, which is the truest sentence I've told this city. My boys cannot tell an ally from an enemy from a load-bearing wall, and would cheerfully headbutt all 3. The schools settle for a non-aggression handshake. They'll spend the early exam wiping out the private academies. I'll do whatever it is mushroom farmers do, and nobody shoots at each other before the endgame. Deal. Then, the stadium screens light up, and the prize pool starts, and the prize pool does not stop. First, the special envoy, Shu Feng, a main god, 1 foot into Divine Lord, the tier where your name is written in the dynasty's actual constitution, wheeled out looking like a kindly grandfather because he was maimed on the god-demon front lines ages ago, and no healer in the realm, not even Zwan level ones, can fix what's wrong with him. He announces this year's format. One word blooms on every screen, melee, all against all, 30,000 square kilometers of arena world. Every month, the outer 1,000 kilometers get eaten by the void, squeezing survivors toward the center. Last 10 standing graduate with honors. Kill a rival demigod, 10 points. Annihilate a rival's entire following, 10 points. Lose all your own followers, half your points gone. Real bodies in the arena at your own risk. Then he starts adding prizes like a man clearing out a vault. Elemental spirit pearls or the 5 elements kind. Kingdom grade treasures for the top 10. A special pearl for second. For first place, he says, a secret, and smiles like the secret has teeth. The city can't let an envoy outgift them, so the avalanche starts. Wen Li throws in art scrolls for the top 3 and makes eye contact with me across the whole stadium while doing it. Zero subtlety. The wind element pearl practically has my brother's name engraved. The Mayor Sha Zhouning, Lord God, the actual apex of the city, donates a golden dragon fruit, and the crowd noise gets ugly with want because that fruit grants a permanent dragon bloodline and works on anything with blood. Su Fen's father matches it with treasure. Fan Deng, publicly rebuilding face, matches him. The three great divine academies send recruiters who bid on our futures like it's an auction. The big one from Scarlet Refining Academy puts up an honest-to-goodness ancient magic treasure spear, a relic that tears space, and my palms itch at it through the screen. Somebody adds 1,000 mechanisms transformation, shapeshifting armor, the catalog says, ideal match for a divine shield master, and I feel personally catered to. Somebody else adds an azure sea pearl that turns land into ocean. By the end, the prize table is worth more than some provinces. 20,000 teenagers are looking at each other like strangers on a lifeboat, and the Six School Alliance's warm handshake feeling has evaporated into professional courtesy, which was, I assume, the design. The Dynasty doesn't want graduates, it wants survivors. The rift opens in front of me. 20,000 demigods step through in waves, each one flashing to a random drop point somewhere in 30,000 square kilometers of wilderness. My turn comes, I step in, and because I am, at my core, an optimizer, I use the transit moment to squeeze in one more healing drill, casting inside a teleport stream. Why not? Dead time is dead time. Here's why not. The stream reads the divine art as a foreign force, has a bureaucratic seizure, and ejects me early. From the sky, I exit the rift at altitude like a delivery the stork gave up on, cartwheel through 2 clouds, and hit the arena world in an open plain with a sound like a modest meteor, digging a crater you could park a bus in. Back in the stadium, I learned this later from Dong, who was crying laughing. The tracking screens catch the whole descent in glorious close-up. 20,000 families watch the Mushroom Boy enter my exam as ballistic cargo. Wen Li puts her face in her hands. The commentators are very kind about it, which makes it worse. I stand up in my crater, dust off, and take stock. Nothing broken. A demigod's body down here in a lower realm grade world is absurdly overbuilt. Out of curiosity, I squeeze a rock and it comes out as a diamond with a handprint. Fine. Dignity gone. Physics intact. Time to deploy my kingdom. Now standard practice. A demigod unfolds their kingdom as a phantasm, a projection bubble overlapping the arena from which your forces march out. Standard bubble, about 20 kilometers, matching a standard kingdom. My examiner's instruments watch these bubbles bloom across the map like soap suds. 20 kilometers, 18, 22, 20. Mine opens at 100. I feel the entire arena's instrumentation flinch. 100-kilometer phantasm. The commentators, again, per my brother's tearful retelling, go through the stages of grief, live on air. It's an error, it's a projection glitch, no examinee can sustain, and then the word gets out and sweeps the stadium. Bailey Shingo, 100-mile divine kingdom. Someone calculates the upkeep on a phantasm that size and announces I'll bankrupt my faith reserves in minutes. 4 minutes of this cost more than 4,000 faith, he says, scandalized, as if I don't earn that back before he finishes his sentence. The stadium settles on the only comfortable explanation. The Mushroom Boy is showing off before an early, spectacular flameout. A suicide opening, sure, let's go with that. Through my phantasm, I deploy my opening force, Brakor. 1,000 boys, 4,000 Gretchens. They pour out of the green glowing rift onto the arena plain, blinking in the new sun, and Brakor does the thing every commander in the stadium is waiting for. He scans the horizon for the enemy, sniffs, turns to me, well, to the sky where Tianlei lives, and bellows the question of the hour. Where are the enemies? No enemies yet, I broadcast down. They're far away. 1,000 orcs process this information. There is a pause I can only call thoughtful, and then my horde reaches the obvious theological conclusion. No enemies means the enemies are each other, and the entire deployment collapses into an internal all-hands brawl in full view of every camera in the arena. I want you to imagine the stadium, 20,000 families, the commentators mid-sentence about the mysterious 100-mile phantasm, my mother holding a thermos, and on the main screen the legendary simulation champions army beating itself up, 5,000 strong, with genuine enthusiasm. 30 seconds into my exam, the commentary booth makes a strangled sound. Somewhere a teacher who once gave me a command theory award is drafting a retraction. The genius of Jiangxin, someone says on air, appears to have lost control of his forces immediately. Lost control. Friend, this is what control looks like. The brawl is the maintenance cycle. You don't stop orcs fighting, you point the fighting. And while my boys sort out their org chart by headbutt, the god of my greenskins goes hunting personally because the points table says demigods are worth 10, and I know exactly where my nearest neighbor landed. His name is nothing to you yet. A kid with a following of advanced kobolds, yellow-scaled dog lizards, in surprisingly neat ranks, dug into a hillside 2 hours walk from my border. I don't walk. I cover the distance in bounds that leave craters and arrive as a skinny teenager with a glowing golden spear, which his gauntlets read as a threat about half a second moment too late. One thrust. The spear of light goes through his crossed gauntlets, shatters both, and deposits him in a bush 10 meters back with his arms ringing like struck bells. He looks at his ruined defense artifacts. He looks at me. He makes the correct decision and runs for the horizon, kobolds streaming after him in disciplined retreat. And I let him go because chasing him costs time and his terror is free advertising. In the booth, a commentator with an instrument panel does a double take that will be a meme by nightfall. Transformation stage, divine shield, he announces, voice cracking. The Mushroom Examinee has a transformation stage art 7 days after awakening. That's not a training speed, that's a typo. Meanwhile, the arena spectators with sharper eyes are watching something better. My 100-mile phantasm, which the experts predicted would bankrupt me in minutes, has not flickered. The upkeep drain is real. I can feel it, a steady tax on my reserves, and my reserves are filling faster than the tax takes them. On the public faith telemetry, my counter looks less like a resource meter and more like a rigged slot machine. You can pinpoint the moment each expert notices because each one goes quiet in the same way, like men rechecking a bar tab that keeps going down. 2 more neighbors decide to solve me early, and they arrive as a duo. Chen Nao, wiry, intense, backed by lizardmen, cold-blooded shock troops with a bloodline art that berserks them, and a dragon head shield he's very proud of. And Zhao Yue, a walking flex of family money, floating on wind-treading boots, shouldering a lava musket that spits 10,000 faith of magma per trigger pull, with 8,000 armored goblins marching behind him in factory fresh plate. Rich kid loadout, top to bottom. They've clearly agreed to split my points. What follows is not, and I say this with respect for their preparation, a fight. I need live combat drill for my base spear work, the way I trained it in my kingdom. No arts, pure body. And here are 2 durable, motivated training dummies with safety features. I bounced between them for the better part of an hour, pulling every strike, working footwork angles, using Zhao Yue's musket blasts as dodging practice and Chen Nuo's berserk rushes as timing drills. At one point, I catch myself apologizing mid-combo. Sorry, that one was sloppy. Let me take it again from the wind-up. Chen Nuo makes a sound I've only ever heard from kettles. The stadium instruments, I'm told, log the entire sequence as one demigod conducting a fitness class on 2 others. They're breathing like accordions, and the fun is winding down, so I offer the standard courtesy. Release your followers, I tell them, or I finish this here, and they light up, both of them, because that's the one scenario where they think they win armies. Chen Nuo unleashes 3,000 lizardmen. Zhao Yue unleashes his 8,000 tin can goblins. 11,000 professional soldiers against whatever the Mushroom Boy has, and what the Mushroom Boy has cresting the hill behind him, right on cue, with the impeccable timing of beings who follow the sound of violence the way sunflowers follow light, is Breakor and the freshly self-sorted warband, who heard a rumor on the wind that somewhere over here, someone was fighting without them. Breakor's on-record justification roared to the column as they marched. This noise is the guidance of Tianlei. Boys, after me. He's not wrong. I do work in mysterious ways. My Gretchens hit the goblin line first, and I get to watch 11,000 professionals learn my species in real time. On paper, a Gretchen is the bottom of my food chain, a meter something of malice and elbows. The ones that survive 700 days of kingdom seasoning run bigger, a head taller than the book says, ropey with muscle, and their skin has opinions about arrows. The goblin volleys arrive, and the arrows stick in Gretchen hide like pins in a corkboard, and my Gretchens look down at their new decorations with delight. Free arrows before hitting the shield wall in a shrieking wave. And the sound they're shrieking, allow me to translate, is little armored men, rich little armored men. It's all mine. Then my boys arrive, and armor stops being a relevant category. An orc boy doesn't breach a shield wall. He deletes his section of it, grabs the shield, and the goblin comes with it, and both become impact tools. I watch one boy punch through a locked phalanx rank, emerge holding 2 goblins, consider them, and start eating one, mid-battle, walking pace, like a commuter with a sandwich. The stadium feed cuts away. The stadium feed cuts back because ratings. The lizardmen jeer at the goblins' collapse right up until it's their sector's turn. Chen Nuo's bloodline berserkers are genuinely dangerous. A lizard spearman skewers 3 Gretchens in one lunge, beautiful technique, and then an axe arrives from somewhere in the scrum. And that's the end of the highlight reel. The lizards fight well. It doesn't matter. That's the horror of it. And I can see the exact moment Chen Nuo understands. Skill is a rate, and my species is a flood. You kill 5 greens, and the 6th is biting your knee, and the 7th is already born. The goblin mages get one good idea. Fireballs, real ones, wholesale, and rows of my boys go up like torches. For one shining moment, the goblin line believes in tomorrow. Then the burning boys keep coming. That's the thing about a species with pain tolerance instead of pain. A burning orc is not a casualty, he is now a faster, brighter, significantly more upsetting orc. And several of mine, realizing they've become fire, embrace the bit and start deliberately body slamming the driest looking enemies. The goblin line stops believing in tomorrow. Breakwar spends the battle conducting his own personal shopping trip toward the Goblin King's greatsword, which he has decided is his. I can hear him telling boys as he wades that Big Choppa is mine, touch it and die, and his path across the field is less a charge than a mobile natural disaster with a destination. Behind the melee, his veteran guard does something new. The maimed champions of the arena, the one-armed and one-legged elite, who each carry double-digit victory counts, form a rough line and receive the lizard countercharge like a dockside crew unloading freight. An armless veteran headbutts a berserker out of his sprint. The stadium has stopped commentating in sentences, and the mechanism underneath it all, the one I typed into a form with 2 minutes on the clock, is now on full public display. The bigger the fight, the stronger every single green gets. Wow, energy, enthusiasm as a field effect. 5,000 orcs having the best day of their lives generate a pressure you can measure, and inside that pressure, my boys hit harder, heal faster, and get ideas. Dangerous thing, an orc with ideas. Manhwa breaks first. He looks at his beautiful berserkers drowning in green mathematics, does the cost-benefit, abandons 1,000 lizard men as a rearguard, and runs, and I mean a committed, dignity-free, over-the-hills run, coining a proverb on his way out that I intend to have embroidered. Better a live beggar god than a rich dead one. The 1,000 abandoned lizard men get recycled into my ecosystem, which is a sentence I'll allow you to unpack on your own time. Zhao Yue can't run. He's the rich kid. The armor was the plan. His goblins are being encircled. My boys have invented encirclement today, spontaneously, mid-fight, which frightens me more than anything else on this field, so I collect him from the air, wine boots and all, and we open negotiations. Negotiation position 1. He's paying tribute. He offers 2,000 sets of goblin armor with the strained generosity of a man rounding down. Insufficient, I tell him, and while he recalculates, the light on the end of my spear shield changes his mind about arithmetic. Quick sidebar on that light, because it becomes my signature move and it deserves its origin story told honestly. I learned it from my boys. Orcs stare. They don't blink under threat. Blinking is for cowards. So my kingdom's fights are full of wide-eyed lunatics drinking in every detail. Weeks ago, I started charging a flash into the spear tip, 30,000 lumens of pure rude, and discovered that against a committed non-blinker, it buys me 1/10 of a second of total blindness. 1/10 of a second is a career in spear terms. The move has a name in my head, the customer service smile. Zhao Yue gets the smile, then the aura follow-up, brisk and educational. His revised tribute, the wind-treading boots off his feet, the lava musket off his shoulder, and the armor count corrected to 3,000 sets. Turns out he'd been lying by 1/3, which I respect as commitment to the bit. His family mirror, heirloom, I press back into his hands, untouched. And no, that's not softness. There's a golden eye in the sky over this arena, the broadcast focus, drifting camera god of the whole exam. And it has drifted over to us, and 20,000 families are watching the Mushroom Boy conduct commerce. Robbery is fine. Robbing heirlooms on camera is a branding error. A man's got to think about his future in-laws. Meanwhile, his 8,000 goblins have stopped existing in the logistical sense. I'd love to soften that for you. My Gretchen consider armored goblin a delicacy. The armor functions as a lunchbox is the horrifying consensus, and the field behind my army is very tidy, and my mushroom bloom is going to be spectacular. The Goblin King himself went down swinging at Breakwar, who claimed the greatsword, admired it, found it too small for his grip, and gave it to a lieutenant with the gruff embarrassment of a man whose eyes were bigger than his hands. The king's final defeat involved Breakwar introducing the royal head to the royal rib cage from above, a technique the commentators declined to name, and Breakwar has since adopted as a hobby. Zhao Yue limps off the field barefoot and demusketed into the wilderness, and here the story bends in a way nobody predicts. The stadium, which watched him refuse to kneel through the entire Or seminar, decides it respects him. And Zhao Yue, stripped of the family loadout that defined his whole personality, discovers an inner self nobody suspected. Over the following weeks, he becomes the arena's most notorious vagrant bandit, robbing supply caches and mugging former classmates with the unstoppable freedom of a man with nothing left to lose. I take full credit. I liberated that man from wealth. Up in the stands, Dong's reporting again. The mood among the powerful has curdled into something predatory. A race that turns casualties into reinforcements, someone says in the academy box, a cheat race. The recruiters aren't watching a student anymore, they're pricing an asset. The head of the Public Security Bureau openly asks Wen Li what it would cost to draft me. She laughs at him with her whole chest, and in the middle of the plain, standing on a hill of goblin plate with my new musket over one shoulder and my boys howling victory songs in every direction, I run the day's arithmetic. 2 demigods routed, 1 taxed, 0 divine art spent on combat. Casualties technically enormous, functionally negative, the ground already pregnant with reinforcements. Faith counter, up, points, up, musket, acquired. The commentators are calling it a massacre. The scholars are calling it an anomaly. Breakor is calling it. I can hear him from here, holding court on his mountain of scrap. A decent warm-up. My species and I would like to speak to the manager of this exam. We were promised a war. Let me show you what my nation does with a victory, because the week after that battle teaches me more about my own species than the battle did. First, the economy. Orcs have invented money, and the money is teeth. Their own teeth, mostly, they regrow, which makes every orc a slow drip mint and makes inflation a dental phenomenon. The exchange rate between teeth and goods is enforced by the only regulatory mechanism my species recognizes, which is fists. It works. I want to be clear about how much it shouldn't and how completely it does. There's a Gretchen down there running what is functionally a currency exchange out of a hollow mushroom, and his security is that he bites. Second, industry. Remember the skinny boy who was always too weedy to win fights? While the big lads brawled, he survived by picking through the aftermath, dragging off dented armor, straightening bent metal, fixing what the others broke. My horde named him the way my horde names everything, with brutal accuracy. Garbage collector. Scrapman for short. And after the goblin battle dumped 3,000 sets of plate armor and a battlefield of weapons into my kingdom's lap, Scrapman ascended. He is my first mech choice, the orc engineer cast I wrote into my settings and had never yet seen manifest, and his masterpiece announcement project is refitting the captured plate into a giant suit for Breakor, crowned by an axe built from what appears to be an iron door. Boss after boss now queues politely outside his scrap heap workshop. Politely. Orcs. The gravitational force of a green who can make your chopper choppier has done what no god could, produced a line. Third, urban planning, and I use both words loosely. The camp builds itself the way Coral builds. Garbage pits here because that's where garbage got thrown. Mushroom carpets there because that's where the dead went. Paths worn wherever the most interesting fights happen. It shouldn't function. It functions better than my hometown's municipal planning, and I've stopped saying things like that out loud because the implications upset me. And fourth, expansion. Breakor, wearing his new armor like a walking foundry, has begun dispatching warbands in every direction of the compass with a single strategic directive. Go find enemies. Not conquer, not scout, not hold territory. Find enemies. It is the entire orc foreign policy, and in an arena stuffed with 20,000 rival demigods, it's about to be extremely effective, because we have new neighbors, and they came prepared. 4 demigods from Zhongshan's No. 2 high school have pooled their followings into a proper allied army. Over 30,000 troops. Humans with siege equipment and mage colleges. Kobolds and engineered warrens, ogres, actual ogres, 500-kilo shock infantry, and crowning it all, half-dragon knights with 3 true red dragons, wingspan like sailboats. They've raised a fortress at the foot of a mountain with walls and towers and murder holes, and their banners say, in every visual language, civilization stands here. Their first contact with my civilization goes like this. A Night Scout team, 1 veteran human ranger, and a squad of kobolds is working the forest edge when a jumper squig comes bounding out of the tree line with several Gretchens in loose pursuit, all of them chasing the squig for reasons that never become clear and don't need to. The old ranger takes one look at my Gretchens, at the wrongness of them, the size, the appetite, and does 2 things in immediate sequence. Fires his signal flare, and then, before the light even fades, cuts his own throat. His logbook, recovered later. Better my hand than theirs. Sir, on behalf of my species, that was pessimistic. They would probably only have eaten you. The kobold beside him doesn't get a logbook line. The flare summons the Alliance's night force, 400 scouts and skirmishers, and the resulting forest battle is the Alliance's proper introduction to green mathematics. Their ogre champion meets a wandering orc boss in the dark, stone axe versus forged steel, and the exchange fells the ogre in 3 swings, a third of him traveling separately. The heavy spear pairs come through next. 2 boys, 1 4-meter stone ram, a run-up, and the Alliance's locked shield line learns that a 500-kilo ogre can be made to fly. That's not a figure of speech. He flew. The Alliance answers with fire. Human mages, kobold priests, real coordinated barrages, and fire, as established, is a promotion. The burning boys scatter through the night forest as sprinting torches, and by morning the whole tree line is ablaze, less a battle than an act of civic arson conducted by enthusiasts. The Alliance retreats in decent order, dragging their wounded, and their vice commander pauses to do something honorable. He orders the fallen orc boss buried with respect as a worthy foe. The stadium, 20,000 strong, screams at the screens like a horror movie audience because the stadium knows what the Alliance doesn't. Every orc corpse is 8 billion spores. Burying an orc isn't a funeral, it's agriculture. The vice commander pats the grave mound flat, says something solemn, and marches off, having personally planted next month's siege. The commentary booth has by now acquired a specialist, some academy mycologist dragged in as an emergency consultant, and his standing advice to the arena, delivered in the tones of a man aging rapidly, is burn everything. Burn everywhere they've walked. Burn where you think they've walked. Nobody in the arena can hear him. My greens spread. While my species handles foreign policy, I invest in myself because the plan needs its next phase, and the next phase is ugly. Here's the strategic logic laid out the way I laid it out for myself on a hilltop that week. 1. My faith income is a broken fountain, but faith-fueled arts have a ceiling. Han's warning was real. Every historical attempt to walk both roads died at the merge. 2. The merge kills people because they try to hold both, build the divine fire and the ascended body as equals, and the two natures tear the owner apart. My workaround is disrespect. I'm not walking the ascension road. I'm strip mining it. Law energy is a body tempering consumable. Use it, wring it out, discard it, like a scouring pad. Ascension purists would faint. Let them. I'll be a scoundrel god with a warrior's chassis, and the purist can debate my technique at my coronation. So, 7 kills, startling thunder spear. Stage 2. My scroll's polite phrasing is temper the vessel in heaven's fire. The practical phrasing is stand in a valley and pull lightning into your own body on purpose, repeatedly, until your meridians either upgrade or file for divorce. My safety net is grimly elegant, a micro heel woven under my own skin on a hair trigger, and a standing decision that if an arm chars past saving, the arm goes and gets regrown later. You know, gym stuff. I pick a storm-prone valley in the arena's foothills, seed the sky with my own rain art, and begin pulling down bolts. The first one is a religious experience conducted by the fire department. The 10th one I manage without biting through my cheek. By the 50th, something in my left arm starts answering the sky before the bolt arrives. Meridians restructuring, my scroll's promised architecture assembling itself out of scar tissue and stubbornness. It is the single most painful project I have ever undertaken, and I am doing it in the middle of a battle royal exam, in the open, on camera, which is how the whole stadium comes to watch the anomaly of the tournament spend his afternoons electrocuting himself in a scenic valley. The chat consensus, my brother reports, splits between he has lost his mind and some kind of masochist build. Wen Li's reaction is my favorite. She stands up in the VIP box, points at the screen, and demands of the room in general, is he working out? In the middle of the state exam, 20,000 children fighting for their futures, and this creature is at the gym. Yes, Sister Han, some of us take fitness seriously, and it's right there. Me mid-lightning bolt, smoke off my shoulders, arena burning gently in 3 places. My species conducting 4 simultaneous, unprovoked wars. That the sky changes. In the stadium, Zhu Feng's Jade credential token vibrates. I learn every detail of the next 2 minutes later from 3 separate witnesses because it's the 2 minutes that bend my whole life. A main god's token doesn't vibrate for spam. He reads the message once, very slowly. Then he stands, and his voice rolls across the arena world and the stadium both, carrying the specific dead-level calm of an official reading someone else's decision. By secret decree, he announces, the rules of this examination are amended. The format was melee, all against all. It is now red versus blue. The blue team, he says, is every examinee, all of them, all 20,000. The red team is Shuhan. The silence that follows has texture. You could bottle it. And then the stadium detonates, and the arena detonates, and somewhere in a scenic valley, I stand with lightning still crawling off my elbows saying, out loud, to nobody, I didn't even do anything, which is the least true sentence I've produced all week, but a man's entitled to his shock. Understand what everyone understands at once. Decrees like this come from one address. Someone in the Jade Emperor's court, possibly the Jade Emperor, is watching this exam, watching me, and the reading in the stands flips in real time from that boy is doomed to the exact opposite, because the Dynasty does not amend state examinations to squash bugs. It amends them to stress test treasures. The academy boxes, which had been pricing me as a promising asset, silently move me to a different ledger. Wen Li starts laughing and doesn't entirely stop for the rest of the day. The broadcast, previously one arena among many in a national exam season, becomes the stream, and viewer counts from other provinces start stacking zeros, reactions worth framing. Fan Kang, somewhere in the arena's north, upon hearing that the target of his life's grudge has been designated public enemy of 20,000, open, delighted ecstasy, on camera, arms spread to the heavens that finally love him, his father in the stands, gray-faced, clutching his chest. I should have smothered that boy's card in its crib is the quote that reaches me, followed by his heartfelt on-camera appeal that surrender is still an option. For me, he means. He wants me to surrender to his son. Sir, your optimism is a heritage trait. I watched your boy inherit it. Su Fen and Gao Ming, deep in alliance territory, get the news mid-March. Witnesses say Su Fen was quiet for 10 full seconds and then said, with a strategist's cold clarity, "What did that idiot do?" Which unfair, and also the question of the season. And me, I finish the session. Genuinely, I stay in the valley through the announcement and complete the day's set, because the schedule is the schedule. And if the Dynasty has just declared me a boss monster, the boss monster is going to arrive at the raid with finished homework. Somewhere in hour 3, the storm hands me the thing I've been bleeding for. The left arm completes. The meridians lock into my scroll's first architecture, and when I close my fist, a spiral of crimson lightning winds my forearm and settles into the palm like a living thing, coiling to sleep. 7 kills, startling thunder spear, body foundation, left side done. One arm of a heaven fragment technique in a 16-year-old chassis funded by fungus, 20,000 against 1. The heavens have ruled. I flex my new hand and the lightning purrs. Let's be honest with each other, heavens. It was never 20,000 against 1. It's 20,000 against 6 million, and my 6 million think dying is a networking opportunity. The Alliance Fortress finds out about the rule change the same morning it finds out about a different problem. And honestly, the rule change comes in second. There are mushrooms inside the walls, not metaphorically. A soldier on latrine duty walks past the granary, and there's a fat, green-flecked mushroom standing in the shade like it pays taxes. He calls it in as a curiosity. By noon, there are dozens. By the next dawn, a sentry watches the biggest one shiver, split, and deliver a fully grown orc boy into the middle of a fortified military installation, whereupon the boy stretches, yawns, and eats the nearest lunch, which is being held by a soldier at the time, which technically makes the soldier the lunch. The Alliance's new commander, the old one rotated out after the Night Forest fiasco. This one arrived wearing a scholarly goatee that is very obviously glued on, a detail I have never gotten an explanation for and treasure all the more. Institutes emergency protocols, burn teams, mushroom censuses, floorboard inspections. The stadium's mycologist consultant, vindicated at last, delivers his lecture to an actually listening audience. The spores came in on their own boots from soil they marched through days ago. The whole wilderness is the enemy's base camp. You cannot quarantine against a species that composts. The Alliance does its honest best against my people, and its honest best is a fortress that smells permanently of smoke and mushroom soup, patrolled by men who now check under their own beds. Then their war oracle, they have an oracle, a proper one, bones and incense, produces the guidance of the season, our fire attack, which, to be fair to the oracle, has technically worked every time. It's just that working means something different against my species than against every other species in recorded history. So the Alliance sallies, 200 half-dragon knights as the spearhead, human regiments in support, kobold priests chanting out the gates in dawn formation to sweep the infested forest with coordinated flame. Early highlight, and I need you to have this image. A half-dragon vanguard officer, all scales and pride, cuts down a boy, and dragon blood instincts. They taste their kills, licks the blade. His expression journeys somewhere far away, tastes like mushrooms, he reports to his lieutenant, betrayed. The lieutenant later to a war council in writing, the enemy is fungal at every level of organization. Yes, welcome to my life. The sweet becomes a battle at the tree line, and the battle produces the moment that changes how the whole arena talks about my species. The Alliance works out real tactics, musketeers targeting joints, pike squads bagging isolated boys, 10-on-1, half-dragon killer teams hunting my bosses. It's disciplined, professional, and locally successful, and in the middle of it, one of my boys makes it irrelevant. My Gretchens call him Ironhide, one eye, a furrow across his skull from my kingdom's very first mass brawl, 700 days of seniority, which in orc terms makes him a founding father. A half-dragon killer team catches him alone. Their mages hose him with sustained fire while their champion closes in for the kill, and Ironhide, burning, does not retreat and does not fall. He steps through the flame, wraps the half-dragon champion in a bear hug, and holds on. The mages keep pouring fire onto their own champion's captor, which tells you how how badly they want this one green dead, and Ironhide's back burns down through leather, through hide, through muscle, until the stadium cameras are looking at his bare spine, and visible between his ribs from behind, his heart, still beating, while he squeezes. The half-dragon taps out of consciousness first, then out of everything. Ironhide drops the body, turns his skeleton and smoke back on the mage team, and grins at them with the half of his face that still moves, and the mages run. The stadium does not cheer, the stadium goes quiet, 20,000 people recalibrating at once. Up in the box seats, I'm told, an academy recruiter closed his folder and said to no one in particular, "We are not bidding on the student. We are bidding on whether he's ever pointed at us." Ironhide, for the record, walks back into the tree line under his own power, gets mushroom paste slapped on his spine by a Gretchen field medic, and is in a brawl about food within the week. I looked it up. I look all of them up now. 2 hours into the sweep, the Alliance meets the mechanism, the one that turns every long battle against my species into a countdown. Wow, saturation. Thousands of orcs having this much fun for this long changes the local physics. I can see the field effect on my god panel like heat shimmer, and inside it, my boy's skin stops being a suggestion and becomes policy. A musketeer who punched clean holes through greenhide at dawn is by mid-morning leaving welts, pikes that pierced now skid. The Alliance's damage math, calibrated on the first hour, quietly rots underneath them, and soldiers who fought the same enemy an hour apart start giving contradictory reports and doubting each other's courage. And then their scouts come back from the eastern ridge at a horse-killing gallop with the day's real news. There's an army coming, not a warband, not a raid, an army in armor, in columns, under banners. Breakor's outriders found the fortress days ago, and Breakor has arrived with the main event. The commander with the glued goatee makes the right call, retreat walls now, and makes it about 90 seconds too late because his sweep force is entangled with burning forest on one side and arriving Wa on the other. What follows is the kind of fighting withdrawal that gets taught in academies later, assuming anyone survives to teach it, and the Alliance actually pulls most of their people back behind the gates, which earns Goatee my genuine professional respect. Breaker doesn't assault, not yet. He walks the smoldering tree line where the sweep battle happened, and his boys do the thing that cost the Alliance more than any assault. Every dropped musket rises from the ash in green hands, and a musket, to an orc, is a revelation with a trigger. The first boy to fire one, loaded, in the orc tradition, with a random rock, achieves a result no gunsmith intended. The barrel detonates in his hands, knocking him flat, scorching 3 friends. Silence. Then the entire looting party erupts in worship, because listen to it. The bang is better than any war cry. They spend the afternoon deliberately overloading captured muskets to make them explode, on purpose, recreationally, and Breakor christens the whole weapon category with the name it will carry in my kingdom forever. Big bang bang. Scrapman arrives with the baggage train, examines a functioning musket for 11 minutes, and enters a state I can only call ecstatic understanding. By nightfall, he has invented, and I'm reading his production ledger off my panel in real time, in a cold sweat, and it is in crayon. Don't ask how my kingdom got crayons. My Gretchen cannon, a cannon whose ammunition is Gretchen's. Volunteer Gretchens, there's a waiting list. Breakor's sole design feedback, delivered while personally test firing a volunteer over the fortress moat, make one that shoots boys. That's what's coming for the walls. Here's what's behind them, and I collect these reports the way other gods collect hymns. The Alliance fortress, under siege by fungus and enthusiasm, is coming apart at the human seams. A half-dragon sentry was dragged off the wall into a refuse pit by something in the pit. He survived. Physically, the kobolds, whose warren instincts read the mushroom infiltration as a violated burrow, the deepest horror their species has, now visit the latrines in armed groups of 20. The human regiments have adopted precautionary undergarments I will not describe further, out of respect for the fallen, and their field commander, this is my favorite man in the entire arena, copes with the psychological siege by loudly planning his post-war courtship of a widow named Emma, describing to his ashen staff nightly over maps of an unwinnable position the little farm in the fence he's going to paint. His vice commander's diary, recovered later, contains the single greatest strategic assessment of my campaign. I no longer fear death. I fear that the commander's wedding will have a mushroom course. Hold on to Emma's commander. Everyone in that fortress is about to have a much worse week, and he keeps the fence paint dream alive through all of it, and I want you to know in advance that he lives. Not because I spared him, because orcs don't really aim. The assault comes at dawn while I march in the ranks, and it opens with the oldest tactic in every military manual ever written by anyone except my species, the expendable first wave. Gretchens, thousands abreast, streaming at the walls, under the fortress's full firing solution, ballistae, massed bows, the Alliance's remaining cannon and dying in windrows, and here's what the manuals don't cover. They're not being spent by some cold general. There's no general. They volunteered, shoving each other for lane position because the first wave sees the wall first, and the wall has all the rich little metal men on it, and everything on a Gretchen's horizon registers as inventory. Behind my Gretchen tide comes the new terror. My first Warcaster Corps. The weird boys have learned, partially, to point themselves. A dozen of them advance under the battle's rising psychic pressure like men carrying overfull soup escorted by minder Gretchens whose job is to hit them with sticks if they glow too early, and at range they discharge. Alkun Ostartisoin and they stopta. Green lightning rakes the parapets. A shimmering psychic umbrella wobbles into being over the advancing columns, swatting ballista bolts. One weird boy overloads and takes his escort with him in the traditional fireworks, and the others get visibly more powerful off the surge, which is the most on-brand thing my species has ever done. Even their casualties are a buff. The Alliance answers with their whole book. The Mage College's 9-star fire chains sweep the field in incandescent lattices, catapults sling burning oil, and bundled munitions. The walls hold through the first hour, and the second, Goatee conducting a genuinely fine defense from the gatehouse, and if the attacker were any conventional army, the ledger says he wins this. Then Breakor commits himself, and the ledger closes. 3 meters of boss in Scrapman's plate, a ton of him at a walk, carrying the iron door acts like a commuter's briefcase, and he doesn't charge the walls. He stops outside ballista range, plants his feet, and starts throwing. His ammunition is the heavy assault spears, the 4-meter stone rams that take 2 boys apiece to carry, and from Breakor's hand at Breakor's current size, each one arrives like a cargo truck dropped off a cliff. The first throw removes a section of parapet and the ballista on it. The second one opens the gatehouse like mail. Somewhere around the 5th, the defenders stop repairing and start relocating, and the moat, I genuinely apologize for this sentence, fills level with the fallen until the assault columns cross it dry-footed, which my kingdom's oral tradition immediately canonizes as Breakor built a bridge. Semper Truela Isonavas de Folbein. Indris. The Alliance plays its ace. Yijin, senior of the 4 demigods, the Dragon Knight himself, divine shield practitioner, the Alliance's answer to me, leaps from the wall into the thick of the assault with twin golden warhammers, and for 30 glorious seconds he is everything his Academy brochure promised, a one-man landslide, boys scattering off his hammer arcs like bowling pins. I've been on this field the whole time. That's the thing nobody in the fortress clocked. Skinny boy, nice spear, crusted filth, somewhere in the middle ranks of every push. The god of my horde, marching in it, drinking the battlefield's blood fiend shi like a man at a free bar because my right arm isn't going to temper itself. And when Ye Jin commits, I step out of the crowd and give him the full sequence. Flash, gap, thrust. The customer service smile in a stadium close-up at a demigod whose divine shield is his pride with my spear light through his guard before his pupils recover. It lands clean and the arena's protection swallows him. The automatic extraction for examinees at death's edge, whisking him to the stands, alive, eliminated in 0.1 seconds. I stand there in the crater of the moment, genuinely annoyed, running the frame back, working out how much earlier I'd need to commit to beat the extraction, and I catch myself pre-planning the accidental death of a classmate on live broadcast and file the thought where I file the ones I'm not proud of. Mostly, the orcs around me who just watched a skinny nobody one-shot the Golden Hammer Man arrive at their own theology on the spot at volume, Lightspear Boss. The legend writes itself in real time as it spreads down the line. He's one of the purple boys. Purple orcs are invisible. That's why nobody has ever seen one. And I swear on my panel, I did not put purple orc camouflage doctrine in my settings. They derived it from first principles instantly, and it caught because it explains everything. That's WAG logic for you. Unfalsifiable and load-bearing. Breaker, on hearing of the light spear boss, wants him found and fought at once, and the entire horde begins keeping a communal eye out for a suspicious skinny boy. An eye they will keep exactly as long as any given orc's attention span, which is my sole protection, and it is enough. Liu Han, the Alliance's healer, demigod, the sensible one, reads the field, finds me in it, and tries the other move. He approaches under a parley sign with his treasure held out. A healing amplification bracelet, family grade, genuinely fine. He'll give it freely, he says, and withdraw 30 miles and steer wide of me for the whole exam. It's a good offer, made with dignity, and I want the record to show I acknowledged that before what happened next. What happened next, I looked at him with honest puzzlement and said the quiet part at speaking volume. But if I eliminate you, the bracelet's mine anyway, and his face went through understanding, protest, and extraction. In that order, spear point assisted, the bracelet fits. The stadium, I'm told, made us sound like a documentary audience watching a crocodile eat the negotiator. 2 demigods down, walls open, and the fortress garrison, who spent this entire siege dreaming of open ground, pours out through their own breached gates, screaming, "Let us out into my horde," and I am compelled to point out the paperwork here. You people marched an army into my forest 3 times. You're the invaders. You cannot invade somewhere and then demand to be released from your own conquest. My Gretchens at least appreciate the irony. They appreciate everything on those walls, itemized at length. Inside the fallen fortress, my species conducts its victory in 3 simultaneous registers. Register 1. Scrapman discovers the Alliance's siege workshop, intact ballistae, catapults, the armory machine tools, and ascends another entire technological epoch in one afternoon, emerging at dusk to announce oil-soaked and vibrating. I understand everything now. This is 2-Wa. Register 2. My boys discover the catapults independently and invent recreational self-launching, loading themselves into the cups and firing themselves at distant scenery while queuing lads chant about becoming flyboys. Register 3, and forgive me the sentimental turn, Breaker stands on the gatehouse rubble at sundown, iron door axe planted, surveying the first walled settlement his people have ever taken, and roars a single sustained wah that every green in 100 kilometers answers, and on my panel, my faith counter climbs like a flock of birds taking off. Somewhere under the same sundown, in a scorched valley, a skinny boy nobody's looking at sits down with a stolen bracelet, a full battery of bloodfiend chi, and a right arm with an appointment with the sky. 2 of the Alliance's demigods are still in this fight. Their names are Jobin and Luoskar. They are currently barricaded in the fortress's deepest cellar arsenal, and they are about to make the single funniest decision of the entire examination. First, though, the dragons, because the fortress had 3 and history demands an accounting. The red dragons rose during the final assault, 15-meter wingspans, throats full of furnace, and laid a wall of flame across my horde's axis of advance that would have ended any sane army's day. My boys looked up at the burning sky lizards and held a brief theological congress, and the consensus position, bellowed from several hundred throats at once, was big, scaly squig. I want to ride it. The wall of flame thus became a cue. Boys walked into the firewall on the reasoning that the fastest way to a dragon is through, and the first mad boy of my campaign, a weird boy pushed past capacity by the sheer joy pressure of the battle, stared into the flames, saw Gorik and Mazrak staring back, and went off like a psychic munition, taking hundreds of heads on both sides and punching a hole in the firewall you could march a column through, which they did, chanting. Dragon 1 went down under a thrown assault spear through the throat, and 100 boys on ropes. They roped a dragon out of the sky. Don't ask me where my species learned rigging. I suspect the answer is just now, and what happened on the ground was less a kill than a disassembly conducted by souvenir hunters. Dragon 3 was pinned mid-dive by chains of Weird Boy lightning and finished by Scrapman's new bolt thrower, an event that instantly rewrote his workshop's product roadmap. Dragon 2 was smarter, stayed high, and lived, carrying the Alliance's last demigod knight away from the wreck of everything, and I let them go for the same reason I let the first kobold kid go. A horizon full of witnesses is worth more than 10 points. The half-dragon ground commander, the one with the magnificent red flame greatsword, run. He met Breakwar at the arsenal gate, and I'll give him this. It was the best single fight of my siege. Steel scales and swordsmanship against a ton of armored appetite, and Breakwar finished it, respecting him so much that he took the greatsword up, tried it in each hand, found it. His words through my panel in crayon phonetics, quote, a beautiful big chopa, too small, and had Scrapman rework it into the crest of his helmet. The commander travels on as decoration. In orc terms, this is sainthood, which brings us down the cellar stairs to the arsenal, to Jobin and Luoskar, the Alliance's last 2 demigods in the fight, barricaded behind iron doors with the fortress's entire strategic gunpowder reserve, holding a lit torch over the open barrels. Their negotiating position screamed through the door as I pried it open. Stay back, or we all go up. I step in. Old Lee. We were in the same simulation league for 3 years. He once bought me lunch after a tournament, takes one look at my face, and abandons deterrence entirely for the other classic strategy. He crosses the room and hugs my leg. Han, he says into my knee, we're classmates. Monitor 2 would never hurt his own city. 2 things wrong with that sentence. 1, I say, I was demoted. Thank you for reopening the wound. There is no Monitor 2. 2, I don't get to 2 because Jobin, watching me and clearly reading my ledger better than his friend does, makes the funniest command decision of my examination. He throws the torch into the powder himself. If we're eliminated anyway, his face says, as the fuse of the whole world lights, then at least we take the arsenal out of your... The fortress goes up in a mushroom cloud, which, given whose fortress it now is, reads as branding. I walk out of the crater with my hair smoking and not one other mark on me. Say what you want about tempering your body with lightning, but the returns are real and take in the scene. The two heroes of the powder, extracted, alive, singed to a shared hairstyle, and about to discover that friendly fire self-elimination still costs full points. My horde running toward the explosion from every direction at once, because a boom that size can only mean something wonderful is happening. The stadium replaying my crater exit walk in slow motion, which does things for my brand I couldn't have bought, and in the burnt out quiet afterward, standing in the wreck of the arsenal with two nostalgic beggars worth of respect for the departed, I take my strategic pause. The plan from here writes itself: hold, digest, grow. Let Scrapman metabolize the fortress's machine tools, finish my right arm, complete the 7 kills body, and then I've been dreaming about this on lightning scorched nights, both hands, the left that controls, the right that detonates. There's a fist technique implied at the end of this scroll, the way a summit is implied by a slope, and I've already named it in my head because a god should mark it to his own congregation. Tianlei Great God Fist, both hands, one theology. While I heal into my next arm, let me show you the rest of the board because my exam has become an ecosystem and every part of it is on fire in a different way. Chen Nuo, the lizardman kid who fled our first battle coining proverbs, reaches his rally point, unpacks his kingdom to rest his surviving troops, and finds mushrooms already growing on his home soil. His lizards carry the spores back in their scales. What he does next becomes the single most discussed clip of the mid-exam. He burns his own kingdom. Or like every field, every warren down to bedrock, spending his entire faith reserve in one sustained scream of fire, and when it's done, he stands in the ash of everything he owns, breathing hard, and his followers watch their god develop in real time, the 1,000-meter stare of a man who has seen the fungus. Days later, when a scout so much as whispers that something green was sighted in the next valley, Chen Nuo's response, instant, reflexive, at parade volume, is everyone into the kingdom, burn the camp, we're leaving. He spends the remainder of my exam as the arena's fastest moving object, undefeated in the technical sense that nothing can catch a man that motivated. The eliminated demigods, meanwhile, have all been deposited in the same holding gallery in the stadium, and that room has evolved into my exam's unofficial think tank. Nothing unites people like shared humiliation. Yi Jin holds seminars on our duel. Liu Han diagrams the bracelet mugging with the affronted precision of an actuary, and together, pooling every scrap, they crack my two biggest cover stories in one afternoon. Finding one, the light spear boss's shining spear is no artifact. The emission's signature matches a transformation stage divine shield, which means the untouchable orc champion is a demigod in costume, which means the room says it together with feeling. He's in my horde. He's been in my horde the whole time. Finding 2 from Zhao Yue, delivered from under the brim of his new bandit hat, with the authority of a man robbed at close range. The lava musket in my hands crits every shot and never reloads because what it actually burns is my bottomless faith. Their joint communique to the outside, published on the gallery wall in marker. He has no equipment worth countering. His equipment is the economy. Give him 2 more artifacts and the game is unplayable. We recommend the remaining 20,000 start praying. Accurate, gentlemen. Both findings. I'd frame that wall. Deeper in the wilds, the arena's independent operators are having their own green education. A cave-dwelling loner demigod, the one the broadcast has nicknamed the Ninja, black mud paint, alarming shorts, a fighting style built entirely on eye pokes, ear claps, toe stomps, and joint locks, the most gloriously dishonorable toolkit in my exam, has been dismantling wandering warbands with commando raids and personally offending every orc he touches. My horde's official tactical assessment of him relayed up my panel. This is not Wag. His days are numbered, not because he's losing, but because he's interesting. And my species hunts interesting the way wolves hunt lymphs. And in the strategy tier, the 2 smartest people in the arena have found each other. Su Fen and Gao Ming, alliance of 2, and I want to pay Gao Ming's followers their overdue introduction. 2 winged flying centipedes, meter long, whisper silent, IQ of a 12-year-old, and completely loyal, the perfect spy corps if your ally can stomach them. And Su Fen's face during their briefings is a war of etiquette against biology. His centipedes map my horde for days. It's centipede intelligence that proves the mushroom birth cycle on camera, time lapse of a battlefield becoming a nursery, and centipede intelligence that lets Gao Ming stay stand before the assembled alliance chiefs and deliver the finding of my exam. The wilderness is not infested with orcs. The wilderness is the orcs. Every soil they've touched is their barracks. From there, Sufen does what Sufen does. She outthinks everyone twice. First deduction over a map quietly to Gao Ming, an endless self-spawning army that no examinee owns, appearing right after the rules changed to 20,000 versus Li Han. What if the green tide is Du Han? What if the mushroom card was never a mushroom card? Gao Ming's counter theory, maybe he's just so handsome the Jade Emperor took offense, is rejected on procedural grounds, specifically that this is a live broadcast and she'd rather die than be on record entertaining it. Second deduction, and this one's the weapon, if every returning soldier cedes his own kingdom, then infection is a projectile. The alliance starts fighting engagements designed to look like defeats. Skirmish crumble, let the enemy's forces wade through spore-soaked ground, then watch the enemy withdraw their troops to their kingdom to rest. 2 weeks later, that examinee's homeland is a mushroom farm, and he's out of my exam without anyone swinging a sword at him. She's turned my plague into her artillery. 3,000 eliminations trace back to that one trick before my exam ends, including one poor soul with an ocean kingdom who evacuated his forces home only to discover squig sharks in his seas eating his mere people, and who scream at the sky, "How do I burn the sea?" enters the language as this generation's cry of despair. I find out about all of this later, and my dominant emotion, I'm not proud to report, is a warm professional glow. That's my rival. I mentored that ruthlessness across 3 years of leaderboards. Also, in her supply manifest, discovered, much later still, 3 flying warboats, custom built before my exam at obscene expense. Her alliance uses 2. The third one was spec'd for a passenger she never names, with a cargo allowance suspiciously matched to a family of 4. File that away. I did. While the map turns green and my rival weaponizes my own biology, Mechtown rises. That's what the broadcast has started calling the Fallen Fortress, and the name fits. Scrapman's conquest of the alliance's machine shops has industrialized my species. Understand what industry means here. The lathes and presses don't get studied. They get grasped intuitively, wrongly, productively. A machine tool breaks. A Gretchen crew fixes it into a different machine tool nobody has a name for. The workshops belch black smoke around the clock. A demigod environmentalist on the broadcast panel asks, appalled about the pollution, and I relay my Horde's own answer with my whole chest. What pollution? The mushrooms grow great in it. Headline products of the Mechtown Spring Collection. The Orc Buggy, which I need to clarify, is not a vehicle for riding. It's a mobile catapult whose payload is a boy, a self-propelled orc delivery system. Its hull painted in red triangles because, say it with me, the whole kingdom says it. Red ones go faster, and they do go faster. My panel confirms it. The paint measurably works because enough orcs believe it works, and the first time I watch a buggy outrun its own suspension's engineering tolerances on pure chromatic theology, I sit down on a hill and laugh until I taste copper. I reckon that's how it is, says the crew chief, and rolls another coat. And Breakor's personal contribution to materials science, his crested helmet's red flame greatsword, the dead commander's blade, dims over weeks as its enchantment starves. Breakor's solution, derived in front of the forge with furrowed brow, heat it in the campfire and beat it with a hammer on the reasoning that hitting things makes them stronger. Look at orcs. And the blade drinks the kinetic theology and glows hotter than it ever did for the half-dragons, and Breakor delivers to his assembled boys, hammer and fist, the aphorism I am absolutely having carved over my future divine palace gate. Strength is temporary, crunk is forever. My panel's translation engine flagged the last word as untranslatable. I let it stand. That's the board. A burnt paranoiac fleeing at the speed of trauma. A think tank of my victims publishing my weaknesses to no avail. A ninja running out of interesting. My rival converting my spores into a guided munition. My kingdom smoking, singing, self-launching, and repainting physics. And to the north, gathering under a banner with my name on it, spelled as an insult, the largest alliance my exam has ever seen. 1,000+ demigods and counting, unified by the one brand, more magnetic than any treasure, blood enemy of Shuhan. Its founder and chairman is about to hear from my people, loudly. Gao Ming has volunteered as the messenger, and what he's carrying isn't a message so much as a 16-character declaration of psychological war, and I say this with full documentary confidence. It is going to be the funniest week of my examination. The The Fan King Anti-Han Grand Alliance, his name for it on banners, plural, is objectively impressive, and I'll say so because mocking him lands harder when the numbers are honest. 9 million troops, 21 fortresses across 10,000 square kilometers, a full third of the shrinking arena, over 3,000 demigods under his coordination, most of them strangers recruited on the strength of the one credential he actually owns. I am the blood enemy of Shu Han, he tells every campfire. I know him, I fought him, I slapped him once in class. That last part is fiction, but the man has finally found a market where hating me is currency, and to his credit, he's cornered it. And he's rich in a way that matters here. His family, publicly humiliated twice, has gone scorched earth on the checkbook, and Fan Kang walks the arena in a full artifact set that the commentators price like a yacht. Mad Slayer armor wreathed in dark crimson flame, a vampire red cloak that drinks glancing blows, fallen phoenix boots, a clear spirit necklace to guard his mind, and a halberd I'm going to have a lot more to say about later. The broadcast panel's assessment is fair. In a set like that, even a mediocrity fights at the peak of the demigod tier, and Fan Kang, whatever else I say about him, and I intend to say everything, is a mediocrity with 9 million troops, which history teaches is plenty, so naturally, we send him a formal declaration of war. Gao Ming insists on delivering it personally. He arrives over the central fortress riding one of Su Fen's summoned golden dragons, a remote golden dragon talisman, 1 million coins a pop, she keeps a dozen like breath mints, descends through the anti-air panic to proclamation distance, unrolls an actual scroll, and announces in the carrying voice of a trained class monitor, I bear a challenge from Lefushing to the Lord of this alliance. 9 million soldiers hold their breath. Fan Kang, armored head to toe, steps onto his highest balcony to receive the honor of a named rival's formal "Eat Dirt, you clown," reads the entire challenge, and Gao Ming is already gone, windfire boots flaring off the dragon's back, cackling into the sun. That's the opening bell of what the broadcast titles the 6 Days Roast, and I want it entered into the record that the 16-character strategy directive behind it was mine. Harass without pause, never let him rest, make the big man swing at flies. Su Fen and Gao Ming execute it in rotating shifts like a tag team. Dawn, a centipede drops leaflets over the fortress mess halls comparing Fan Kang's command decisions to his Simulation League scores with citations. Noon, Su Fen's dragon strafes nothing, purely to trigger the alarm system during lunch. Dusk, Gao Ming returns to ask, through a voice horn, whether the Alliance's lord has eaten the assigned dirt yet, and whether he'd like it seasoned. Night, silence, which by day, 3 is the most psychologically damaging shift of all, because Fan Kang lies awake waiting. He responds, like himself, the one time he successfully ambushes them, he does it by committing 5 golden dragon talismans worth of counter summons and several hundred demigods to trap 2 hecklers, 5 million coins of ordnance to swat a joke, hundreds of his people eliminated in the scrum, and both targets gone laughing on windfire boots before the dust settles. On the stadium feed, his father visibly ages. Su Fen's father, seated 1 box over by the seating chart's cruel humor, catches Fan Zheng's murderous glare and answers it audibly with, "What are you looking at? Want to take it outside?" 2 sub-gods restrained by ushers. My examination is going wonderfully. While my friends conduct the roast, I finish my arm. The right side goes faster than the left. The meridian architecture already knows the pattern, like a second translation of the same book. But my scroll saves its real gifts for completion. The night the final bolt seats itself, both arms light up together for the first time, and 2 techniques assemble in my body the way answers assemble in your mouth. Whole, sudden, obvious in hindsight. The left hand's art, indestructible grasp, a vortex of crimson lightning that seizes at range, 300 tons of grip strength on a leash of thought. The right hand's art, deliberate bombardment, fist, a charging strike, power stacking on power the longer I hold it, a one-punch savings account. And yes, I recognize the fighting style these two add up to. Grab with the left, charge the right, unload at point blank. I played this exact kit in a game in my previous life. My scroll of a shattered chief god's heaven technique has independently reinvented my favorite video game character, and I take that as the universe apologizing for the mushroom. I celebrate the completed body the way any young god would. I go home for dinner. Kingdomside, I mean, walking Mechtown's boulevards in the skinny boy avatar, and let me give you the tour of what my nation built while I was at the gym, because this is the part I never get tired of. Mechtown has a tavern now. The Brewing Boy, an orc who fermented mushroom slurry in a fuel drum and lived, pours a drink whose smell alone eliminated a visiting demigod scout from my exam. The stadium reviewed the footage and ruled it a legitimate knockout. The tables host face-biting contests, which are exactly what they sound like and have a league structure. There's clan lore forming along the benches, lads with black-painted axes who value dead-eye discipline, lads in checkered yellow who hoard the shiniest teeth, lads with red suns painted on their backs who worship speed itself. My species is speciating into cultures, folks, 700 days from a mushroom, and watching Breaker hold court among the black axe lads, drilling ambush, timing into boss candidates with diagrams scratched in spilled beer. I feel the specific vertigo of a parent realizing the child has become a person, a terrifying person, a person who has invented cavalry incidentally, squig riders on tusked boar squigs, and Gretchen Portercore humping sacks of spores and bag buzzing squigs. Hold that detail. The buzzing squigs are Chekhov's ordnance along the supply roads, orc supply roads. I know. And on the 7th day, Breakor climbs the exhausted mine mountain at the town's edge, plants the iron door, and roars, and the roar doesn't stop. It propagates camp to camp, warband to warband, across 130 kilometers of green civilization and out into the arena's wilds where the feral sporeborn warbands answer it until the entire map is one synchronized, rolling waj, and my faith panel's income graph looks like a heart attack. The mountain, structurally exhausted by mining, chooses this moment to collapse, which my horde interprets as the roar working. My horde is not entirely wrong. That's my cue. I manifest for my people properly this time. A colossal orc head in the sky, tusked and grinning, Tianlei in his glory, and deliver the marching orders for my exam's second half in fluent orcish. Kick every umi with your big feet. The gods want rivers of noise go west, and the green tide turns west toward the 10,000 square kilometers of fortified anti-me alliance singing. West is already having a bad month, and most of it isn't even my doing. Fan Kang's grand coalition has been bleeding from every margin. The 6 days roast cost him sleep and face. Su Fen's infection trick has been quietly deleting his member demigods through their own kingdoms. Of the 4,000 examinees who have exited my exam by now, 3,000 trace back to her spore laundering scheme, and his frontline fortresses face feral warbands that treat siege warfare as a buffet format. He's lost a third of his territory without a single set-piece battle, and his response to bad news has become legend of its own kind. A messenger rabbit brought him a casualty report phrased carelessly, and Fan Kang killed the messenger, literally, with the halberd. His chief advisor, a genuinely competent strategist named Li Qin who'd been holding the coalition's seams together, objected to the messenger policy and was eliminated on the spot too, halberd through the parley table, and every demigod in that command tent recalculated their life choices in the same silent moment. The coalition holds now on fear and sunk cost only, which do run empires briefly. And here I have to pause my war to show you what my species does with 7 days of industrial peace, because the weapons evolution between Mechtown's founding and the Western campaign is the fastest technological sprint I've ever witnessed, and I once lived through a smartphone decade. Day 1, stone. Day 3, forged iron because captured smelters, plus intuition. Day 5, gunpowder in production. Scrapman reverse engineered it from catapult munitions, improved the recipe with fuel squig oil, and standardized the product line. Behold the bomb egg, a fist-sized sphere of powder, Gretchen nail clippings for shrapnel, assorted whatever was on the bench, fuse optional because impact usually suffices. Behold the stick grenade, which orcs prize because between throws you can hit people with it, giving rise to a martial art the tavern has named the Fire Dance Whirlwind. Axe in one hand, sputtering grenade in the other, spin. Casualty distribution. Everyone, statistically including the artist and the cue to learn it, wraps the building. And behold, deep breath, the pain boys. My species has discovered medicine. Field surgical stations staffed by orcs with needle squig syringes, mushroom transfusion bags, hair squig suture clamps, and a bone saw that is a regular saw. Understand that orc biology forgives almost anything, so orc surgery can attempt absolutely everything. I have watched through my panel, between my fingers, a pain boy successfully graft the entire lower half of one fallen boy onto the upper half of another, producing a single very satisfied composite orc who walks with 2 gaits. Anesthesia protocol. A designated orderly hits the patient with the hammer of Mazrak, which is a hammer. Post-operative infection rate, 0, because nothing dares. The masterpiece arrives at the end of the week. A boss who lost an arm to a fortress ballista walks into the surgery tent, slaps a big choppa on the table, and issues the work order that founds an entire civilization branch. Sew the axe on. The head pain boy, a weird boy surgeon called Gorkle, and his mech assistant, Sticka, receive this request the way Renaissance men received patronage. At last, Sticka is recorded saying, oiling the bone saw, someone with vision. The operation takes an afternoon. The patient wakes. First words, which son of Gork and Mork hit me? Answer. That's the anesthesia, sir. Looks down at the axe where his arm was and goes so profoundly evangelically happy that by month's end, prosthetic weaponization is a fashion economy with a price list: $2.99 teeth for a basic chop arm, $6.99 for articulated, $9.98 for the deluxe with a built-in shooter, and healthy boys are eyeing their own arms speculatively, and Gorkle has had to post his first ever medical ethics policy hand-scrawled over the tent flap: no cutting off good arms to sell you a better one. Below it, smaller, in different crayon, exceptions considered. I'm the god of all this. Officially, on the paperwork. Send help. Send none. We're fine. One more Mechtown miracle before my war resumes, because this one changes the org chart of the whole species. Breakor has acquired a mount. Backstory. Among the jumper squigs there was one. Larger, meaner, historically significant for having eaten things it should not have. That during the Fortress campaign got into the remains of a red dragon and ate the heart. Any normal creature dies of that 7 different ways. This squig ran a fever for a week, doubled in size, and woke up with a power my panel labels with what I swear is a note of alarm. Magnetic field. A squig with magnetokinesis. It sheds crackling arcs when excited. Its hide has gone iridescent, wounds close on it like water, and metal objects in its vicinity develop opinions. My horde named it before I could, the Squiggoth. Breaker took one look, wrestled it for an afternoon to establish protocol, and now rides it, and the combined silhouette of Breakor plus Squiggoth is a 5 going on 6 meter mountain of armor, tusk, and lightning that makes veteran demigods check their extraction insurance. Here's the note I actually lose sleep over. The Squig's awakening happened the same week I completed my lightning-tempered right arm. My kingdom's power curve keeps rhyming with mine. My WoW field isn't just amplifying my species, it's watching me, learning off my sheet. Pin that. It comes back at the finale, and when it comes back, it has a name. The Western Campaign then. Breaker's army rolls at the Grand Alliance's heartland, and my campaign runs on 2 clocks. My hordes, which is a metronome of joy, and the coalitions, which is a countdown nobody inside it can read. 10 days of continuous frontline grinding. Alliance soldiers learn to sleep standing in rotation. My boys don't sleep so much as reboot, face down, midfield, and wake up healed and delighted. The Alliance's camp life horror stories calcify into doctrine, bomb eggs hidden under battlefield casualties, camouflaged kamikaze Gretchens, and the discovery that my species has weaponized its own hygiene, of which the less said the better, except that the Alliance's rear echelon medics now categorize wounds by smell first. One of their field medics, a kind-eyed rabbit folk girl the broadcast had made a minor star of, is lost to a booby-trapped trophy, a squig hidden in a dead boss's fist, and the stadium goes properly quiet for her, and I mark the moment too, because it's my exam's reminder that the comedy runs on a real war underneath. Her unit burns its dead now, they learned. And while his coalition bleeds at the front, Fan Kang's real defeat happens at home, in the one territory no ally can guard for him, his kingdom. Remember the mechanism. Every returning soldier is a seed drill. Fan Kong has been rotating troops home for months, and his wood elves, gentle, curious, theologically inclined, found the strange new mushrooms in their sacred groves and classified them as gifts of the god. New creations of the master, they watered them. By the time anyone understood, the green population inside his kingdom had passed the point where my species' growth curve goes vertical, and Fan Kong, who was, at the time, a week deep into personally chasing feral troll warbands across the arena for points, too busy to check his own panel, missed the collapse of his home faith graph entirely. The stadium watched it live instead. They watched the Elves Tree City fight, the Azure Willow, a 4th-tier spirit tree, the crown jewel of his 5 million backing, flailing its branches like an artillery battery, thinning my tide, buying its people days. The stadium watched my tide not care. Green math doesn't lose to valor, it invoices it. When Fan Kong finally goes home, he walks through a strip-mined forest under a sky the wrong color to a survivor camp holding less than 1/10 of his people, and the cameras are on his face the whole way. And for one moment, I feel something for the man, because whatever he is, he built that kingdom, and it loved him in its way. The moment passes when he opens his mouth. It was extraterrestrial demons, he tells the survivors, voice cracking with the effort of the lie. A calamity from beyond. No force could have stopped it. His people, who watched their god fail to notice their apocalypse for a week, say nothing. On the broadcast, his tears hold back only because he knows the cameras are live, and what he screams at the sky when he thinks he's alone is not aimed at me. Xiu Qing, Wang Hesheng, I am not finished with you. Noted for the record, the man designated my blood enemy, ranking his grudges, puts me 3rd. The roast really got to him. Back at the front, my war produces its strangest chapter, the one military historians of 2 worlds would fight over, the Weird Boy Plateau. Rival examining armies have begun fielding their own psychic assets in answer to mine. Enchanter Corps, God-blessed war priests, one memorable academy team with I-beam specialists, and the resulting arcane exchanges escalate until a battlefield near the Kubul River hosts what the commentators call the 3-minute war gods. A weird boy so saturated with Hwa that for 180 seconds he simply outranks the local laws, walking through barrages, swatting summons, before physics forecloses and he detonates in the traditional manner. And the detonation, this far up the curve, is a double event. Psychic shockwave plus a magnetic pulse a kilometer wide. Magnetic, there's that rhyme again. Both sides' armies get flattened in an equality my species finds hilarious and the enemy finds theological. Breakor spends my campaign doing something subtler than fighting, and this is where I stop pretending he's just my biggest lad. He's building an institution. Every wild boss his army defeats, and my campaign's collision with the arena's feral warbands produces a steady stream of them, gets the same treatment, beaten thoroughly, personally, in front of witnesses, and then, at the moment tradition demands execution or exile, Breakor instead has Scrapman's forges fit the loser with new armor better than what Breakor just wrecked, and gifts him a warbore besides. The effect on orc psychology is total system compromise. These are creatures whose entire culture is hierarchy by violence, and here's a hierarch whose violence comes with a signing bonus. The beaten bosses don't submit. Submission isn't in the species. They convert. The kindness of the boss, goes the phrase sweeping my campaign. I hear it in 100 fireside variations on my panel. Can never be repaid. Greens don't cheat greens. Breakor is assembling a heavy boss officer corps bound by the only oath orcs can't break, the one they invented themselves, and the demigod observers tracking his army have quietly updated their reports from Monster Horde to the phrase that ends up in the official exam archive. We have been fighting their surplus. The main force has not yet moved. Correct, gentlemen. And while it doesn't move, the other pole of my war consolidates because my rival has been busy becoming royalty. The Old Lin Alliance, her 6,000 demigod block, absorbs the surviving private school coalition's 5,000 more, and the merger ceremony crowns her formally. 108 representative demigods, wine bowls raised and shattered on the ground in the old style, 11,000 plus banners under one command, and the title they give her, with zero irony, is Elder Sister Captain. When Li, in the stands, on camera, wipes an actual tear, they grow up so fast. Su Fen's first act of state is the move Fen Kang could never conceive of. She opens the treasury, every talisman, every artifact her family stockpiled for her personal glory, distributed outward to her line commanders by need. The broadcast does a split screen, Fan Kang in his one-man yacht of an artifact set, Su Fen handing a 1,000,000-coin talisman to a scholarship kid from a no-name school, and doesn't say anything because nothing needs saying. Her war college also holds a hearing I'd have paid to attend. The debriefing of Chen Nuo and Zhao Yue, my two earliest victims, invited as expert witnesses on fighting me. Chen Nuo's testimony is a support group monologue that ends with the whole staff tent observing a moment of silence for his kingdom. Zhao Yue's is better. He stands up in his bandit hat, sets my old lava musket's empty holster on the table like evidence, and delivers the strategic assessment of my exam. You cannot out-resource him, he says. You cannot out-attrition him. Every plan that involves his followers dying is a plan that feeds him. Fight the man himself, all of you, at once, on the first day. There is no second day. Silence. Then Su Fen, quietly. I know we probably can't win. She looks around the tent, but being afraid before the fight starts isn't my style. We attack. 15 million troops begin to move. 500 demigods form the strike echelon under Gao Ming's operational command. The stadium's odds boards. Yes, there are odds boards now. Yes, Wen Li is reportedly down a fortune backing me to win without extracting anyone. A bet the bookmakers invented specially to contain her, freeze all markets. And on a hillside between the two largest armies my exam has ever fielded, a skinny orc boy with a suspiciously nice spear sits sharpening it with a stone he doesn't need, listening to the ground hum in two rhythms, thinking a thought unworthy of a god, and thinking it anyway. My best friend and my favorite rival pooled every resource in the arena to come fight me at my full strength. And honestly, Flowers would have said less, and she keeps her word that one. 7 days, simulation battlefield, prove the orcs are real. That was her challenge back in the classroom. She's off by 1 season and 14 million troops, and I am absolutely counting it before the 15 million man overture to one personnel matter because the outcome still makes me smile in official meetings years later. The ninja gets caught. The cave commando, mud paint, alarming shorts, the eye poke arts had been conducting his dishonorable one-man war against my warbands for weeks, and my horde's fascination with him finally outran his stamina. Two heavy bosses corner him in a ravine, absorb a combined 40 minutes of joint locks, toe stomps, and ear claps with the patience of men appreciating live theater, and eventually just hold him gently, like a cat that has run out of opinions. He's hauled to Breakor for what everyone, the prisoner very much included, you can see it in his mud-caked face, assumes is an execution. Breakor looks down at the small human who spent 40 minutes disrespecting two of his bosses, and Breakor, alumnus of his own arena of underdogs, gravel voice, asks him, "Why do you fight so dirty?" The ninja, with the great weary honesty of a man out of options, says what he's clearly carried his whole life. Because I was never strong enough to fight clean, and everyone despises how I fight, but it works. And Breakor, or I have the exchange archived, I've rewatched it more times than any battle, nods slowly, taps the man's medalless chest with one finger the size of the man's forearm, and delivers the performance review nobody in any world ever gave him. Boys grow out of the ground. Losses mean nothing, but you win with what you have. That is the most wah thing I have ever seen a Umi do. And he offers him a job. Blow up the stone houses of the Umis, bring back the shiny things, and this big choppa is yours. The ninja, his actual name turns out to be Rorik, looks around the circle of green faces, all of them regarding him with frank professional admiration, the first faces in his life to look at his fighting style and see art, and he takes the axe, and I watch a man's entire posture change ownership. I am yours forever, he tells Breakor, and means it in a way loyalty oaths sworn in marble halls never mean anything. My horde has a special forces branch now. It has one operative. He has never once been asked to fight fair, and his service record will outlast this whole exam. Then the sky fills over my head, and the Grand Alliance opens its war the modern way, with air power. Understand what Sufen's merger actually assembled. The private academies bred exotic followings, birdfolk wings, griffin stables, and workshop kingdoms that build actual biplanes, spirit engine crop dusters with mounted casters. The first raid wave that crosses my forward camps runs 100,000 airframes and air beasts if it runs one, a sky-darkening argument for surrender, and it catches my ground columns in open country with, according to every military science this arena knows, no anti-air doctrine whatsoever. Every military science in this arena is about to learn my species' anti-air doctrine, and I need you to receive this list in the spirit in which my kingdom compiled it. Doctrine item 1, throw things, all things. The heavy assault spears go up like ballistic pines and come down with pilots on them. When spears run short, my boys throw rocks, cookware, each other. A Gretchen hurled hard enough is a surface-to-air Gretchen, and my Gretchens bid for the privilege. Item 2, the Porter Corps, bagged buzzing squigs. Told you they were ordnance. Get slung skyward in clay pots that burst among the biplane formations, releasing swarms of fist-sized tooth spheres that chew through wings, struts, and the concept of airworthiness. Item 3, the one that ends up in Academy textbooks under emergent fire control. Gnarlfang, a boss with Scrapman's biggest shoot-up, bore wide enough for a Gretchen to crawl down, which is also how it's loaded. The shell, being an exploding squig fattened on scrap metal, takes as his gunnery assistant a Gretchen who years ago gave him, as an insult, a targeting squig, a one-eyed creature that stares at things very hard. The insult is now a fire control system. Gnarlfang aims by asking the squig. The squig has never missed. Nobody knows how the squig works. My Gretchen who gave the insult is now the most decorated NCO in my horde, and insufferable about it. The raid wave breaks. Not cheaply, burning warbands mark its path, but the arithmetic comes out obscene. 100,000 sorties traded against a species that files aircraft under weather, and Scrapman walks the crash fields for a full day in silence before uttering the sentence that should chill every air marshal in 2 worlds. Put wings on the buggy, and it flies. Why did I not think of this? My kingdom's air force is now in pre-production. Red ones will go faster. The alliance escalates to quality. The Griffin Knights, 300 riders, the combined elite of every academy stable, Mithril Barded, Thunder Mages in the saddles, a formation whose charge is conventionally valued at 10,000 ordinary troops, form up at altitude over Breakor's main column, and their commander leads them in the pre-charge prayer, 300 voices in high consecrated harmony. My horde below answers the prayer in unison, 100,000 throats, Wai Chi, which, in my horde's liturgical usage, and my panel footnotes this helpfully, translates as up yours. The charge is genuinely magnificent. Thunderlances stitch the column. Mithril turns everything the front rank throws. And its finish is the single image of my campaign the highlight reels can't stop replaying. The commander's cast steel lance goes clean into the Squigoth's skull, a kill shot on anything that honors the concept, and the Squigoth does not die. It stands there with a lance in its head, iridescent hide crackling as the magnetic field knits around the wound in real time, and it looks up at the hovering formation with an expression I can only call reciprocal appetite, and it jumps, squigs jump. Nobody had told the Griffins. What follows cost the Alliance their entire winged elite and the stadium its composure, and it ends with Breakor plucking the lance out of his mount's skull with 2 fingers, examining it and tucking it into the Squiggoth's tack as a keepsake with the tenderness of a man saving a concert ticket. And then, because my wog over this battlefield has concentrated past anything my kingdom has ever brewed, 100,000 orcs, the best day of all their lives, at once, Breakor does the thing that ends the battle, rewrites my species' ceiling, and puts a cold wire down my spine that has never fully warmed. He swells visibly. The concentrating field pours into him as its focal point until his armor's straps sing and part red arcs crawl his tusks, and the 2 hemispheres of his nature, the brute and the cunning, Gorik's hemisphere and Mazrok's, visibly align, and he plants both feet, cocks his right fist the way he has watched through every fireside retelling of the Lightspear boss legends. A certain skinny boy cock his, and he roars the technique's name as he invents it. Da Omao, great god fist. The magnetic field detonates around his knuckles in a rotation. My panel scores at 10,000 horsepower, and the punch removes the remainder of the Alliance's second raid wave, several demigod escorts, and a hill. Silence in the stadium. Silence in the command tents of 15 million. The commentators' instruments have a category for demigods and a category for followers, and the readings refuse to file Breakor in the second one. Someone in the broadcast booth says it out loud, small and appalled. The follower is stronger than the demigods. And I'm standing on my hillside, watching the replay in my own panel, and here's my confession, the thing I told no one for the rest of my exam. I never wrote the magnetic field. It's not in my 10-minute settings document. I've reconstructed that document from memory 100 times, and there is no magnetism in it. It's from a different story entirely, a different shelf of my old life's library, the shelf about a life form that eats abilities and perfects itself. My wake field reached past my design into the same library I stole from, and it checked out a sequel. My kingdom's collective dream is browsing my memories for upgrades. The Squiggoth was the pilot program. Breakor is the rollout. An ordinary god would stop this. I sit with the fear for a full minute, honestly, letting it be as big as it is. Then I do my actual job and think it through. A magnetic madman loose in a normal species ends that species. But my species responds, the one host organism in creation that can survive its own miracles. If the dream wants to arm my people off my bookshelf, then the reading list is curated by me, and the librarian is the safest dangerous job I've ever held. I filed Breakor's new title, where my Horde has already filed it. The first war boss, approve the miracle retroactively like management everywhere, and go to work, because the main event is here. The Alliance's 15 million have concentrated on the Kubal Plain, 500 demigods in the strike echelon, Sufen's command sky barge, visible on the horizon like a golden hyphen, and it's time for the god of my greenskins to take the field in person, not as the skinny boy in the ranks, as the headline. I arrive at altitude and let the 100-mile phantasm announce me, and I bring exactly 2 personal weapons, the spear shield my body is, and Zhao Yue's lava musket, which in its previous ownership fired 10,000 faith magma bolts and required a rich family's allowance to operate. In my hands, drawing on my bottomless account, each trigger pull vents a meteor, a kilometer radius impact event per shot, and I can hold the trigger down. The stadium's instruments, tuned for demigod output, clip at the first shot and just display apologies. Some artifacts have faint spirits, a whisper of appraisal in the grip, and I swear I can feel this musket's little machine soul experiencing its career change in real time. Decades as a wealthy child status piece, and suddenly the new boss issues it a company meteor budget with no ceiling. Its whisper in my palms has the emotional register of a man promoted beyond his dreams who would now die for the firm. And I don't speak machine spirit, but the vibe translates fine. Best job ever. I rain the opening barrage at the strike echelon's approach, working the trigger with a gunslinger's cadence, old life reflexes, a certain high noon rhythm. And yes, being one-man artillery to my horde's cheering is the most fun a god has ever had on a battlefield. The Alliance's answer is the reason Sufen runs that army, the CO Light formation, 5,000 shield-disciplined demigods interleaving their barriers into a single continent of light. The arena's textbook answer to siege-grade output, it catches my first meteor hole. The formation holds, rippling, 5,000 voices screaming with the effort, and it holds. And across the front, their morale goes up like a flare because the Impossible Boy's big gun just got answered. And from my altitude, I ask the question the whole plane hears because I boosted my voice through my phantasm, conversational and curious. What happens on the second shot? The stadium says a third of the formation vomited blood holding it. The formation says nothing because the formation is busy, because I've moved to cadence fire, and the continent of light is discovering what the eliminated think tank tried to tell everyone in marker on a gallery wall. My equipment is the economy. You cannot shield wall a balance sheet. And under the barrage, in the strike echelon's core, my favorite person in the 15 million makes her move 8 golden dragons at once, an 8 million coin sky of summoned muscle punching through my meteor lanes to extract her vanguard from the collapse. And honestly, watching Su Fen spend a family fortune in 4 seconds to save scholarship kids she met last month, I nearly forget to keep shooting. Nearly. The ground war beneath my artillery is Breakor's masterpiece, and I'll spare you the full 10 hours, but 3 exhibits belong in the record. Exhibit 1, a spirit engine tank crawls up to the war boss and fires point blank into his face, and the face grows back mid-scowl, and the tank gets recycled into what Scrapman Sledger logs as parts, donor generous. Exhibit 2, my Horde unveils its chemical core, dust mushroom bombs, whose payload is cultivated on the latrine fields, and I will render the Alliance's introduction to them through one soldier's on-camera testimony, which deserves to outlive us all. The goblins threw dung at us, and it exploded. Rank lines of armored veterans unhelmet mid-battle to be sick, which is the tactical point. Nobody dies of it. Everyone wishes they could say the same. Exhibit 3, my own logistics innovation, the shoot-a-boy problem. 30% of my musket line's casualties are my musket line shooting through its own front rank, and when I finally raise it with Breakor as a friendly fire concern, his staff, he has a staff now, corrects my terminology patiently. It is not friendly fire. My boys simply do not think about it. There are, and I counted, 0 recorded grudges. Mid-battle, the golden broadcast eye swings low over my position for the interview moment the whole country has been waiting weeks for, and I finally give the stadium its answer to the question of the season. What are they? The commentator's voice asks across the sky. These green things, what did you really awaken? And I lower the musket, look straight down the lens with my most transparent, most honest schoolboy face, and tell the entire dynasty the truth. They really are mushrooms. My mushrooms just know how to wage and hit people. The orcs ate my mushrooms, and, well, I gesture at the horizon-wide green apocalypse. This happened. Beat. And from 100,000 throats below, right on cue, my Horde's entire epistemology in one line bellowed like an amen. I reckon that's how it is. Half-truth as a legal instrument. The Dynasty's fact-checkers can chew on that sentence for a decade. Every word holds. Meanwhile, Su Fen, wherever she is in that army, now has her confirmation and knows I know she knows, and somewhere on the stadium's press row, a theology correspondent quietly retitles his exam coverage from anomaly to religion. Then the weather changes, and the in-game begins. And for once, it's not my weather. The Alliance's 500 strike demigods advance under a rolling ceiling of storm cloud, massed rain summoning, the standard concealment doctrine, deny the enemy sightlines and archery, and come to grips where numbers tell, sound doctrine, against anyone else. 2 problems. Problem 1, my rain art is transformation stage, and rain answers seniority. I reach up into their own cloud ceiling and take the handoff, and their concealment becomes my venue. My 100-mile phantasm swallows the front. My clouds drop to rooftop height, and inside that pressurized dark 500 of the Alliance's finest discover they have marched into the weather I control with the thing I am. Problem 2, and I only learned this myself when Breakor's fist taught me. Past 100,000 horsepower of field concentration, my Wa reads surface thoughts of the Unwa. Every demigod in my clouds is broadcasting. Every shield raise telegraphs itself a half-second early. Every brave pair creeping my flank might as well carry lanterns and a signed itinerary. One of them thinks, clear as print, at least he can't know which of us carries the formation core, and I answer him out loud in the dark, from nowhere and everywhere, in my best customer service tone. You do Chen Wu, third pouch, left side, and the recording of 500 elite demigods' collective scream is, per my brother, the stadium's new text alert. And in the middle of their unraveling, I debut my scroll's true voice. Saction by Bansker Safar's disciple Tojin Safonchen Chimeras and Nancher's spear. On first form, thunder rises in anger. The technique drinks emotion, the evil chi refined from wrath itself, and the battlefield has marinated me in enough harvested fury to light a city. The spear shield goes the color of an open wound, thunder answering from clouds that are mine, and the first form's opening lecture removes the strike echelon's entire eastern wing from my exam in one rolling crimson instant. Rain useless, heal useless, extraction outraces it, shields worse than useless in my clouds, raising one is ringing a dinner bell. Now hold that battlefield in your mind, dark and screaming, and mostly mine, because my exam's true grudge match chooses this exact hour to arrive, and it arrives from the worst week any villain of this story has had. Fan Kang comes home from burying his kingdom to find his coalition camp empty, not defeated, empty. His 3,000 demigods read the Kubel casualty feeds, did the math on their lord's messenger killing management style, and self-evacuated, and the ones his enforcers had abused settled accounts on the way out. His own surviving wood elves, the handful his lies still commanded, are found tied up in a cellar by their own kin, safe, spared, and pointedly not waiting for him. He stands in the wreck of 9 million troops worth of empire, holding the one asset that never left, and the halberd. And the cameras catch what the clear spirit necklace can no longer hide, the black-red shimmer coming up the haft into his hands, and the broadcast panel's artifact expert leans into his microphone and says the quiet sentence that reframes the whole season. Check the provenance on that halberd. It isn't drawing on his faith. It never was. Then a golden dragon banks overhead, Gao Ming's messenger mount, on routine leaflet duty, and Fan Kang looks up with a face that has stopped doing human expressions and follows it straight toward my clouds. The last two people on his list, and me only third, remember. But my storm is where his list lives now, and the halberd, whatever's in it, likes the odds in there. It would. Evil Chi flows downhill toward the biggest kitchen, inside the clouds, meanwhile. And forgive the tonal whiplash, but this is genuinely what was happening inside the Doomstorm while the possessed man marched on it. I am being bribed. In bulk. Gao Ming's strike echelon remnant has worked out that the storm hides them from the cameras too, and the arena's fine print says treasures freely given aren't robbery, and demigods with wealthy parents make rapid tactical adjustments. A kid named He-Yun materializes out of the murk with both hands up, presses a 9 dragon scale armor into my arms plus a bank card, whispers the password is 6 6s, and vanishes from my exam voluntarily. I keep the armor and return his bank card, mostly by prying his fingers off my wrist. The precedent detonates faster than any of my meteors. Out of the dark comes a conveyor of donations, a golden cloud crown from a boy who assures me it suits my complexion, savage blood, arm guards, a Star River cloak, a white moon battle standard, somebody's grandmother's mirror, a bloodnet 1,000-star spear that I accept with real professional appreciation, punctuated by the 2 bold souls who try to weaponize the loophole by shouting, I am fragile and easily toppled while charging me, whom I topple easily via deliberate bombardment fist, because flattery gets you everywhere, but not through. And when the storm finally shreds, when Fan Kang's halberd fire carves the cloud wall open for his grand avenging entrance, the tableau revealed to the stadium is the mushroom pauper of Jiangxin hovering in mid-air in a full match set of donated divine regalia, crowned, cloaked, twin-speared, armored in 9 dragons, lit like a temple ceiling. The parents of my donors are all in the stands, and the broadcast cuts to their section, and one patriarch speaks for the whole row with dignity, consider it a favor loan to the champion. The stadium's official commentary simply logs it. The challenger arrives to face the heaven's own general. Apparently, Fan Kang and I finally have our rematch, and I want to tell it honestly because the truth is stranger than the grudge. The thing that flies at me out of the torn clouds is fast. Artifact set fast. Halberd fire streaming, punching through my outer shields on genuine power, and its eyes are wrong the whole way in. My mind reading gets static off him. The clear spirit necklace is a dead cinder at his throat, and the halberd is not drawing faith because it is paying him, the way a lender pays. And the boy inside the armor stopped being the client some days ago. First slap of the rematch then goes to my actual enemy. Indestructible grasp, left hand, 300 tons of crimson lightning closing around the whole flailing assembly of him, and I announce my treatment plan to the battlefield at large because I want it on the broadcast record for reasons that are 1/3 legal, 1/3 theological, and 1/3 for my mother, who is watching. I am going to heal this man. Is healing without the heal art still healing? Watch me. Nobody in this arena understands evil chi better than the person who refines it for breakfast, and what's riding Fan Kang is a rod. I can draw the way lightning draws to a rod. so I hold him in my grasp, and with my charging right hand, I begin the extraction. And I will not dress this up. To every camera in the sky, it looks exactly like I'm beating the artifact out of him methodically for hours, punctuated by microheals that keep the patient stable, because that is also precisely what is happening. Medicine is contextual. Below us, 100,000 of my boys watch the silhouette in the clouds, the left hand that holds from behind, the right that hammers from the front, and canonize the procedure in real time as the visible collaboration of their two gods. Mork holds from the back, Gork does the hitting. I reckon that's how it is. Breaker watches longest of all, then turns to his staff with my campaign's most consequential procurement request. I want a flying machine. Get me the Scrapman, and the thing in the halberd, feeling itself losing a body it spent a family's fortune acquiring, makes its last move. It talks to me. The voice comes up through my grasp at me like oil through water, ancient and courteous, and absolutely certain of its pitch. It introduces itself with references. The halberd, it explains, is a Huntian divine weapon, and the stands supply the horrified footnotes faster than it can boast. A prescribed relic of the Huntian sect, the cult the Dynasty broke in an actual war 10 years back, a weapon forged that worked in harvested god souls, whose arsenal cost the Empire 100,000 heavenly soldiers to burn out of the world. Somebody's procurement office missed one. It surfaced on a black market 3 days before my exam, and a desperate sub-god with a humiliated son and more money than diligence bought his boy the biggest halberd in the catalog. Up in the stands, in full view of the broadcast, Wen Li is already moving through the VIP boxes with cuffs out, and Fan Jing's protests, "I didn't know, it was 3 days ago, I have the receipt," are the first thing he's ever said that I fully believe. The receipt, historians confirm, did not help. The voice makes me its offer while gray scales crawl its host's neck. Scales with faces in them, tiny pressed faces of the souls in the forge, and every face is a reason this thing doesn't leave today. Join, it purrs. The sect rebuilds. A talent like yours at the founding table. Power beyond, I let it finish because my right hand is charging and courtesy is free. Then I look into the boy-shaped puppet at the faces in the scales, and I give the recruiting pitch of a soul mill, the only response it has earned, the look I perfected across 2 lives of being pitched by people who thought poverty meant stupidity. It's the look you give a scam call. It lands. 10 years of imperial war didn't hurt this thing's feelings, being looked at like a timeshare seminar does, so it spends its dignity on the last resort. The scales at Fan Kang's throat convulse, and the halberd spirit spits, a single gray scale faster than the eye, a soul seed aimed at the one door, no armor guards, and it strikes me square between the eyes and burrows, and the stadium's 20,000 come off their seats as the arena's medical klaxons trip, because a Huntian possession seed in the sea of consciousness is how this thing has eaten every wielder and rival for 1,000 years. It is inside my mind. It is victorious. It is, and the recordings of my face at this moment confirm the timeline, about 4 seconds from the worst discovery of its long evil life. Because my sea of consciousness has tenets. Every god's inner sea reflects what they are. Most demigods host a modest island, a candle flame of self. The Huntian seed unfurls into mine expecting a teenager's puddle, and instead materializes into a green-lit ocean under a split red and blue sky, on a beach built from 700 days of accumulated fanatic dreaming, where 2 colossal silhouettes have been waiting the way a landlord waits up for a burglar. My Wa field runs on belief, and 6 million believers have spent 2 years believing with their whole chests that Goruk and Mozrok live in the sky of Tianlei. Belief pools. It pooled here. Why? The seed transmits. The actual recorded panic pulse Jufeng's instruments caught leaking off my skull, later played at academic conferences. Does a mortal have 2 green giants in his Mozrok hits it from behind? Obviously. That is the entire theological definition of Mozrok, and being a dream in my skull makes him no less committed to craft. The seed shatters into fragments. The fragments try the classic soul splinter escape, dividing to flee, and the 2 giants look at the multiplying prey, look at each other, and divide too, mirroring it. Gleefully, 2 giants becoming 4, becoming 8, an arms race of multiplication. The seed is losing by definition, because in here, the house sets the physics, and the house rule is a roar in 2 voices that shakes my sinuses from the inside. You want more? That's 2-way. They eat every fragment. All of them, down to the last whimpering sliver, and as the last of it goes, the two giants turn toward the direction that is me. This is the part I have never told anyone, the part that isn't in any recording, and they grin the same grin from two directions, and they say the sentence I still hear when it's very quiet. The pigeons are Garuk and Mazarok. The pigeons are also Shuhan. Then the sea closes, and I'm back in the sky, elapsed outside time, under 1 second, and the halberd in Fan Kong's hands is just a dead stick of expensive metal, and Fan Kang himself is blinking like a man surfacing from a 2-week dive. He vomits gray sludge, the last of the tenant, evicted. My grasp sets him down almost gently because my quarrel was increasingly not with him, and the treatment is complete. Possession cured, karma laundered, and the exit interview is pure uncut Fan Kang, which is how I know the brain came back clean. He straightens his ruined collar, summons the shreds of the old sneer, and announces to me and the cameras I surrender voluntarily. History will record I was never truly Defia, and I grasp him back out of the air mid-sentence because some treatments require a follow-up dose and administer the closing course of the rematch he spent his family's fortune demanding. Charged, intent, aura, the works, and the arena's extraction snatches him to safety at the last syllable, which means the official record's final entry on the Fan Kang grudge reads, and I quote the log, eliminated mid-word. The strike echelon's surviving thousands watched the boy in the borrowed regalia hang alone in the clearing storm, having eaten their formation, their weather, their bribes, their villain, and their villain's demon, and 6,000-odd demigods performed the largest simultaneous surrender in examination history on the strength of Dinbian. The official report is scrupulous here, why unique on one look. After that, my exam is a formality with a calendar. The first monthly map shrink hasn't even fired yet. The void hasn't eaten its first 1,000 kilometers, and my war is over, which the record books mark with an asterisk and the bookmakers mark with grief. Suvan and Gao Ming walk into my camp under a truce banner to negotiate the end like civilized people, by which I mean Gao Ming attempts to negotiate a signing bonus for surrendering, and Suvan conducts the whole summit, refusing to ask me the one question everyone knows she's earned the answer to. Formal result, by mutual arrangement, Gao Ming concedes second to last, taking third place because Sufen flatly cedes second to him. Third brother earned it at the front, she says. Chin up, daring commentary. The last night before extraction, the three of us split rations at my fire like it's the academy cafeteria and the toast's compound. I promised to bring mushroom wine to graduation. Gao Ming vows to bring dried centipedes to put in the wine. Sufen, out-toasted, warns us both she'll bring her family's lawyers. The broadcast eye hovers on the three of us laughing, and for once has the manners not to zoom. Awards day comes for me at last. The stadium in full imperial dress, the arena world smoking map on every screen, and Zhu Feng opens with housekeeping delivered deadpan. My examination pocket world itself, he regrets to announce, is a total ecological loss. The green infestation is past reclamation thresholds, so would the champion care to simply keep the small world as salvage? I decline a free world, on camera politely, can't harvest faith from wilderness. I'd honestly rather have extra pearls, and the sound 20,000 people make at a 16-year-old waving off a planet like a breadbasket is one I intend to remember on bad days. The Academy's bidding war for me, which had been conducted all season in gentlemanly memos, collapses into open shouting on the dais, three deans discovering simultaneously that their pre-approved maximum offers were each other's opening bids, and Zhu Feng watches the auction with the weary of a man holding a trump he was mailed weeks ago, then ends it. Why? He asks me across the hush. Would you want an academy at all? Academies teach you to fight the last war of gods and demons. I fought in it. And he opens the champion's secret prize, the one he promised with teeth, which was always, by sealed decree, a choice, a world's coordinates, or the pearls, or a main god's favor. And I look at the menu, and I ask for the item that isn't printed. All of it. Teacher, I kneel. Formally, full ceremony, in front of the Dynasty, the mushroom boy binding himself student to the crippled main god, and Zhu Feng's laugh as he accepts is the first fully joyful sound I've heard the man make, and only later do I learn the joke underneath. His sealed orders from the capital, dated the day the rules changed, already instructed him to secure me. I volunteered for my own conscription and called it cunning. Muzrock somewhere in my skull applauds. The apprenticeship comes with the whole basket, pearls, favor, coordinates, protection, plus a main god between me and every clan, bureau, and academy that spent the season pricing my ribs. and one immediate domestic crisis. Wen Li, arms folded, loudly demanding to know why her almost disciple chose an old man over her, a grievance she prosecutes at the victory banquet in the mayor's residence, until my master and my brother's master are seated at the same table, trading barbed courtesies like an old married couple of the apocalypse, and my mother, God bless her forever, leans across the crossfire to ask them both if they're eating enough. The ceremony's loose ends tied with bows. The donated regalia goes back to its owners in a receiving line, each artifact returned with a handshake, and each family's visible relief converting in real time into the exact favor debt their patriarchs pretended it always was. A loan repaid on camera is worth 3 never made. My actual prize haul, the pearls, the golden dragon fruit, the space-tearing spear, the 1,000 mechanisms armor, the sea pearl, cards, coin, is inventoried aloud and then immediately impounded by my new master on camera for safekeeping against theft, he says serenely, by which he means against 16-year-olds who impulse buy real estate, and the stadium laughs and I let it, because a main god's vault is the safest bank in the province, and we both know I've already memorized the withdrawal procedures. Official standings carved into my exams eternal stele. First, Xu Han. Second, Gao Ming. Third, Su Fen. And in the stands, in the seats, his family's donation bought before everything. One entry conspicuous by absence. Fan Kang watches the whole ceremony from a medical cot, formally under investigation as the registered wielder of a prescribed weapon, his family's assets already bleeding out through tribunal fines toward the historical footnote they'll settle at Tiaobon. Under a tenth of the empire that bought this grudge. They filed a protest about his final elimination being mid-word. The tribunal stamped it, noted. That night, on the mayor's terrace, my master takes my faith panel's real number on faith. I finally show someone, and 30 million points reflect in his old eyes without one flicker of surprise, which teaches me more about what the capital already knows than any decree. And he gives me my first lesson as his student, the lore under the whole world, and I'm going to give it to you compressed. The way it rearranged my map of everything. All natives of the vast universe carry divine substance, he says. 1 substance, 2 refineries. The faith path ferments it into a godhead through worship's fire. The ascension path hammers it into the body through law. Every dual path corpse in history, and the graveyard is long, died because both refineries claimed the same substance and tore it in half. Then he looks at me the way appraisers look at forgeries that pass every test and says the sentence that officially makes me a research program. Yours is already split. 2 claims, 2 ledgers, no conflict. First in recorded history. Then, because he is my master now, and masters are the same in every world, he immediately critiques my technique. Burning faith to fuel martial arts, he says, is like a blacksmith heating his forge with banknotes. He pauses. Fortunately, you appear to print them. We begin tomorrow. Tomorrow begins with a field trip that violates geography. My master touches my forehead, and the mayor's terrace folds away, and I am standing on the suspended mountain, the Jade Emperor's own legend site, a summit floating in a sky with no ground under it anywhere, where time politely declines to pass, being introduced to a cloud with a beard. The cloud's name is Elder Whispering Cloud. He is my master's old teacher's something. The org chart up here is prehistoric, and on this mountain, outside time, he teaches me the technique my apprenticeship was really for, the one my master picked me for, the way you pick a specific tool for a specific bolt. 1 thought, 10,000 incarnations, the art of folding a fraction of your divinity into a separate walking self. You already know what I make. You knew before I did. The technique asks for a self-image to seed each incarnation, and my sea of consciousness has exactly 2 applicants, pre-formed, pre-believed by 6 million fanatics pounding on the door of reality from the inside. I open the door. Garuk steps out of my left hand. Mozrok steps out of my right. Not the dream silhouettes, walking, breathing, tusked incarnations of savage but cunning and cunning but savage, concept made ambulatory, and Elder Whispering Cloud's beard visibly recedes into his cloud like a snail taking a head count, and his voice comes out of the weather in a register I can only transcribe as generational alarm, a demigod with conceptual incarnations. The demonstration for my master back home goes even better, by which I mean worse. Asked to show the technique's progress, Mozrok obligingly demonstrates his governing concept, the strike from behind when you are not looking, on the nearest available target, who is Ju Feng, a main god, who takes an actual club to the actual back of his actual head from an angle that provably did not exist, and my master stands very still for 4 seconds, dust settling on his shoulders, and then issues the only rule of my apprenticeship he has ever phrased as a command. Do not let them out again indoors. What my master gives me next is the dowry of a dynasty deciding it owns you and deciding to be gracious about it. The coordinates of a real world, a genuine lower realm continent, mine to work. A void realm shuttle to reach it. 5 billion coin naval hardware signed out to a teenager like a library book, a standing portal anchor, and a promise delivered while watering his chrysanthemums, so I'd know it was the serious kind. Whatever you wake up out there, you may hide behind me twice. The third time we discuss tuition. First, home improvement. I take the champion's pearls to my kingdom and rebuild the map like a kid with a fresh save file. 5 elemental spirit pearls seated at the compass points in center, and my 130-kilometer brawlscape stabilizes into an actual self-balancing ecology. Rains that rotate, soil that breathes, seasons on schedule. The azure sea pearl goes in last and floods the lowlands into a real ocean, and my species meets the sea with predictable results. Within a week, there are boys floating offshore in rafted scrap like green water hyacinth, fishing with grenades, and the squigs have speciated into something with fins that the coastal camps are already racing. Then the big spend, 150 domain cards. I bought out every card in Zhongshan's markets. 15 million coins. The couriers formed a convoy, and my panel's own appraisal of the result reads like a promotion letter. Land area, 140,000 square kilometers. Sea area, 360,000. A real nation's footprint. And one more line on that panel. The line I check every morning now. The line nobody else has ever had. After my exam, on my master's advice, I formalized the tenets. The deity register of my kingdom reads Shuhan, Goruk, Mozrok, and a 4th entry, War. Status, gestating. That's my current project, the long one, the one I don't talk about at dinner. All that harvested wrath from my exam, the refined evil chi, the emotional runoff of 6 million joyful berserkers. I've stopped burning it as fuel and started feeding it, coaxing it toward coherence, growing on purpose in a warded hollow of my inner sea, a god of war. Not a found god, a made one. First deliberate divinity in the catalog, it kicks some nights. My master knows and has opinions. Goruk and Mozrok know and are, respectively, savagely curious and cunningly patient. Oh, and the old exam world, the infested small world I declined as a prize? Turns out declining was a negotiating position I didn't know I'd taken. With the salvage rights unclaimed, my master signed it over anyway, and rather than administrate 2 addresses, I solved real estate the Goruk way. My incarnations reached through the portal, took the entire assessment continent by its bedrock, 2 green giants gripping a landmass like a slice of pizza, an image the Dynasty's orbital observers will be discussing into their retirements, and folded it into my kingdom. Spores, craters, mech-town suburbs, and all. My panel absorbed the acreage without comment. My kingdom now contains a battlefield the size of a province as a historical district. Then I pack a lunch, board a 5 billion coin shuttle, and go see my new world, the Chilan continent, flat world. Properly flat, edge to edge, 3 moons in a slow braid overhead, and my shuttle's descent scorches a line across a lavender sky. What the brochure, my master's 1-page briefing in his own brushwork, says about it. 3 empires locked in a cold peace around a mountain buffer. The Balan Empire, who worship and tame the local apex monsters. They call them calamity beasts, and a bonded one is a divine soldier, a national asset with a rank and a salary. The Lanzi Empire, who took the opposite lesson from history and build god-slaying mecha, machine knights raised specifically on the premise that anything divine can be scheduled for maintenance, and the Polka Empire, the fun ones, who clone calamity beasts in vats, unstable knockoffs, calamity extermination beasts, biological munitions with a customer support problem. Between them all, wedged into the Genzai Mountains, the Norn Principality, a buffer duchy whose national industry is being in the way. What the brochure does not say, because no one in the dynasty knows. In the Balan capital, in a tower of oracle glass, a prophetess with antlers woke up screaming 3 nights before my arrival, bleeding from the eyes with one sentence caught in her throat like a bone. A green tide of calamity. From beyond the heavens. Ma'am, I apologize in advance. My tide is mostly self-driving. My shuttle puts down as a very deliberate meteor in the wilds near a village called Deliberate because meteors get investigated by exactly the sort of people I want to meet first, freelance scum. Sure enough, a mercenary company turns up to strip the crash site, finds a 16-year-old sitting on the hull eating lunch, and while their captain runs the arithmetic of ransom, I run my own arithmetic on the surface thoughts of his crew. Mind reading works fine on this continent, thank you. And the arithmetic is ugly. The words they're thinking about, the nearest bordello market for a boy my age, settle any moral bookkeeping I was doing. And then their camp alarm screams because something with a 7-meter wingspan has come down out of the cloud deck and started eating their horses. A squighawk. one of mine. Here's what I haven't told you yet. My shuttle didn't travel alone, and the spore hold wasn't empty, and my advanced ecological survey team has been on this continent for a while. The mercenaries scatter under what their survivors will file correctly as a natural disaster with feathers, and I stroll out of the wreckage of their ambitions and into the village of where the actual story of this continent finds me, hiding under a market stall in the shape of a girl with cat ears, Kiko. Cat she-human, the locals' name for her people, white star fur at the temples, pupils that go slit when she's scared, which is always, maybe 12 years old, wrapped in a stolen tarp, starving in a strategic position downwind of a bakery. The stallkeeper is halfway through selling her location to a slaver spotter when I sit down between them and ruin the transaction by existing expensively. Two things about Kiko within the first 10 minutes. One, she's warm-blooded to divine light in a way that makes my heel art purr. She basks in the spill of a basic cast like a cat in a sunbeam, then remembers to be terrified of me, then edges back into the light anyway, which is the entire biography of every stray in history. Two, and this is the one that rearranges my itinerary, when I mutter a curse in my own tongue, the Dynasty's tongue, a language that does not exist within 1,000 light years of this flat world. Kiko's ears go vertical, and she answers in it, accented, fluent, taught. Taught by whom, I ask, in the language of home, and the whole story spills out of her between inhaled buns, and I'm going to give it to you the way I had to receive it, in pieces, watching her decide with each piece whether I'd hurt her for it. Elder sister taught her. Elder sister who fell from the sky years ago. Elder sister who ran a shelter for afflicted children. The beast marked, the calamity touched, the ones this continent's churches call cursed and this continent's markets call inventory. And who is named, and here Kiko pronounces it with the ritual care of a child handling a relic. Itna o Sri Barchakame Karcha. Wabitein Tadras, Ashakuchan Sing Shri, radiant divine light of the myriad worlds healing rainbow, which is not a name any parent gives a child, which is exactly syllable for embarrassing syllable, the kind of code name a teenage girl from the Dynasty gives herself, an exile, or a shipwreck, or a runaway, a demigod of my own civilization, grounded on this flat world, patching orphans with whatever faith trickle she could scrape, until the day the monsters came through the valley, and the children scattered, and elder sister held the pass and did not come back out. The slavers took some of the kids after. Kiko ran. Kiko has been running since. I sit with my tea while she watches my face, and I do the thing gods do. I check my registry. By you, there, faint flickering, but there, a Dynasty citizenship thread still anchored somewhere on this continent, north by northwest, deep in Polka's shadow, alive, held or hiding, or worse, but alive as of this morning. And I'll be honest with you about the two feelings that arrive in me at once, because this story has run on my honesty this far. Feeling one, the clean one. A girl from home spent her exile building a lifeboat for this world's thrown away children, and the world broke it, and that gets fixed by me because the strong of my homeland have exactly one legitimate use, and this is it. Feeling two, the one my master would recognize with pride, and my mother with alarm, a missing citizen of the Jade Emperor divine dynasty held on foreign soil. Do you understand what that is legally? That's not a rescue. That's a casus belli. That's the single most respectable invasion pretext in imperial jurisprudence, gift-wrapped, notarized, sitting in my lap purring. I came to this continent with a hold full of spores and a vague plan to farm faith quietly. I now have a flag to plant it under, so we make a contract, Kiko and I, at a market table over the ruins of 30 buns. She ate 30 buns, I counted, the stallkeeper counted, a small crowd counted, her people apparently store it in the tale, and the terms are these. She teaches me this continent's languages and letters, all of them, properly, because a conqueror who needs an interpreter is a hostage with extra steps. And I find elder sister, I say it plainly, and then, because her ears have learned to read the fine print in adult promises, I show her the fine print, I let a thread of divine light out, the warm kind, and I tell her what I am. Not all of it. The parts a scared kid needs, that I'm from the same sky as elder sister, that the things hunting her people do not scale to the things that listen to me, and that as of this table, anyone who wants to put a price tag on her has to route the negotiation through me first. Kiko looks at me for a long time with those slit pupils. Then she asks, in the Dynasty's tongue, with the survivor's flawless priorities, do you have more buns, sworn and witnessed? The invasion of the Chilan continent has a staff of 2, a legal department, a linguistics department, and a catering problem. The continent's first proper collision with my species happens that same week in a river gorge 2 valleys over, and history will call it a skirmish, and I call it a product launch. A polka hunting group, a full squad of their vat-grown calamity extermination beasts, wolf-headed hulks, and one gigantic armored ape chasing a bounty through the gorge, walks into a rift glow. Because I've opened the door, my kingdom connects here now, and out of the green light, on the squiggith, in full scrapman plate, into a brand new world of unmet strangers, comes Brune. First contact between civilizations. The wolf-headed vanguard beast, 3 tons of designer muscle, does the apex predator dominance charge its vat conditioning taught it. The squiggith runs it over. Not fights it, runs it over, the way freight handles luggage that falls on the tracks and doesn't slow down. The squad's commander is the interesting one. A goat-horned lion man called Kalen, vat-born like his troops, but stable, sane, a career soldier of the clone legions with actual tactical sense. And I keep his final report to himself, thought in perfect clarity as his formation collapsed, archived among my continent conquest documents, because no analyst of 3 empires ever put it better. His beasts break formation not from fear, they're incapable, but from priority conflict, because the green things pouring after Breakor are not reacting to the Calamity Beast terror aura at all. They are shoving each other for the privilege of the first fight. These monsters, Kalen thinks, watching a bald-headed orc drop his helmet to headbutt a wolf beast into next week. Bald head means chosen one, helmet means cannon fodder. My Horde's uniform code is enthusiasm-based, and I've stopped asking. These monsters do not fear the out of control, they compete for it. And then a lanky boss built like a strangler vine gets his arms around Kalen's giant ape and suplexes it, full amplitude, canyon echo, and delivers to the staggered survivor the sentence that will get carved on this campaign's memorial arch when I build one. Borao, t'ethas saturd sand edik. My sparring partner is a squiggith, you absolute amateur. Kalen goes down commanding, which I respect. His last coherent thought, the one I actually keep, this continent is going to change. Correct assessment, Commander, fastest analyst on the landmass, and it bought him nothing, which is also the assessment. Meanwhile, in I run my cover story with Kiko, and the cover story is beautiful because it's load-bearing. The green horrors ravaging the frontier are, I tell her with a straight face, my hired muscle, mercenaries. We, meanwhile, are refugees fleeing those very horrors, looking for her sister. Both clauses, true. Kiko looks at me, looks at the horizon where the smoke is, looks back at me, feels it under adult nonsense, and goes back to her flashcards because our language school is in session and my tutor is merciless. She docks me buns for bad tones. And she's not the only student on the continent. Breakor, briefed through my panel that this world requires information as well as skulls, has issued the strangest general order of his career. My Gretchens are to learn the language. Squads of Gretchens now lurk outside frontier taverns with stolen ledger books, taking notes in crayon, conducting what they solemnly call reconnaissance and what witnesses call being audited by goblins. The program's sole fluent graduate so far, Rewrote, the ninja, my special forces branch, who reports for continental duty in a mud-brown tactical outfit he made himself with visible pride, and who is now the only entity on Chilan employed as a translator between orcs and everyone, a job title he holds with the gravity of a man who has finally been given a fair fight against the whole world. The armies keep arriving through the rift on their own schedule, 300,000 under Breakor's banner in the first wave, dispersing into the Genzai wilds to do what they do, and Scrapman's engineering corps burrowing after ore before the first camp's palisade is up, smokestacks rising over virgin valleys within days. Echo Impact Assessment conducted by me, formally, for the record, in my capacity as this ecosystem's newest god. The mushrooms grow great in it. The 3 empires respond to my green mystery precisely according to their national characters, and watching it unfold from a market bench with a language textbook is the best geopolitics seminar ever conducted. Polka checks its own VAT ledgers first, because self-replicating monsters sounds like an internal product line, and half their command genuinely spends a week interrogating their own laboratories. When did we greenlight a green line? WHO-approved spore-based propagation. Get me R&D. Balan consults its divine soldiers and its oracle tower, where the antlered prophetess has stopped sleeping entirely. And Lancy quietly rolls Mecha to the border and says nothing, because their entire national religion is we told you all so, and this is the best day of their institutional lives. And little Norn, the buffer duchy, the hallway everyone's war has to walk through, Norn does the math fastest because Norn always dies first in every scenario and Norn mobilizes. Which brings me to the two humans of this continent you actually need to know. Lord Kian, the king's brother, regent in all but name since the old king took to his sickbed, a heavy-set, tired, genuinely competent man drowning at a desk, convinced by his intelligence services that the green tide is a polka bioweapon rolled out under diplomatic cover, and mobilizing his tiny principality with the grim efficiency of a man who has read what happens to buffer states in history books, wrong about the cause, right about everything else. My favorite kind of opponent, and Prince Thane, the heir, 19, golden-haired, and this matters, so pay attention. The manifester of the Azure Thunder Knight, Norn's royal line, carries a hereditary calamity, a storm spirit bound into the bloodline generations back, the duchy's one great equalizer, and Thane can wear it, wings of blue lightning, a night shape of storm armoring him, the single most beautiful power expression I've seen on this continent. He travels with an adventuring team like something off a tapestry, a shrine girl whose prayers are supply logistics, a bald mountain of a bodyguard, a black-robed mage named Eldrin with alarming eyes and more alarming hobbies. And when the frontier city of Erga comes under green siege, the prince doesn't chair a committee, he rides for it. I read his surface thoughts the first time his column passes through our refugee-clogged market town, and I want to log what I find because it decides everything later under the golden hair and the storybook manner. No rot. Worry for the villages, by name, a ledger of his guardsmen's families, and one locked room black-doored that even his own thoughts walk past without looking, labeled in the way minds label such things. Mother, hold that door. We're coming back to it. My refugee road interlude, because my war looks different at boot level, and I'm walking this continent at boot level on purpose. A tobacco caravan 2 days ahead of us is stripped to its axles by scug mosquitoes, palm-sized drink solvents, dissolve fabric, a mosquito that eats your clothes and leaves the rest. My ecological survey team has range-tested some frankly avant-garde species out here, and the caravan survivors stagger into town in barrels, and Kiko laughs for the first time since I met her. A rusty little hiccup of a laugh she immediately looks guilty about, and I add it to the list of things I'm invoicing this continent for. Then the innkeeper serving our table clocks Kiko's ears under her hood, and I read his intended evening errand right off his forebrain. The slaver office pays a finder's fee, so we conduct the traditional dine and dash, except the dash is me walking out at a stroll with Kiko under one arm while every door and shutter in the building politely refuses to open for the staff. Wind pressure, terribly strange weather this season, and the finder's fee stays theoretical, and 30 more buns migrate into my tutor as severance from the establishment. Her people really do store it in the tail. I've started budgeting for it as a line item. Ayurka falls to my people before the prince arrives. I'll tell it clean, because the city died and my species killed it. Heavy bosses with flail arms breach the curtain wall in 3 places inside an hour. Orc buggies lob assault boys over the battlements on arrival, and the garrison's spine breaks, where garrison's spines always break at the moment the walls stop meaning anything. And in the collapse, this continent shows me its own soul in the shape of one man. A manifester called Ronan, a scarred veteran. The garrison called the Firebird holds the main breach alone. His fire isn't tame like the Prince's Storm. He stole it, or it stole him. Decades back, his village burned when a fire calamity called Bynum slipped its handlers, and the boy who crawled out of the ash came out carrying a live coal of the thing's power and a dead girl's name, Maeve. His file says he spent his whole career requesting breach postings. At Aerga, with the wall gone and the wave coming, the Firebird lights his last cigarette off his own thumb, says his sentence to the smoke. The pickets who heard it wrote it down independently, so I have it verbatim. Maeve, I'm coming after your shadow, and detonates himself in the breach and the boss leading the assault into one column of shared fire. My species after action report on the Firebird, filed by the survivors of that column in tones I can only call liturgical. Best Yumi yet. The wave went around the crater. Out of respect, they said, orcs don't go around anything. The war's first strategic casualty, though, isn't a city. It's the truth. Because nobody official believes in sky monsters, the 2 empires bordering the Genzai wreckage reach for the explanation their whole Cold War has preloaded each other. A Polka border prefect arrests a Norn knight commander named Theron and the visiting second prince of Norn, Prince Gareth, at a summit table. That you release them from your side of the mountains, while Balan's border marches read the same tea leaves in reverse. Norn, the hallway state, is now being blamed by its neighbors for the monsters currently eating Norn, a diplomatic achievement so complete that when the news reaches me over Kiko's flashcards, I have to put the textbook down and applaud the universe's craftsmanship. 3 empires, 1 green tide, and the first month's official casualty list reads 1 frontier city, 1 caravan trade, and every treaty on the continent. My legal department, me at a market table with tea, reviews the developing situation against the original casus belli, the missing citizen by you, held somewhere in Polka's shadow, and makes a scheduling note in the file. The continent is doing the invasion's paperwork for me. All I have to do is keep walking north, keep the buns coming, and be, when each of these empires comes looking for someone to blame or someone to hire, exactly what I look like. A refugee with excellent references. I meet the prince properly on the refugee road, over a rescue neither of us planned. Our column, and Kiko and I have attached ourselves to a westbound refugee train, partly cover, partly because somebody in that column should be able to actually protect it, is a day out of the fallen city when the Squighawks find the horse lines. Nothing personal. My survey species does not distinguish between wild horses and escorted ones, and the escort's war horses are the fattest calories on the road. In the chaos, one night of the rear guard, an older lancer named Jin Tao, whose thoughts I've been idly reading for 2 days because they're restful, all duty rosters and a granddaughter's name, sees the hawks wheeling for the wagons and makes the arithmetic every good soldier makes exactly once. He spurs out of the column, alone, banner high, making himself the loudest, shiniest target on the plain. A deliberate one-man decoy run. The hawks take the bait, all of them, and Jin Tao gets to finish his granddaughter's name one more time before the first stoop reaches him, and doesn't connect because the sky goes blue-white. Prince Thane arrives off the cloud ceiling, storm shape blazing, a night of articulated lightning, astride a white charger that is at this point running on air, and he takes the entire hawk flight head-on in a rolling thunder crack that lights the column's faces like a festival. The hawks, bright animals, my hawks, reassess the local food economy and leave. Jin Tao gets carried back to the wagons unbroken, and I stand in the wagon line with my refugee hood up, watching the heir of Norn set down, dismount, and go check on the lancer first before his own escort, before the nobles in the column, and I revise the locked door file I keep on this man upward again. I get my conversational opening that evening at the picket fires, and I use it the way I use everything, sideways. Fine soldiers I offer in my best educated refugee register, nodding at his outriders. A shame one cannot recruit such men. He takes the bait, recruit Bud Castle, and I explain wistfully that my own household keeps rougher retainers, green ones, very loyal, terrible with new colleagues. Any recruit would be dead by lunch. They play rough. It's the kind of joke a tired noble refugee makes. It's also, clause for clause, a true statement, an actuarial warning, and a job posting, and telling this continent's future king the exact truth in a voice he'll file under charming is the most fun my legal department has had since the Buns contract. My war council at Norn's second city is where the continent's whole cast finally shares a room, and I attend as what I've become in the column's eyes, the resourceful refugee gentleman with the odd little sister, useful with logistics, oddly well-informed. The intelligence picture assembling on the Duke's map table would be comedy if it weren't fed by burned cities. Item, the captive knight commander Theron, in a polka cell across the border, has been shown sketches of the Green Raiders and has sworn on his order that these things came from Polka's side of the mountains, an accusation his jailers find so sincere it's begun eroding their own certainty. Item, Thane, back from the front, has put his finger precisely on the wound. These cannot be Polka's vat beasts, he tells the council. There are too many, and they are too stable. A vat line that self-multiplies in the field would have eaten Polka first. The boy is doing real analysis with a fraction of my data. Item, Balan's mediating emissary, a divine soldier, an actual bonded lion, the size of a hay wagon, who pads into the council chamber and speaks in a voice like a landslide with diction, brings the Tower Oracle's official reading, and the reading empties the room's lungs. The green tide is nothing of this world. It came from beyond the heavens, and she saw. The lion pauses, delivering the prophetess's own words with the herald's exactness. Only annihilation. The council takes this as apocalyptic prophecy. I take notes. I take it as a performance review. Beyond the heavens, only annihilation. Honestly, from a first-time oracle, reading cold, with no prior exposure to my species, that's dead accurate. That's publishable. And the antlered prophetess goes straight onto my list of this continent's genuinely dangerous assets. The shortlist with Thane's locked door and Eldrin's alarming eyes on it. Balance proposal lands with the prophecy's weight behind it. Full continental coalition. All grudges suspended, even Lancy, everyone against the sky tide. Motion carries, the continent unites against me. And sitting in the observer's gallery in a refugee's coat, with my hired muscle burning the northern marches, my citizenship claim filed against a member state, and my tutor asleep on my shoulder, I compose in my head the only message home that could do the moment justice, addressed to my master, unsent, making excellent friends. Everyone here is banding together against a common enemy. It's me, very unifying presence, your student. My military situation, meanwhile, produces my campaign's second battle of Ayerga because Norn countermarches to retake the fallen city, and I want this one on the record for what it taught both sides. The coalition vanguard fights well. The guard trades at 6-1 against boys in the breaches and holds anyway. Their quartermasters learn to issue rebreathers after the first dust mushroom barrage teaches a battalion to vomit information. Their engineers learn that any pile of green casualties left unburned overnight becomes, by morning, a recruitment office. And my species learns in the other direction, which is the part that should keep coalition staff officers up at night, because orc learning compounds. My siege produces the Speaker Boy, a boy who took a shine to a salvaged voice trumpet, had Scrapman grafted on as a prosthetic. The arm was fine. He paid for the amputation. Gorkul's ethics sign has a new exception clause, and now functions as my Horde's walking propaganda station. Bellowing market cries he learned from my Gretchen language school across the battlefield at all hours. Skewers, one when, he thunders at terrified pikemen in their own tongue. Bobo G, the rank and file of two armies, now believe the green tide has heralds. A boy 2 trenches over believes the voice is the echo of Goruk and files daily complaints that the echo won't shut up. Morale effects, catastrophic, bidirectional, hilarious. And my siege produces the mech. Eldrin, the prince's black-robed mage, the alarming one, corners Thane in the command post with the proposal his eyes have been rehearsing since I met him. The coalition now includes LANSI, and Lancey's contribution has arrived early in secret, disassembled in a mountain vault a day's ride away, because Lancey never travels without one, a god-slaying mecha. Not a production model, a prototype, a decommissioned experimental chassis, their delegation dragged along as leverage, and Eldrin, who did his forbidden alchemy apprenticeship in a Lancey enclave, knows the vault schedule, knows the activation rights, and knows, his voice doing the thing zealots' voices do, that nobody in this coalition will authorize deploying an untested godkiller through channels before the city falls twice more. So, synthesize authorization. The prince should steal the mech. The prince steals the mech. I want it noted that I had nothing to do with this decision and everything to do with enjoying it. The vault cracks at midnight. The teleport array Eldrin rigs deposits the cargo on the plain outside Ayerga at dawn, and the coalition wakes to find, standing over their siege lines in the sunrise, a centaur, 50 meters of it, 5,000 tons of gray gold alloy, 4 legs planted in a stance older than this continent's kingdoms, a lance arm the length of a street, and nobody, this is the beautiful part, the part where I had to sit down on a rooftop, nobody in the entire coalition actually knows how to drive it. The activation right worked. The piloting manual is in a Lanzi-ciphered dialect, and the first hour of the Godslayer's combat debut consists of the pride of Norn chivalry standing in its cockpit shrine pressing things while the machine performs what military observers on both sides log as an interpretive dance. Iandan, it lurches, it pivots, it kicks, one leg sweep accidentally clearing a boulevard of assault boys, and my species' response to being trampled by a wandering 50-meter demiurge is the response you already know is coming, the only response they have ever had to anything. Total, ecstatic, unanimous acclaim. A gift from Gao Mao. My siege lines roar as boys sprint toward the stomping. What falls from the sky is mine. Boys are actively climbing its greaves as it flails. Scrapman has to be physically restrained from crossing the front line with a wrench and a courtship offering, and through a shattered city wall, shedding masonry like water, comes the other headline. On my controls like this my condition. Breaker into Afghanistan Sataikari, who has spent this siege in the reserve trench, sulking because nothing on this continent has been worth the iron door Trugernai stands up in the saddle, and the saddle stands up under him, and the thing under the saddle has been quietly becoming a problem all campaign. The Squiggoth post-Dragon Heart post-Golden Dragon fruit. Yes, that fruit. The champion's prize, the permanent dragon bloodline, works on anything with blood. My master impounded my treasures for safekeeping against exactly this impulse purchase, and my master impounded them into a vault whose withdrawal procedures I had, as noted, memorized, and a gods got to feed his war mount something wing for the road. The resulting animal, my horde has renamed it, and the name is now official in my panel's bestiary, which means the belief has set is the violent dragon, scarlet-scaled, where it used to be iridescent, a furnace throat that vents actual flame, radiating heat shimmer at parade rest, magnetic field and dragon blood braided into a regeneration that my panel benchmarks with the single appraisal line, limb reshaping, 250,000 horsepower. Breakor rides that out of the breach, into the dawn, at the 50-meter centaur, and bellows up its whole height, the challenge he has been saving since my exam ended, and the worthy opponents ran out. Big metal boss, that lance is mine. The mech's cockpit, at this precise moment, finally gets a pilot. Eldrin's solution to the manual problem is the manual's own last resort, direct synchronization, mind-to-machine shrine, and there is exactly one nervous system present rated for the throughput, because storm manifestation is a synchronization art. The prince sits the shrine throne, the interface takes him. Dizziness is normal, Eldrin says, in the tone of a man quoting a document he's only mostly translated. And 50 meters of Godslayer stops dancing and settles, weight sinking into stance, lance coming around with intent, eyes lighting the blue of the royal storm. On the plain, the two biggest entities on the continent square up in the sunrise, while both armies stop fighting to watch, which my species considers the highest possible compliment to a matchup. On a rooftop in the refugee quarter, a language student and his sleeping cat-eared tutor, front row, and I am eating. I want this detail preserved for the historians. A bun I had been saving, I reckon that's how it is. The duel runs 40 minutes under my rooftop seat, and both armies will lie about having seen it for the rest of their lives, so let me file the accurate version. Opening exchanges, the mech leads with mass, a 5,000-ton lance thrust that leaves a trench in the plain, a trample sequence with all four legs that turns its footprint into a no man's land. The violent dragon does not evade. Evasion is for species with a different god. It catches the descending foreleg in its jaws and holds, scarlet scales splitting off white-hot alloy, magnetic field screaming against servo torque, and bites, and the metallurgy of another civilization learns about dragon-grade jaw pressure the hard way. Breakor fights standing on the saddle the whole time like a man conducting an orchestra from a moving train, and his blade work has a new grammar since my exam. That's the part I watch with a god's eye and a parent's vertigo. Goruk's furious slash, he bellows, and the iron door comes down through a knee joint in a red arc that has technique in it now, angle and timing and follow through, because the war boss has been studying, and what he's been studying, relayed through every fireside retelling of my exam, is me. Middle game, and the mechanism underneath it, because this is where my species breaks the scale it's being weighed on. The longer the duel runs, the louder the audience. 100,000 orcs packed on the walls and rubble hills of a city they own, roaring both fighters on without a flicker of partisanship, and my Waheg field over that plain concentrates past exam battle levels, past anything I've measured, and inside it, the idealistic mechanics of my species go frankly abstract. My boys believe Breakor gets stronger when the fight gets better, so he does, measurably. My panel graphing his output in real time as a staircase that climbs every time the mech lands something spectacular. My boys believe a magnetic boss can steer his own fall. So Breakor, kicked off the saddle at one point by a lance parry, walks back up the air, planting his right foot on his own left foot and pushing, a maneuver my panel refuses to annotate beyond a shrug of question marks, a maneuver that violates mechanics I personally installed in this universe's basement, and the 100,000 voice roar that greets it just reads on my faith graph as more fuel. Endgame. The prince. And he's flying that shrine throne well now, storm instincts mapping to servo language, the machine moving like a duelist instead of cargo, reads the power staircase for what it is, and makes the textbook correct decision against an opponent whose curve only climbs, end it now with everything. The mech plants all four legs, vents every safety, and the lance arm ignites with the prototype's buried finisher. The reason Lancey mothballed the chassis, full liberation, a self-consuming overcharge. The whole reactor spent through one thrust. Blue lightning explosive charge, flash. The name arrives in my mind in the mech's own broadcast cant, because at full liberation the shrine sings its strikes aloud. The plane goes white-blue, and Breakor meets it. Feet planted on the violent dragon's skull, both hemispheres aligned, the concentrated worship of 100,000 true believers cycloning down his right arm, and he answers the machine's hymn with mine. Zhao Mao, great god fist, 50,000 horsepower, and the two finishers connect head-on in a detonation that deletes the morning fog from the entire valley, and out of the blast glare, in the sudden ringing silence, comes the sound of the resolution, a groan of alloy at the yield point, and my warboss, smoking from tusk to heel, standing on the mech's chest with both hands locked on its helm, twisting. The Godslayer's neck gives with a sound like a cathedral bell dying. The Colossus folds at the knees, and the plane shakes once, and it's over. My points of order for the record. 1. The cockpit ejected. Eldrin's right included a mercy clause, the shrine throne punched free in the last half second, and the prince and his extraction landed unseen in the river reeds 2 kilometers off, unseen by everyone except the god on the rooftop with the bun, who tracked the ark, confirmed survival, said nothing, and updated a file. My experiment walked away intact, and better, my experiment now knows what synchronization feels like and has felt something inside that machine I'll get to shortly, because it changes the whole continent's story. 2. Breakor's victory speech, delivered to 100,000 worshippers from the chest of a dead godslayer in full. This lance is mine. 3. Scrapman reached the wreck before it finished settling, and his assessment ran the full arc of his civilization in 2 sentences, transcribed by a terrified Gretchen stenographer. Put wings on it, build me another one. And 4. The note that isn't funny, the one I flagged for my own file in red, while my horde sang, my Gretchen labor corps, hauling the wreck to the foundries, muttered, in the language school's new tongue, lo, where my boys don't listen, when do my Gretchens rise? File open, growing. My war rolls west, and so do we, ahead of it, to Lyle City, the duchy's second city, now the front's rear, swollen with refugees, and this is the stretch of the story where my 2 lives, refugee gentlemen and green apocalypse, start holding joint meetings. My domestic report first, because the domestic report is the point of everything else. Kiko has stopped flinching at doors. She has appointed herself quartermaster of our little household and audits our supplies nightly with a pencil stub, tongue between her teeth. She has discovered that her hair, brushed, is a different color than her hair, matted, and been suspicious about it for a full day. She grinds through language drills with me like a tiny drill sergeant and pays herself in the one currency we've agreed on. After lessons, she sits by my knee and I scratch behind the cat ears until the purse starts, a sound she pretended for 2 weeks she wasn't making. And one evening, over the flashcards, she goes quiet and asks the question she's been building up to since in the Dynasty's tongue, not looking at me. Her cat, back at the shelter, before everything, stopped mewing one day, just stopped and kept eating and sleeping, but never made another sound. And was that her fault? Did she miss a thing she should have done? And I put down the flashcards and give the question the full diagnostic seriousness it deserves. One or Horde. Grief runs through children along whatever corridor is open, and we work through cat medicine for an hour, and somewhere in there, it stops being about the cat. And I tell her the true thing. Sometimes creatures go quiet to survive a place, and it is not the fault of anyone who loved them. And the mewing comes back when the world is safe. She files that. 2 mornings later, I hear her singing to the supply ledger, badly, and I add it to the invoice this continent owes me, compounding. Then Lyle's criminal ecosystem makes its play at me, and the play makes my reputation in the city, so I'll report it exactly. Refugee crowds hide predators, a mob of them, 40 strong, the kind that has learned that beast-marked children carry bounties, and that the authorities pay in cash and don't audit methods. They surround our lodging in the market square at dusk, professionally, exits covered, spokesman to the front, and the spokesman explains, reasonably, that the cat thing is registered calamity touch property under wartime statute, and the gentleman can hand it over and be compensated, or the crowd can. And I'm sipping tea through the whole speech, and Kiko's gone slit-eyed and rigid against my side, and I set the cup down on its saucer with a click, and I ask the square, genuinely curious, who gave you all the courage? The name lands in the silence. Nobody answers. The click of the cup was the technique, you see? Deliberate bombardment, held charged for the length of his whole speech, released through the porcelain as a directional pulse, tuned to the exact resonance where consciousness lives, and 40 bounty men drop where they stand in one synchronized clatter. Alive, dreaming, per my read, of paperwork. The city watch arrives to find a tea drinker, a purring child, and a plaza of sleeping felons arranged in a neat radius. And the watch captain, bless this continent's institutional instincts, surveys the scene, consults his career prospects, and arrests the felons. All of them. For, and I quote the charge sheet Kiko and I framed later, aggressive loitering with intent to inconvenience. Word of the incident climbs the city in an afternoon, and by evening it has reached the top, and the top sends an invitation card on ducal stationery. Lord Kyan requests the pleasure. The resourceful refugee gentleman is going to the palace, and the palace, though it doesn't know it yet, has invited the Green Tide to dinner to ask its advice about the Green Tide. I wear my good coat. Kiko wears a new ribbon and eats 40% of the receiving room pastries during the bows alone, establishing our diplomatic credentials immediately. And Lord Kyan, up close, a gray, honest, grinding man, the kind who has been holding a country together with string while his brother the king dies by inches upstairs of history, interviews me across a map table. And the interview is the easiest exam I have ever sat, because I can read the questions in his forebrain before he asks them, along with his private annotations. He wants to know what I saw on the road from Ierga. I tell him, accurate, vivid, tactically useful. He wants to know how I dropped 40 men without a mark. Family art, I say, apologetic. We don't teach it. And his mind, the whole time, is running the file his spy master built on Kiko. White Star, Maine. The annotation reads catfolk of the Akar shelter villages, the ones destroyed in the ears, and running in parallel, the calculation of a drowning administrator staring at an asset. This stranger is worth a company, maybe a regiment. What does he want? Everyone wants something, so I sell him something. That's the beauty of it. I sell Lord Kyan intelligence on the Green Menace, detailed intelligence, accurate intelligence, propagation mechanics, the futility of burial details, the burn protocols, the boss hierarchy, the difference between a raid and a waig. Every word of it true, every word of it useful, every word of it about my own army, delivered with the grave reluctance of a scholar who has seen too much, while my inner audit department files the transaction underselling the weather report authored by the weather. I even negotiate poorly on purpose and let him feel he got a bargain. Kiko, who knows exactly enough to know what I'm doing, maintains a diplomatic face by staring into her sixth pastry with the intensity of prayer, and later, in the corridor, delivers her assessment of my performance in one flat bilingual word. Shameless. Correct, quartermaster. Invoice it. The Duke's counteroffer arrives before dessert because drowning men move fast. A title. Baron. Norn runs lean. 1 Duke, 4 Marquises, and the Crown Prince himself technically ranks as Viscount until coronation. So Baron at court is real currency here, and it comes with the 2 assets I actually want: standing access to the palace and reading rights to the ducal library, which is the largest archive on this side of the continent and the only place likely to hold records of a sky-fallen healer girl operating a shelter 8 years back. I accept with becoming modesty. The refugee gentleman is now Lord Han. I smush Ismail. I gave my name at court with a flourish as Han the Ancestor, a joke for an audience of exactly one that landed in a room of 0. Sometimes art is for the artist, and my strategic position is officially the funniest shape of my career. I am a baron of the coalition, sworn against the Green Tide, principal intelligence consultant on the Green Tide, god of the Green Tide, and my tide's most urgent standing order, relayed to Breakier that very night through my panel, is, press harder, old friend. If you slack off out there, I'm going to end up promoted to field marshal of your enemies, and then I'll have to defeat you, and neither of our reputations survives that. His reply comes back in crayon phonetics, and I have it framed. Den I fight the marshal, good fight. And that night, in the palace's guest wing, with Kiko asleep in the window seat and the library keys on my desk, I finally turned to the file I've been keeping since the river reads, because someone else in this palace isn't sleeping. Down the corridor, behind a locked door of his own, Prince Thane sits awake with a problem no one on this continent can help him with, and I know its shape because I was listening when it was born. In the mech, at full synchronization, in the shrine that Lancy built to interface a mind with a machine, he felt something, arms around him, a warmth he last knew at 9 years old, and a melody, a lullaby, her lullaby, note for note, humming up through a war engine's soul circuits from somewhere inside its black glass core. His mother died 10 years ago. The palace record says fever. The old king sealed the sick room, the physician's logs, and the year, and the machine sang her song. Sleep well, prince. Your new friend, the Baron, has library keys, a genius for other people's locked rooms, and the growing professional suspicion that this continent's god-slaying machines are powered by something the coalition would rather not discuss at council. We're going to get along. Lyle City discovers it has been pre-invaded by my species on a market morning to the sound of a gong. Here's the mechanism the coalition still hasn't fully priced. Soldiers retreating from the fallen front carried spores in their boot treads, wagons carried them in axle mud, and Lyle's own relief columns seeded their own city weeks ago. The Bloom chooses a temple square. A boy climbs out of the paving stones at dawn, blinks at the new world, spots the great bronze prayer gong, and does what his species does to all significant objects, hits it. The gong, he reports to the empty square, delighted at volume. What a noise. He then works his way through the waking market on pure appetite and curiosity until Prince Thane arrives with the palace guard and concludes the matter with one storm-edged stroke, and the city goes to quarantine protocols before breakfast. Sweep teams, floorboard inspections, the works, and everything Baron Han's intelligence reports predicted comes true street by street. Hundreds of Gretchens in the cellars and roof lines, dozens of boys under warehouses and bathhouses, all of them having infiltrated the city by the cunning stratagem of being dirt until they weren't. My favorite entry in the guard's incident ledger, preserved verbatim, they must have been hiding for weeks. How intelligent are these creatures? Sir, the answer is, they were not hiding, they were not anything. My species' infiltration doctrine is a life cycle, and your city is standing in its garden. My crisis peaks at the ducal residence, because of course it does. The richest concentration of shiny in the city pulls assault-grade greens the way altitude pulls lightning, and the boss who comes up out of the stable yard is an old friend of the narrative, Ironhide, the fortress veteran, the half-dragon strangler, campaigning abroad now with a girder for a club. The palace guard's line cracks in the first exchange, and the day gets saved by the timely intervention of that renowned friend of Norn, that selfless refugee nobleman. You see where this is going. Baron Han, who confronts the terrible beast in the shattered forecourt, blade of light against girder, and drives it off in a duel, the balladeers of Lyle set to verse within the week. What actually happens in the forecourt, sub rosa, between one exchange of blows and the next, in fluent Orcish, at a volume only the two of us and the gods can hear. Good form, old lad. Take the girder swing wide on my count, so the humans see me parry it, then withdraw over the east wall. There's a fresh boar herd 2 valleys east. Tell the lads the pigeon says well done. And Ironhide, who has known since the first clash exactly whose hand is on this spear, because my horde has always known its skinny boy, that's the secret I keep forgetting, isn't a secret to them, grins his half-face grin, telegraphs the girder beautifully, takes his exit on cue, and roars over his shoulder for the crowd in his best terrifying monster voice, a sentence that in Orcish means, see you at the big one, boss. The balladeers set that to verse too. It scans as a curse. I have never loved my job more. Baron Han's stock, post-duel, national hero of a principality I am besieging, and the palace's gratitude opens the last door I need, the prince's. Thane seeks me out that evening on the guest wing balcony, still ash-streaked from the day, and what he wants isn't courtly. He's watched me fight now, watched me drop a monster his guard couldn't slow, and he asks, direct as a lance, whether my family's arts can be taught, because his own inherited power, the Azure Thunder Knight, is the crown's, not his. It answers the throne's needs, gets rationed by his father's chancellors like state plate, and he has begun to suspect, he says, choosing each word like a man walking on ice at night, that there are things in this principality he will never be allowed to investigate while his strength arrives through the crown's ledger. He doesn't mention the mech, he doesn't mention the lullaby, he doesn't have to. I was there when the door in his head stopped being locked and started being ajar, so I give the prince a power-up and I build it honest shaped. On the balcony by moonlight, with ceremony calibrated precisely to this continent's mythological expectations, I initiate him into the tutelage of my venerable ancestor patron, the Red Cloud Immortal Venerable, Bodhisattva of Valor, they say, friend to worthy warriors, very exclusive, doesn't exist. Under the stagecraft, the actual engineering, a lattice of my heal and shield arts, keyed to his meridians, a measured feed of combat refined, evil chi converted clean, and nobody on any continent refines it cleaner, and the load-bearing component, an I reckon field. I introduced my horde via Brakor to the legend of the Thunder Umi, the storm prince who fought the big metal boss with honor, and my species has adopted him as worthy opposition, and 100,000 orcs now firmly believe the Thunder Umi is strong. So he is. The same belief physics that lets Brakor walk on his own feet mid-air now runs a quiet subsidy into a human prince's lightning, and the beautiful part, the part that makes it art instead of charity. The harder my horde fights him, the more they rate him, and the stronger their faith makes him. I have built this boy a power source whose output scales with being at war with me. Somewhere in my inner sea, Mazrak applauded for an hour. Thane takes to it like storm to a mast. And the thing he says after the first session, flexing lightning, that finally answers to him and no chancellor, Kach in the Idri Taishmachit Seor, quietly to the night, not really to me, with strength of my own, I can finally open my mother's file. Seed planted, root taken. Then he catches himself, grins the boyish grin the portraitist chase, and amends aloud, princely manners restored. But first we survive this war, Baron. When my siege breaks, the drinks are on me. On my honor, I'm holding you to the good cellar. Noted, your highness, logged with the promises I keep. My siege does not wait for the cellar. Lyle's quarantine buys days, not weeks. My horde's main columns arrive with the season's first cold wind, and the second city of Norn conducts a fighting evacuation west that the military academies of 3 empires will teach for a century, Kian trading streets for hours, Thane's new-fed storm holding the gate breaches at dusk and dawn, my baronial self organizing refugee columns with a competence that surprises no one anymore, and the garrison's rearguard learning, at cost, the lesson Aerga's ghost kept trying to teach, the units that stack their fallen enemies for burning survive, the units that leave the piles till morning, fight the piles by morning. The city falls with its people mostly out of it, which by this war's arithmetic is a victory, and the coalition's line reforms at the capital approaches, and the continent holds its breath for winter, and into that held breath from the south come the calamities, the real ones. Balin's answer, the Empire's strategic reserve, the tamed apex divinities themselves unleashed as a formation for the first time in 300 years. I watch them arrive from a refugee column hilltop through senses no one else on this road owns, and even I go quiet. Volkov, the lion of war and wrath, gold-maned, whose stride leaves heat shimmer and whose roar is measured in provinces. The emissary lion from the council was this thing's herald, a business card with fur. Rylok, the wolf of wildness, who runs with a pack of his own cast shadows, each shadow a wolf the size of a barn. Skymar, the storm bird. A girl, actually, Eris, a bonded human, manifesting a weather system with a wingspan. The distinction matters later. Deep Coil, the deep serpent, dread of the drowned places, who travels under the land the way whales travel under fleets. And Oracle Heart, the antlered one, the prophetess deer, she of the tower visions, walking now in the flesh with her seer, bonded on her back, come to point the spear she prophesied. Their opening move is the correct one, and it costs me a month's work in an afternoon. They don't offer battle. They hit the Genzai Mountains, my Horde's landing grounds, the spawning valleys, with a coordinated month-long storm, Stormwing's hurricanes and Leona's fire fronts, and Hydra flooding the underworld rivers, a scorched, sterilized, drowned exclusion zone, conducted with the thoroughness of beings who have exterminated species before. The coalition celebrates for a week. My panel's population graph in the Genzai sector drops off a cliff, and I sit on my hilltop doing the one thing this continent keeps refusing to do, reading the fine print on my own species, because a month-long hurricane over the world's largest spore reservoir is not a sterilization, it is a cedar. Stormwing's own glorious winds are carrying viable spores in their outflow bands 1,000 miles in every direction, salting 3 empires' heartlands with the future, and the exclusion zone's kill count, however real, is being invoiced against a species whose dead are infrastructure. And under the rubble of one collapsed spawning valley, in the dark, between a cracked boulder and a dead storm, the mountain's pressure and the ambient rage and the saturated wailing of 100,000 casualties due to one buried, furious, slowly healing orc, what such conditions have never had time to do before, because nothing ever kept an orc still that long. They anneal him, wah, and magnetic field, fused at parity, tempered under a mountain for a month, mech cunning, weird boy charge and madman physics closed into one body, and when the storm finally lifts and the calamities march on, the rubble of that valley shifts, and something climbs out grinning that my panel registers with an entry it has never used before. A bestiary line that names itself the way Brakhor's title named itself, off my Horde's own dreaming mad shark, first of the perfected greens. He stands on the broken mountain in the storm's afterglow, tastes the magnetized air, hears the way sharks hear blood, the far-off note of the one fight worth swimming toward, and the first sentence of his career comes up out of him with a JoJo tilt of the head I absolutely did not put in my settings, and a nickname for his chosen rival that the entire Horde will adopt by spring. Sangrish Chicken Wing Boy. I'm coming. He means Stormwing. God help the sky. The Calamity Offensive meets my Horde and me's main body on the Ashirga Plain, and the opening air battle deserves its own war memorial, preferably one that plays sound. Stormwing leads it, the Storm Girl at altitude with a wing of Balin Sky Cavalry, plus a chameleon-scaled infiltrator called Shroud threading my Horde's rear on a sabotage run, and my Horde's air defense network reveals its winter upgrades. Scrapman has industrialized the ancient doctrine of throwing things, black giant firecrackers, which are rockets with boys riding them, orc-guided munitions whose guidance system is enthusiasm and whose warhead is also the guidance system, Gretchen interceptor rockets, one-way tickets sold out weeks in advance, massed pot launchers filling the sky lanes with buzzing squigflack, and the crown of the arsenal built on the trophy chassis from Lyle, the super cannon, the dead Godslayer's ion lance rebuilt into a fortress gun with a buzzing squig accelerator core, a name in crayon on its breech, and a Gretchen crew who have painted it red everywhere paint fits. Its first combat shot clips Stormwing at 40 degrees of climb and shears half a wing of Hurricane off her manifestation, and the Sky Cavalry formation behind her flies into a wall of teeth and firecrackers. And the air war, scheduled by Balan for an afternoon, runs 3 days and ends in a draw that both sides claim and neither repeats. The ground duel is the one the continent was owed. Brakor against Leona. War Boss against War Lion, my Horde's champion against a divinity whose title is the thing my species worships, and for once, write it down, I said it, for once my side is not the bigger monster. Leona fights in Calamity Transformation, a night shape of golden mane and furnace light, a demigod-grade war form with 3 centuries of technique, and he and Breakor go through a fortified town like weather systems courting, Iron Door against Flamemane, magnetic rotation against War Roar, and they wound each other, really wound each other. First blood both ways. Breakor's plate cracked to the green beneath. The lion's gold hide opened along one shoulder, and the two of them separate on a mutual beat, standing in the rubble bleeding and happy, gauging each other with the shared recognition of professionals who have finally found the real thing. Then Stormwing screams the retreat call overhead. The Air War's third day going badly, and the lion withdraws in good order, and Breakor lets him and his parade ground bellow after the departing enemy is the highest honor my species has ever paid a foreigner. Golden boy, that was proper. Boys, find me the golden Umi again. The staff logs it as a standing operational priority. Somewhere over the mountains, swimming the magnetized winds toward the same battlefield, something with a JoJo head tilt hears the Storm Girl's call and adjusts course, murmuring its own standing priority about chicken wings. Meanwhile, Baron Han has been assigned quarters at the capital and duties at the War Ministry, where Lord Kyan, bless his honest, drowning, completely transparent mind, spends our briefings composing internal memos about how to bind the mysterious hero to the crown before some empire outbids us. Calculations I read off his forebrain while nodding at maps, and it's in the capital's library, the royal one, my baronial privileges at full stretch, that 2 projects converge. Project 1, Bayou, the archive pays out. An entry 8 years old, a report from the Icar border marches about a foreign healer woman, hair like dawn, tending afflicted children in defiance of the Beastmark statutes. Cross-reference with a slaver consortium's seizure manifest and a transfer record north into Polka proper, into the holdings of a vat lord who collects exotic bloodlines, alive as of the manifest. The citizenship thread still reads alive today. I close the folder very gently because the alternative is closing it through the table, and I file the address under Spring Offensive, and I add 1 line to the promise ledger in my head where Kiko can never see it and I can never lose it. The sister comes home. Not this war, my war after, but she comes home. Project 2, the one the library was really for. I've been reading this continent's natural philosophy, its alchemy, its beast theory, because a suspicion has been itching me since a machine sang a lullaby, and the royal stacks scratch it. Their alchemy is real. Crude, folkloric, but real, a genuine local grammar for binding spirit to matter, and I am a god with industrial quantities of refined spirit and a library card. My first practical exercise, conducted at midnight in a warded cellar with a second-hand crucible. Following a beginner's text, I distill a war spirit from harvested battle residue, house it in a body of quenched steel and grave iron, and produce, sheathe the grimoire promised a minor-bound wraith, a bloodthirsty sword spirit that manifests as, and I am reporting this with clinical exactness, a small red kitten. With biceps, a muscular crimson kitten that lives in a greatsword, drinks battle key through the edge, pays rent by amplifying the wielder, and spends its off hours doing tiny push-ups on the crossguard. Local alchemy plus dynasty grade materials equals results the textbook authors would disown. I age the blade's furniture with my spearlight, sand the maker's marks, and compose its provenance. An heirloom of the Red Cloud Immortal Venerable, naturally, 1,000 years if it's a day. It's for Thane. The prince is about to go hunting truths guarded by god-slaying machines, and my experiment does not go into that armed with the crown's rationed lightning alone, and the sword kitten is the small version of the real project, the one I finally admit to myself in that cellar, surrounded by borrowed books, listening to my inner sea where the 4th registry entry kicks and turns. War, status, gestating. I know what I'm feeding it now, not just wrath. This continent has taught me the recipe matters more than the calories. Blood for the blood god is the shelf this idea came from, and I've read that shelf. I know how the story of an unguided war god ends, and I am not building a hunger. I'm building a heart, war with a human light in it, the Firebird's last cigarette, Jintao's decoy run, the guard trading 6 for 1 and holding, Breakor and the lion bleeding and laughing on a mutual beat, courage, refined, wrath, tempered, the thing at the center of every last stand this war has shown me. And the endgame, the part I've stopped pretending, isn't the plan. When this campaign's harvest is in, the souls of the worthiest fallen, my fallen and theirs, my horde's great bosses and this continent's braves alike, don't scatter, they muster, and a eternal army for a made god of honest war, and a workshop that can then do it again, on the next continent, on the next world. Gods, made to order, made of the best of everyone. My master wants to know what his student is really for. This is what I'm for. My spring campaign opens with the coalition's grand redoubt at the fortress city of Wyson, and opens badly because the enemy has been reading my library too, the one written in spores. Thane, walking the walls at dawn, finds what no sweep team was trained to find, not a mushroom, but a POD. Under a paving stone, in the dark and damp, a translucent caul with a curled shape inside, half-grown, patient. My horde has stopped seeding surface blooms where the burn teams harvest them. The city is pregnant with its own siege, and the discovery reframes every quarantine report of the winter. This is why they cannot be exterminated, the prince writes to the war council in the memo that finally makes the coalition take my intelligence briefings as scripture. We have been weeding the garden and calling it victory. The garden is in the walls. Stormwing lands on me the same week, delivering the Calamity Command staff for the United Defense, and the strategy conference that follows is the one where this continent stops being funny. Phelan Seer, the antlered prophetess, carried into the council hall on her divinity's back, half blind now, her visions eating her sight a candle at a time, confirms before the assembled crowns what the tower first screamed. My tide is from beyond the heavens, and her sight finds no ending where the continent survives it. And the war lion Leona's bonded marshal, Magnus, rises with Balin's answer, the Empire's real answer, the one the coalition's small members were never meant to vote on. My tide feeds on battle, he says. They've learned that much. Watching every engagement make the green line stronger so the continent will stop feeding it. Full strategic withdrawal to the southern Massif, scorched earth behind, and the northern cities, Vysen first, will not be evacuated. They will be garrisoned and left, and my tide will be given its meal, slow and fortified and poisoned with attrition to buy the Heartland a year of walls. A sacrifice city, ration a principality to the monsters. Nothing personal, Torvin tells Lord Kian in front of the Duke's own maps of the homes in question, a timeout purchased for the continent, and if Norn objects, Balin's calamities can arrange the objection to be brief. And the Council of Crowns votes for it because terror is a parliament whip like no other, and the session's last image is the one I keep. Thane on his feet, storm crawling off his shoulders, being physically restrained from the marshal by his own knight commander, Theron, and then dropped gently unconscious by Theron's own hand to the neck, because the knight commander does the arithmetic of a prince assaulting a calamity marshal and picks the smallest available tragedy. Stormwing carries the unconscious heir south with the withdrawing crowns for his own protection by order of everyone outranking him. Kian stays. The Duke walks back to his doom maps and starts planning the garrison of his own tomb with the gray, honest thoroughness he brings to everything, and his forebrain, when I read it that night, contains no self-pity at all, just rosters. He's choosing men with no children first, and 2 lodgers of the palace's guest wing are, in the official evacuation manifests, overlooked. A refugee baron and his cat-eared ward left in a sacrifice city with the doomed garrison. Kiko finds me on the wall that evening, watching the green horizon glow, and delivers her quartermaster's assessment of our situation with her ears flat and her hand in mine. Everyone with wings has flown away, and the big brother is still here, and she works it through, tail still, slit eyes on the fires, so here must be the safe place. Then, suspicious, upward, is here the safe place? Quartermaster, I tell her, and it is the single truest thing said on this continent. All war. Here is the safest place in the world. The city on the menu. The garrison, written off by 3 empires. The walls with my siege growing inside them. Safest ground on the planet because the monster's god sleeps in the guest wing with the window open. And every horror out there in the dark would sooner eat its own boss than scratch this tower. She files it. The purr starts. My siege of Wyson begins at dawn. It begins with a wall of Gretchens. I'd apologize for the image, but war reporting is war reporting. My horde's opening move is a living escalade, Gretchen swarming up their own stacked kin, a tide crest of elbows and teeth rising against the ramparts faster than the garrison's burn crews can sweep it, and behind that green surf come the buggy catapults lobbing assault boys over the parapet in ballistic arcs. The flyboys, finally airborne, a dream fulfilled at last, each one bellowing all the way down. The divine soldiers of the rearguard. Balin left a token force of true bonded beasts to make the sacrifice look like strategy. Hold the wall breaks with genuine calamity-grade violence, and the defense's brute arithmetic actually holds through the first day because Kian built his tomb well. Then my horde specialist check in. Fenris, the Shadow Wolf, hunting the walls at dusk with his pack of cast shadows, meets the Great Spear regiments and the meat-eating jumper squigs, and his shadow pack meets a countermeasure my species derived by pure doctrine. You have dogs? The pigeons also has dogs. The wolf god spends a surreal hour being coursed across my siege lines by bouncing carnivorous fungus, while heavy spear pairs bracket his materializations and withdraws with his dignity hold below the waterline. Hydra, the deep serpent, mines the city's foundations from below and meets the Super Claw, Scrapman's newest, a harpoon ballista on wheels whose entire targeting system is a psycho field of concentrated belief that it can catch anything, and I want the record to show the machine's rated performance, painted on its chassis in crayon. I reckon it'll grab, it grabs, it hauls the dread of the drowned places out of the bedrock into the daylight like a noodle from a bowl, and the serpent thrashes 2 streets flat before diving again, hold, horrified, reevaluating a career built on nothing being able to reach her. And then my species commits my war crime. I'm calling it what the calamities called it. My own staff logged it as catering. The spicy bomb egg, the dust mushroom chemical line, upgraded with a cultivar of fire pepper fungus the survey team found growing wild and improved, and the delivery method against divine grade monsters is intimate. Jumper squig teams force feeding. Hydra takes a full rack of them mid-lun internally, and the deep serpent's ancient dignity dissolves on the open channel of every sensitive on the battlefield in one long transmission of gastric betrayal. Fenris, cornered against a bastion and pinned, gets the barrage version, point blank, and the wolf of primal wildness, the terror of 3 centuries of foothill villages, passes out from the smell, on camera if this continent had cameras, in full view of both armies, which is worse. The garrison on the walls, doomed men watching their apocalyptic besiegers humiliate the continent's living gods with seasoned filth that does not know whether to cheer and settles on doing so anyway. And Leona, arriving with the relief column to find one colleague evacuated by taste and the other by nose, collects the battered calamities and pulls them south in a retreat that no ballad will ever be brave enough to describe accurately. The lion pauses once at the ridgeline, looking back at the green sea and the still-standing sacrifice city it was supposed to buy time with, and I read his thought from the wall at extreme range, and it's the most honest strategic assessment any empire has produced all war. We were sent to bleed a horde. Nobody told us my horde has a sense of humor. Nothing that laughs like that is a beast. Something up there is teaching them. Correct, golden boy. And here it comes, the part where up there stops being a hypothesis. Phelan comes back for me. That's the move nobody wargamed. Not the lion, not the coalition, not me, and I wargame everything. The prophetess Calamity turns her divinity around on the southern road against orders, against her marshal, because her seer has spent my war going blind one vision at a time and has finally understood what her sight kept snagging on. Every reading of the green tide from the first tower scream onward has had a shadow in its center, a held breath, a figure at the eye of the annihilation that her gift slides off, and a gift like hers doesn't slide off monsters, it slides off veils. So Phelan walks back through the burned marches to the sacrifice city that refused to die, climbs the wind above it, and the seer on her back opens her ruined eyes all the way, spends everything she has left, and looks at the guest wing, at the tower with the open window, at the refugee gentleman on the wall with a cat-eared child asleep against his side. Through the veil, I feel her sight land on me like a hand on a wire, and I feel what it costs her and what she sees, and I'll tell you what she sees, because it's the last vision of her career. Not a demon, not a beast god, not the toothed horror her theology has room for. She sees a boy from beyond the heavens with 2 green giants sleeping in his shadow, a heart like a closed sea, a made god turning in his depths like a child in the womb, and around him, threaded through every apocalyptic strand, the thing that breaks her, fondness. The annihilation of her continent is fond of it. My tide's father has been walking among them, buying buns and healing knees, and teaching a prince to be braver, and the ending she could never see past was never hunger, it was husbandry. Her gift, asked to hold that, does what overloaded systems do. The seer screams, the true full scream, the tower screams finished chord, and Phelan's bond floods with the backwash, and the calamity of prophecy, terrorized by her own writer's terror, does the one thing calamities do under mortal fear, she attacks. Antlers down, storm of futures unspooling off her tines, a charge with the mass of a divinity behind it, straight at the wall, at the boy, at the sleeping child beside him, and the sky above Vyson splits like a struck knuckle, because the veil she just tore was holding more than my face. Understand what her sight did, mechanically, before you judge what happens next. A prophecy-grade divinity looked at my true shape and believed it, at full power with a continent's oracle authority behind the belief, and belief on any world I stand on is load-bearing. She verified me. She notarized Tianlei into her own world's foundations. And my incarnations, patient in my shadow since a mountain outside time, feel the door of local physics unlock from the outside, and they accept the invitation. Gora comes down through the meteor. That needs unpacking. Phelan's charge carries a fate weight, a destined impact quality. Her species' attacks braid into causality itself, and causality on this continent expresses a destined calamity strike as, apparently, a falling star, a genuine burning bolide summoned down the groove of her charge prophecy dressed as ballistics. And my first incarnation, the savage but cunning, meets it head-on above the city and breaks it with his fist, one green colossus punching a meteor into gravel against a torn sky, the single most photographed instant in this continent's history, painted on more temple ceilings than I will ever be able to get taken down. And as the antlered divinity balks mid-charge beneath the raining gravel, staring up at a god her theology has no shelf for, Mazrak, and you knew, the whole Horde knew, every fireside on two worlds knows the second half of this liturgy arrives from the one-angle prophecy cannot cover behind the future and hits her across the base of the skull with his club. She never saw it coming. She could see everything coming. That's the joke. My species' entire theology is that joke, and it works on oracles, and somewhere below, 100,000 sworn witnesses detonate in the loudest single wah ever recorded on any world I own, and my faith graph does something I have to file under geology. Phelan goes down unconscious across the ruined field, Seer sprawled safe in the moss of her mane, and I stop being the refugee gentleman. I step off the wall into the torn sky between my incarnations, and I let the continent's survivors see the shape their prophetess paid her eyes for, the boy, the giants, the closed sea, and I address the calamities of the Chilan continent. All of them through every sensitive channel their bonds carry in their own tongue, with the formal courtesy the moment deserves. You are not gods, I tell the lion mid-march, 100 miles south, the serpent in her bedrock, the wolf in his shadows, the storm girl on her wind, the sleeping prophetess at my feet. You never were. You are this world's own force-made flesh, the local heaven's immune system, its temper, its grief, walking around in fur and feathers, magnificent animals wearing your planet's law. And I am an alchemist with a library card, a great deal of refined material, and a use for law, so I refine them. Gorok holds the sky open. The wall-top garrison, the doomed men of the sacrifice city, watch their god-tier tormentors handled like crucible stock. Phelan first, the sleeping prophecy lifted whole into a lattice of golden light, her divinity teased apart from her animal with a healer's touch. The deer lives. I want that on the record. The deer lives and wakes small and mortal and free in the moss. All of them live. The animals were never the material. And the law comes away clean. A strand of pure crystallized foresight, and I draw it into a bead. A prayer bead of prophecy. Hydra's dread rises out of the bedrock on the super claw's old wound channel and refines into a bead of deep water and patience. Fenris's wildness comes apart into a bead of the hunt. One by one, the continent's pantheon of terror converts under the hands of a 16-year-old in a good coat into a short string of lawful beads that would retail in my home dynasty as, let me be honest about scale, because the garrison thinks they're watching the end of the world and the appraisal matters, as a nice bracelet. Mid-tier, the sort of thing a first-rank god's disciple wears to graduation. This world's entire apex on my wrist, with room left for charms. And Leona, the lion, war, and wrath, the best of them, the one who bled Breakor and laughed. Leona I do differently, because I've had a use earmarked for a law of WR since a midnight cellar full of borrowed books. The lion's flame comes north on my summons, proud to the last stride, and I don't beat him. Goruk takes the law of war from the animal like a banner from a fallen standard bearer and carries it up, and we feed it into the warded hollow of my inner sea, into the fourth entry on my registry, into the patient, kicking, half-grown thing I have been growing out of wrath and courage, and every last stand two worlds could show me. The gestating god takes the continent's own law of battle into itself the way a foundation takes a keystone, and for the first time, my registry line updates on its own, one word blooming next to gestating, a word I did not type. Soon. Above the city, for one instant, every mortal heart on the field, garrison, horde, the freed animals, the child on the wall, beats once together in perfect synchrony to a rhythm like a drum under the world. My son, learning to knock. The lion, mortal now, golden still, looks up at me from the field with an animal's honest eyes, and I settle the last account of my war out loud for the garrison to hear and mistranslate into ballads. Your armies called this continent's gods to war against my people, and your gods have been collected as materials, and every witness to my face out here is either sworn to me, sleeping, or four-legged. The refugee baron of Norn remains a hero with excellent references. The veil reknits, paperwork intact. Kiko is awake on the wall when I come down, and she has seen all of it. The giants, the beads, the boy from beyond the heavens who does her flashcards with her. Her ears are flat, her pupils are full moons. And she delivers into the ringing silence of the changed world the review I will carry longer than any temple ceiling. The big brother is amazing, she says, and then ears lower, truer, and scary, and then, because she is my quartermaster and her ledgers always balance, she puts her hand back in mine. Both true, small one, write them both down. So, run the ledger of me one time from the top. A boy in a classroom holds up a card with a mushroom on it, and his teacher deletes him with 2 taps, and his family's whole hope fits in a firecracker and a plate of braised pork on a 5th floor walk-up. That was the start. Here's the finish. That boy stands in a torn foreign sky with 2 gods of his own making on his shoulders, a continent's pantheon converted to jewelry on his wrist, an empire's exam rewritten around him by an emperor's own hand, and a war god of his own design, kicking toward its first breath in the sea behind his ribs. They handed me a fungus and closed the window. I grew a heaven out of the fungus. I reckon that's how it is. But the episode owes you the truth about how nights end. So here's the last one. So Osoj. Far south of the Sacrifice City, over the withdrawal roads, the Stormgirl Stormwing beats her way toward the Massif with the Coalition's precious cargo, an unconscious golden-haired prince evacuated for his own good by the order of everyone who outranks him. And out of the magnetized dark above the mountains, something rises to meet her that no roster anywhere accounts for. It introduces itself the way it will introduce itself to history, with a tilt of the head and a connoisseur's patience, having crossed half a continent following the scent of the one fight worth having. Chicken Wing Boy, it says to the storm itself, I'm here. Mad Shark takes Stormwing out of the sky, over the Genzai, not killed, clipped, outfought, driven down, and the prince's escort scatters into the high caves with their cargo. And the caves, this being my continent now, are already tenanted. Thane wakes on cold stone in the dark, storm spent, guarded by the last 2 of his escort in a cave system full of soft, wet sounds and small red eyes. And from somewhere below, up through the rock, up through the marrow of a boy who has spent this whole war learning that his strength was always someone else's ledger, comes a whisper. My inner sea hears it the same instant he does, and my blood goes cold. And then, God help me, curious, because I know that drumbeat under the words, I fed that drumbeat, and it is not supposed to be audible yet, and it is absolutely not supposed to be audible there. Kill, says the newborn thing that is 1/3 the wrath of 2 worlds, 1/3 a lion's law, and 1/3 every brave last stand I ever showed it, in a voice like a heart learning to march. Kill, and approach me, and obtain the power you desire. And my friend, my experiment, my thunder prince, who owes me a drink from the good cellar, and I always collect, your highness, that debt is registered, gets up off the cave floor in the dark, takes his sword, and starts walking toward the sound. That's where I leave you. The continent is mine, but doesn't know it. The shark is loose in the sky. My son is whispering to my friend in the dark, and I'm already moving, because whatever is about to be born down there is going to open its eyes on its very first war. And somebody has to be standing there when it does, holding the leash or the flowers. Ask the mushroom how this ends. The mushroom always knows.